Zhang had just returned from the forest and was emotionless as he saw his grandfather dead. His grandfather was cut in half. That's how he was brutally murdered. Looking at the body, tears won't come. He doesn't feel any sadness either. He was the only family I had. How terrible of a human am I? Back then, Zhang just returned home and proudly showing his grandfather that he got a spirit connection herb. You're back. Good work. I looked in the eastern parts, as you said, and that's where I found it. Zhang proudly said while showing off the herb. He then shares that he saw a fox den beside where he found the herb. The mother fox is not present, only the babies. Hearing this, the grandfather immediately asked, "So, did you kill the babies?" "Why would I? The mother would be sad if she came back to see all her babies had been killed." Hearing this, the grandfather felt relieved. "Let's put this away and have dinner." Then he immediately turned serious. "Zhang, can you promise Grandpa something?" Zhang then asks what promise. "The true nature that you hide within yourself. Don't ever reveal it to anyone." "I'm sorry, Grandpa." This time, he decided to fully unleash the evil within his heart. He immediately picked up a sickle. "I don't think I can keep that promise." Zhongyang country. The sound of thick wooden bars on the carriage wheels could be heard. Prisoners with their hands and feet bound were seen in the wooden cages. A large crowd gathered in the marketplace and a long procession was passing through the center of the village street. The villagers' mood was extremely grim as they watched the procession. The procession continued for a while. "Die, you swines." A government official watched them from an inn's second-floor window. He glanced at a certain cage. Unlike the other prisoners, there was one locked up alone. The prisoner's chest and abdomen were stained red. "He's young and must be about the same age as the young master," he said while sipping his tea. The man who had been observing him spoke. "We shouldn't underestimate him just because he's young. He's probably the worst out of all the prisoners. Well, I assume that's why he got a whole carriage to himself. You'll be surprised if I told you how many people he killed with a scythe. People call him the scythe killer demon." Then, the man changed the subject. "What kind of request did you have this time?" "I need to hire someone. Someone young. Someone no one would care about if he were to die." Thud. Before the government official could finish speaking, a stone flew and struck the head of the boy inside the wooden cage. The surroundings became noisy. However, the boy showed no signs of movement or groans of pain. That young boy is quite a unique one. Does he not feel pain? His head is like that. Yet how? This sight caught the government official's attention as well. As the flowing blood soaked his head, the government official was staring at the young prisoner with an extremely shocked expression. Just then, the boy tilted his head upward as if it was bothersome. This revealed his face that had been obscured by his hair. Instantly, exclamations of surprise escaped the nearby onlookers' mouths. The government official was the same. He's pretty enough to be mistaken as a woman, killing people with such a pretty face. Just then, the government official stood up from his seat. "I don't have a request for you anymore." "What? You called me here." "Hey!" the man called out as the government official walked down the stairs. As he walked out of the entrance of the inn, he glanced at the cage. Found him, he thought after looking at the prisoner. He's the perfect candidate. In the inner castle of Zhongyang Country Golden Jade Hall, most of the imprisoned criminals were asleep. Amidst them, there was only one person who wasn't asleep. Zhang was staring blankly at the wall. "I was too rash. That bastard." He was reminded of the person whom he believed killed his grandfather. "I was wondering who was following us, but to think it was some kid who no one knows of. He was a monster. I finally managed to find the one who killed my grandfather, but he was different from the others. He defeated me before I could even do anything. Even if I were to fight him again, the result would be the same. I cannot think of a way to kill him." As his consciousness gradually faded, Zhang thought he was going to die like this, but to think it was some kid no one knows of. Those words echo in his head. However, when he woke up again, he found himself back in the dungeon. Although he miraculously survived, he was unable to avenge his grandfather. From the man, he learned of the existence of martial arts. If I could master martial arts, maybe I could defeat him, but do I still have a chance? As he pondered his next move, thick fog reached his feet. Zhang's eyes narrowed. "Smoke? Is there a fire?" "No, it's a different smell." Just then, a thick fog filled the cell. Familiar with medicinal herbs from childhood, he instantly identified the components: lizard's tail, purple parsnip, valerian root, and birthroot, ingredients for sleeping incense. Moments later, he slowly closed his eyes. Meanwhile, a figure came straight to his cell. The man raised his hand and unlocked the shackles on his feet. Just as the person was about to take him away, Zhang suddenly opened his eyes and, seizing the moment of shock, kicked him hard, then frantically ran towards the outside of the cell. "I don't know what's happening, but this is my chance." I was able to stay awake thanks to how badly the herbs were combined. However, in the next second, a strong numbness swept over his body. The man quickly pointed a few fingers at Zhang. "I've gone for your pressure points. You won't be able to move anymore." Then, he was thrown back into the cell. "A martial artist. Is it perhaps the one who killed my grandfather?" When Zhang saw the newcomer's face, he couldn't help but feel suspicious. No, they're similar in appearance, but that bastard had several scars over his left eye. Suddenly, a man wearing a bamboo hat slowly walked up. "Guard Cam, is it him?" "Young master, I told you to wait outside." Before Guard Cam could finish speaking, the man wearing a bamboo hat interrupted. "Is it him? Prop him up so that I can see his face." "And a chair." "Yes, young master." Zhang, who is immobilized by acupuncture, watches them silently. Just then, Guard Cam grabbed his hair and forced him to sit. "You're right, he looks exactly like me. When the young master lifted the bamboo hat, Zhang showed a shocked expression. This person looked exactly like him. For someone who looks exactly like me to appear in this situation, could there be anything more fateful than this? Seems like you're just as surprised. Zhang was astounded to the point of disbelief at the resemblance, as if they were twins. I heard you were on death row, drawn and quartered in 2 days. Zhang remained still momentarily before replying. That's right, there really was such a strange coincidence in the world. We share the same face, but our fates are utterly different. I am a young master, and you are a death row inmate. Zhang looked at him directly, confused about what he meant. However, I will give you a very rare chance. A chance to become the 3rd young master of the Great Mock Sword Manor. A chance to become my double, Mok Jiangwon. Hearing this, Zhang felt a glimpse of hope. A chance? It won't be difficult, and you just need to enjoy the delicacies and beauties in the villa. You'll be able to enjoy all the things you've never had the privilege of so far, and after it's done, you will be given endless wealth, so that you can go wherever you want as a free man. If you want to do it, eat this, Mok Jiangwon said while guard Cam showed Zhang the pill. Is it poison? Did you think that we'd just trust you blindly when you're a prisoner? If you manage to complete the job, I will give you the antidote. So, what will you do? Seeing the pill placed to his mouth, Zhang knew his opportunity had arrived and opened his mouth without hesitation. Seeing Zhang swallow the poison, Mok Jiangwon's face revealed a sinister smile. Now, will you really give me that chance? Hearing this, Mok Jiangwon smiled, a wise choice. He then ordered guard Cam to release Zhang's acupoints and locks. Guard Cam did as ordered and undo Zhang's pressure point seal and unlocked the wooden restraints binding Zhang's hands. Little did he know, he would soon pay with his life for this decision. Guard Cam approached the entrance of the prison and quietly said, I'll lead the way. You, follow behind me. Young master, please follow behind him. Alright, since the boy had taken the poison pill, he wouldn't be able to escape, but it was a precautionary measure. If guard Cam led the way and the young master watched from behind, how could the fellow escape? Even if he was a death row inmate, he was no different from a child compared to those who had learned martial arts. Just as guard Cam was about to open the prison door and leave, he turned his head. We're clear. Please be careful following me. However, an unbelievable scene unfolded before his eyes. As they walked out of the cell, Zhang seized the moment of Mok Jiangwon's unpreparedness and directly snapped his neck 180 degrees. Totally taken aback, guard Cam is clenching his jaw. Zhang then dropped Mok Jiangwon on the floor with a shocked expression. His neck completely twisted and turned around. It had happened so suddenly that guard Cam was momentarily at a loss for words. Zhang nonchalantly said, What now, guard Cam? The fake's dead now. Right before the slaughtering scythe demon was arrested, cry for help can be heard from afar. Run, help! Zhang is grabbing a decapitated head of a person. This is fun, he thought while chasing and killing people. I killed everyone that I thought might be related to the death of my grandfather. The emotion I felt while killing dozens of people was joy. He then remembered what his grandfather said. Don't ever reveal to anyone the true nature that you hide within yourself. My true nature. What kind of facial expression did I have while killing all these people? Am I smiling? Is this the true nature my grandfather was referring to? Slaughtering scythe demon. The man shouted as Zhang walked closer. Is my true nature evil? I don't know. I'm just going to kill for now, he thought while grinning and raising his scythe. Just then, his body was suddenly kicked away. He felt a strong impact from the kick. He then coughed from the pain, which caught the attention of the newcomer. You're alive? That's impressive. Zhang looked at the man and thought, this bastard, he's dangerous. His instincts told him that this newcomer was the murderer of his grandfather. Yet, just from the formidable presence emanating from the man, he was rendered immobile. Looks like you haven't even learned martial arts. Before he could react, the man appeared in front of him in an instant, grabbed his neck. He's fast. He was standing far from me, but he closed the distance in just a second. Is he even human? Zhang thought as he is struggling to break free from the man's grip. Interesting. I was wondering who was following us, but to think it was some kid who's not even trained in martial arts. He then pierced his sword through Zhang's body. Zhang immediately coughs blood. He then pulled the sword. A kid that can survive my ultimate attack despite not being trained in martial arts. He then pierced Zhang with the sword again. It'd be best to kill you now. You shouldn't have gone around killing people. You ended up shortening your own lifespan. You should have just lived a quiet life. I was defeated so easily. After finally finding the person who killed my grandfather, as his consciousness gradually faded, Zhang thought he was going to die like this. I did not die, but I will soon be killed. If I were given another chance, I would not let go of it. Looking at Mok Jiangwon's corpse on the ground, it was already too late. Zhang revealed an ominous smile. What now? Guard Cam. The imposter's dead now. Quickly regaining guard Cam's senses, he grabbed Zhang by the neck and slamming him against the wall. Insane bastard. You actually killed the young master. Do you want to die? Zhang then revealed a sinister smile. He knew well that the double must bear all the dangers in place of the real person. If he went with them, his death was indeed inevitable. Guard Cam furrowed his brows. He was grabbing the boy's neck, but there were no signs of distress. Rather, the boy was speaking perfectly fine. Didn't you consider the possibility that I might kill you? Actually, you don't really want to kill me, otherwise you would have done it already. Upon hearing Zhang's words, the guard, enraged and embarrassed, lifted his hand and violently threw him to the ground, his sword poised to stab Zhang. Do you think I really don't dare to kill you? Yet Zhang remained calm and composed, unconcerned, and instead said, "Is that necessary? Why wouldn't it be?" Guard Cam asked in a violent voice. "I took the poison you gave me. I can't live without the antidote. That means I have no choice but to obey you. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you. The third young master of the Mocksword Manor is now your loyal dog. So you mean to tell me I should betray the young master and use you as my puppet?" Hearing this, Jong smiled. The loyal guard was shaken by Jong's words. He snorted coldly, raised its arm, and thrust his sword into the ground, barely missing Jong's head. He then pulled his sword. "From now on, you are the legitimate Mok Jaeongwon," and thus began Jong's plan for revenge. Not long after, inside the Mocksword Manor, the guard warned Jong, "Stay in your room and don't leave without permission." Then it's not different from being a double, is it? You're in no position to be asking questions when you've chosen to be a puppet instead of a double. If you get caught, you will not receive the antidote. Then Guard Cam moved closer to him. "If you disobey me or try any tricks, I will kill you immediately." Jong then smiled. "All right." Saying this, Guard Cam casually threw an antidote to Jong. "Take one every 24 hours, or you will die from the poison." In the afternoon, Jong took the antidote, feeling very fortunate to have survived being stabbed in the chest. "Perhaps this is all Grandpa's doing to stop me from dying so early. Well, I don't intend on dying until I avenge you, so don't worry, Grandpa," Jong thought while looking out the window. As for the person who wanted him dead, they probably thought he was already gone. Now, he could legitimately impersonate Mok Jaeongwon in the Mocksword Manor, learning martial arts to avenge his grandfather. "I will then find the bastard who killed my grandfather and kill him the same way he killed my grandfather." The thought of this made Jong happy. Morning arrives. Jong is inside his room having his meal. "I miraculously managed to avoid death, and I did get a chance to learn martial arts," Jong thought to himself. He then glances at the door. To prevent Jong from playing tricks, Guard Cam specifically sent his disciple, Go-chan, to monitor him. When Go-chan learned that Jong had killed Mok Jaeongwon, he was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped, but he had no choice but to follow his senior brother's arrangement and continue with the plan. Meanwhile, Guard Cam also felt a headache coming on. "I'll come up with a different plan in the meantime and we'll throw him out and side with someone else." Hearing this, Go-chan curiously asked, "Didn't you say that you fed him poison? It'll be hard for him to disobey us. The reason we chose third young master in the first place because..." Before he could continue, Guard Cam interrupted. He's not the kind of person to be obedient. As a death row inmate, not only had Jong killed Mok Jaeongwon in such circumstances, but he also claimed to replace him. Keeping such a person even one more day was a risk. He's dangerous. Getting involved with him will do us no good, Guard Cam added as he walked down the stairs. Go-chan was left there speechless. Go-chan, however, thought Guard Cam was getting cowardly. A kid who doesn't know martial arts isn't that scary. Jong also spent the past few days reflecting on everything that had happened. Guard Cam hadn't told him the real reason they needed a double, just left Go-chan to watch and left. The Great Mocksword Manor wasn't a place so dangerous as to require a double, so Jong guessed they would only use him under specific circumstances. And with no action for so long, perhaps Guard Cam was already considering changing masters secretly. Within moments, Jong had mostly figured out Guard Cam's intentions. At that moment, Go-chan, who was guarding the door, was already dozing off. Jong directly pushed open the room door. Jong told him that he just wants some fresh air and invited him to come along since he have a question to ask Go-chan. Go-chan immediately warned, "If you don't want to die, stay in the room." Jong scoffed, "As long as you don't tell, no one will know we went out." Seeing him openly challenging him, Go-chan pressed Jong against the wall. "You seem to have forgotten your place. Nothing good will come out of annoying me, so go the hell back inside." Jong looked at him calmly. "You're definitely weaker than Guard Cam." The next second, Jong placed his hand on Go-chan's shoulder, mimicked Guard Cam's move, and threw Go-chan over his shoulder, pressing him on the floor, then seal several of Go-chan's acupoints. "My body won't move? Could it be seal my pressure points?" Go-chan looked at Jong in disbelief and thought to himself, this bastard, was he hiding the fact that he learned martial arts? Jong showed surprised expression. He had pressed the acupoints just as Guard Cam had, yet Go-chan could still move. Immediately, he pressed several points on Go-chan's back again. At that moment, Go-chan finally realized this person had learned Guard Cam's martial arts just by witnessing it once. Guard Cam was right. This guy is dangerous. Seeing that he was no match for Jong, Go-chan once again used poison as a threat. "Aren't you afraid of bleeding from all orifices and dying in agony?" But Jong was unaffected, merely biting his finger and feeding the blood into Go-chan's mouth. Go-chan panicked completely, rolling back and forth on the ground trying to spit out the poisoned blood, but it was too late. At the same time, Jong kicked him and spoke again. "I've been picking herbs with my grandfather since I was young and have tasted all kinds of poisons. Ordinary poisons are useless against me. Even my blood contains a strong poison, so I don't need the neutralizer. I said I wanted to ask you a question, right? Can you tell me about the Mocksword Manor? By the way, I'm the only one who can neutralize the poison of my blood. I'm sure you'll be a lot of help to me." Hearing this, Go-chan is visibly scared and thought, he's a demon. At the Mocksword Manor main hall, it turned out that the Lord of Mocksword Manor, Mock-inden, had been seriously ill for a long time, and despite the doctor's best efforts, even the cause of the illness was undiagnosed. Since the Lord lord had not decided on an heir. The four sons were brewing a fratricidal storm. If the manor master dies, the brothers will spill blood trying to obtain the position. The eldest son, Mak Yango, not only indulged in debauchery but also had a violent temperament, making him the most incompetent among the brothers. The second son, Mak Yunpian, was cunning and ruthless in achieving his goals. The first lady, favoring only her eldest son to ascend as the lord. Who knows what she'll do to secure that position for him? Lady Suk, manor master's first wife, asked, "How's the manor master?" The doctor is unsure what to answer. Thus Lady Suk repeats her question. "I asked how he is. I apologize. My knowledge is lacking. I cannot figure out a treatment for him. I can only call it very strange." Hearing this, Lady Suk is disappointed, as I expected. Thus, she mentioned that there is no option other than shamanistic arts, ostensibly to exorcise demons for the manor master. Hearing this, the doctor immediately disagrees. Shamanism is nothing more than a false belief. How could you resort to such a? Lady Suk then interrupted. Then should I just do nothing until my husband dies? Despite the doctor's strong objections, it was to no avail. I don't want to hear it any longer. I've already called a shaman who deals with such unidentified illness, so you are excused. Later, the first lady even ordered that the lord's room be sealed off, allowing no one to approach. "We will have the shaman deal with the manor master's illness, so don't let anyone into the main hall. Not a single soul." That is the current situation of the Mock Sword Manor. After learning of these circumstances, Zhang called on Go-chan, planning to meet the manor master. At the same time, the entire plan of the third young master, Mok Jaewoon, was fully exposed to him. The real Mok Jaewoon wanted the double to appear, letting the brothers kill each other, and then he would reap the benefits. As long as the brothers died, he could emerge quietly and take control, also known as a winning by default plan. This way, regardless of who lives, it becomes such that the two brothers tried to kill each other and they would be eliminated as heirs. Then, after Mok Jaewoon appears perfectly fine, he would easily gain the upper hand. Unfortunately, Zhang's arrival became the biggest variable in this plan. "But young master, why are you trying to go to the manor master?" Go-chan asked curiously. "From what I heard, the life and death of the manor master is related to my life. That's why I'm trying to visit." Zhang answered while tearing the paper with a written plan. He then threw the paper into the air. "But if guard Cam finds out that you're moving..." Before Go-chan finished, Zhang interrupted with an ominous smile. "You'll keep it a secret from him? Thanks, guard Go-chan." Just then, Lady Suk is waiting for someone. Walking figure can be seen from afar. "So, can I see the manor master now? This is Shaman Myo Shin, the shaman hired by Lady Suk. I've heard that Shaman Myo is miraculous, so I will trust you once." Shaman Myo then told Lady Suk to ask everyone within 30 paces of the main building to leave. Otherwise, it'll be bad luck. I have already taken those steps. Other than the guard who protects the entrance, they will all leave. The shaman then looks at Lady Suk. "You also need to take your leave, madam. You haven't forgotten what I've asked, right?" "Of course," Shaman Myo answered immediately. "The manor master's seal and secret manual." Hearing this, Lady Suk is satisfied. "If you find those, I will give you 300 silver coins immediately." "Thank you, madam." Lady Suk then ordered all the servants, "All of you, leave until I say otherwise." Then, she also prepared to leave the main hall. On her way out, someone training caught her attention. Displeased can be seen all over her face. It turns out that the one training is the fourth son, Mok Yu-chun, the child of a geisha. She immediately turned around and thought to herself, "Even if I can understand fooling around with a geisha, giving the manor master position to that lowly blood is something I can't forgive." Then she exited the hall. Meanwhile, on their way to the lord's room, they passed the training ground and happened to see the fourth son, Mok Yu-chun, practicing martial arts. Although he was born to the lord and a geisha, he was diligent, skilled in martial arts, and deeply favored by the lord. However, this was something the first lady absolutely could not tolerate. Seeing Mok Yu-chun's way of practicing, Zhang became very interested in him. He casually asked Go-chan, "If I learn martial arts, could I kill guard Cam?" Receiving no response, Zhang repeated the question. Hearing this question, Go-chan trembled inwardly, thinking, has he realized that we're planning to abandon him? This guy is not only smart but practically a schemer. He swallowed and explained to Zhang, "The foundation of learning martial arts is the cultivation of internal strength." Hearing this, Zhang became more interested and asked Go-chan to elaborate more. Internal strength means allowing the energy of nature to circulate within the body through breathing techniques, eventually forming inner chi. The more inner chi accumulated, the stronger the martial power. However, inner chi cannot be developed overnight. A first-rate expert like Guard Cam has at least half a cycle of chi accumulation, so it's very difficult for you to surpass him in the short term. So, it'll be difficult to do in a short period of time, Zhang said after listening to Go-chan's explanation. At this point, Go-chan hadn't fully explained because there is also an optimal period for cultivating internal strength. After the age of 7 or 8, the body accumulates too much impure energy, making it impossible to gather internal strength even with practice. That is to say, Zhang would never be able to surpass Guard Cam in his lifetime. Seeing Go-chan looking smug, Zhang had already guessed his thoughts and turned to touch his cheek, softly saying, "Your eyes sure do look greedy. It makes me want to gouge them out." However, Zhang did not pursue this further and instead asked cheerfully, "How about you become my man from now on?" Out of fear, Go-chan agrees. Since Jong couldn't kill guard Cam or persuade him to switch sides, he had no better strategy at the moment. Thinking this, he turned his head and asked again, is there any bad blood between Mok Jae-won and the fourth young master? He learned that 2 years ago, Mok Jae-won called the fourth young master's mother a whore and got beaten up pretty badly for it. Jong couldn't help but laugh loudly. The fourth young master is quite decent. At least he didn't crush Mok Jae-won's limbs. Saying this, he then turned and walked towards the Lord's room. At that moment, back in the manor master's room, Shaman Myo was wrapping the entire room with red threads and copper coins while the manor master lay on the bed unresponsive, with strange black lines spreading outward from his heart. Although it looked like poisoning, it was actually the result of being consumed by evil energy. Fortunately, the Lord had practiced martial arts for many years, which kept him alive until now. Sadly, having been afflicted by evil for too long, even if Shaman Myo had great powers, he only had a 50% chance of saving him. However, Shaman Myo's goal was not to save the Lord but to complete the task given by the lady. The Lord's life or death was of no concern to him. He held a pen in one hand and drew a ghostly talisman, then chanted loudly a spell while commanding the talisman, and the talisman stuck directly to the manor master's chest. A burst of energy surged wildly from the talisman, accompanied by Shaman Myo chanting spells and slapping seals, scattering the evil energy on the Lord's body. Gradually, manor master's eyes turned blood red, as if he was about to be possessed by something, and even Shaman Myo was blown away, with the situation nearly spiraling out of control. Just then, Jong pushed open the door and said with a smile, I've come to pay my respects. I give you my greetings, father. The sudden intrusion interrupted Shaman Myo's casting, and before he could identify the intruder, he cried out, get out now, or the Lord will be in mortal danger. But Jong ignored him, busying himself with checking on the Lord. Shaman Myo desperately begged, please get out. If things go wrong. At this moment, the evil energy on the Lord's body surged, and the strange power possessing him grew stronger, completely losing control. The Lord's body twisted and floated in the air. In desperation, Shaman Myo quickly asked Jong and Go-chan to help hold down the Lord. Looking at the manor master, Go-chan and Jong are unsure of what to do. Hurry, hold him down, Shaman Myo instructed. The shaman placed another talisman on the Lord's forehead, continuously muttering under his breath. However, the evil energy on the Lord grew stronger, and the small talisman could not suppress it. The eerie aura began to travel along the Lord's arm toward Go-chan. At this critical moment, Jong made a decisive move and chopped off the manor master's hand. This action stunned everyone present. Seeing the eerie aura returning to the manor master, Jong showed an ominous smile, then, proceeding to attack again, decapitating the manor master's arm. Seeing this, Go-chan thought, this crazy bastard just cut off the manor master's arm. Shaman Myo quickly raised his hand, sticking another talisman on the severed limb, barely stabilizing the situation. But by then, Shaman Myo was already thinking of escaping. Just as he was preparing to pack up and flee, a long sword was already placed at his neck. Jong had seen through his little scheme from the start. Go-chan wanted to say something, but was stopped by Jong. Is this the reason the Lord has been bedridden? Jong asked indifferently. The shaman, now terrified by Jong's actions, could only stammer out excuses. The Lord is possessed by something strange, and the situation is far from over. If we waste more time, he could die at any moment. However, Jong's face remained indifferent. The shaman shivered and tentatively asked, do you also wish for the Lord to die? When Jong heard the word also, he instantly understood everything. Was it the lady who instructed you to do this? Knowing he could no longer hide the truth, the shaman confessed everything. After hearing the truth, Go-chan wiped a cold sweat, thinking to himself, if the eldest son takes the Lord's position, one can only imagine what will become of him. To secure his own future, Go-chan hurriedly explained to Jong, we must save the Lord. If the Lord dies, the lady will surely pin the blame on you. The shaman also chimed in, saying he had a way to save the Lord. However, at this moment, Jong fell into deep thought. Soon, Jong revealed a smile. He did not ask the shaman to save the Lord, but instead instructed him to continue inquiring about the whereabouts of the official seal and the secret manual. Everyone was terrified by his decision, but Jong offered no explanation. Out of options, the shaman took out a puppet, saying, if the evil spirit continues to erode the Lord, he will truly die. This puppet can take the Lord's place. After saying this, the shaman tied the puppet and the severed arm together, then slapped a seal and chanted a spell. The evil spirit attached to the severed arm materialized into a hand that tightly grasped the puppet. Meanwhile, the Lord let out a painful scream. Knowing that the evil energy emitted by the evil spirit was too strong, the shaman realized that if he continued, the seal would be broken, and the third young master would definitely not spare him. Thinking this, the shaman made a decisive decision to kill two birds with one stone. He used the excuse that outsiders should not stay here to send Go-chan away first, then murmured a few more words, and under his control, the Lord slowly revealed the hiding place of the secret manual and the official seal, past the front stone door in an underground chamber under the medicinal hall. As soon as the words were spoken, the puppet shattered under the erosion of the evil energy. The shaman quickly shouted to Jong, cut the red thread quickly. The evil spirit is trying to take over the manor master's body. However, As the red thread was severed, the evil spirit rapidly crawled along the ground and climbed toward Zhang. Zhang glanced at the shaman. At this moment, the shaman revealed a sinister smile. As the ghostly hand enveloped Zhang's body, he pressed a talisman on Zhang's forehead. In this way, he completed the lady's mission and could also pin the blame on Zhang. However, what the shaman did not know was that this action completely unleashed the purest evil thoughts hidden deep within Zhang. The deceived evil spirit, venting all its anger on Zhang, tried to completely take over his body. At the same time, Zhang fell into an illusion. He was in a familiar place, the watering hole he always visits. A peaceful mountain. He knows this place well. Since it's a place he always visits, he wouldn't be able to forget even if he wanted to. He fetches water like he used to. However, while walking, he felt a strange feeling. A feeling as if he is forgetting something. Just then, he noticed a fire blazing in the forest, and he was shocked when he realized it was the direction of the house. In a rush, he drops the pail of water and runs hysterically, muttering to himself, "Grandfather, please, please." He runs as fast as he can. When he reached the house, he shouted, calling out to his grandfather. When he saw his grandfather, he was utterly shocked. The scene of his grandfather's tragic death replayed before his eyes. "Wake up, grandfather," he called out while holding the corpse. No, who could have done this? And this time, he cried, his tears heart-wrenching. He finally understood how important his grandfather was to him. After sensing Zhang's inner desire, the evil spirit created a world without regrets for him. Seeing his deceased grandfather standing before him again, Zhang could no longer contain his excitement and hugged his grandfather tightly. "Hey, this old man is gonna fall over. Why are you being like this all of a sudden? I won't lose my grandfather ever again since he is the reason that someone who should have died, is still alive." Zhang thought to himself. Just when the evil spirit thought that Zhang would forever bask in this false happiness, Zhang's expression suddenly changed, and he turned and grabbed towards the evil spirit's head. "You made me angry, daring to mock me with my grandfather's death." The evil spirit wore an incredulous look, unable to understand why Zhang could see through its illusion. "And you seem to have misunderstood something." Zhang sneered. "Did you think my happiness is to revive my grandfather? You should have let me rip apart the bastard that killed my grandfather." Before it could continue to ponder, a bone-chilling cold swept over its body. This was a purity of evil that even spirits would not approach. At that moment, feeling Zhang's overwhelming intent to kill, it was terrified in its heart. Can a living person really possess such emotions? Meanwhile, the grandfather's voice rang in Zhang's mind. "Do you know why I named you Zhang? You are a child that's different from others, but I wished for you to grow up to be kind and righteous. So, I pray that you will continue to grow as a righteous person." Feeling the overwhelming intent to kill, the evil spirit actually detached its arm and turned to flee. By this time, the evil spirit had no idea how long it had been running. Finally, the evil spirit reached the deepest part of Zhang's heart. On a vast meadow, there was only one sealed door. A field? This is the place deep within his consciousness? Then the evil spirit noticed the door. Although it did not know what was behind the door, the evil spirit decided to open it and completely devour Zhang's heart. However, before the evil spirit can open the door, everything around was gradually enveloped by black mist, and the body of the evil spirit was bit by bit consumed by the black mist. It struggled desperately, trying to escape, but it was too late. Amidst its desperate screams, the evil spirit was completely dragged into an endless abyss. Meanwhile, Zhang suddenly opened his eyes, and the evil energy instantly filled the room. Shaman Miao turned around and immediately showed a look of terror. Zhang nonchalantly tore off the talisman from his forehead, and clouds of black mist continuously surged from his palms. Zhang quietly uttered one word, "Demon monk." The black mist slowly condensed, eventually forming a human figure. Shaman Miao looked on in horror, realizing this was not a mere resentful spirit, but a high-class evil spirit. Before he could react, at Zhang's command, Demon Monk violently attacked him. Although Shaman Miao barely blocked the attack, he was completely terrified by Zhang's action. Zhang was actually able to command an evil spirit. For humans, evil spirits are nothing short of a disaster. However, before he could fully grasp the situation, the evil spirit's hand reached for him again. He was blasted from the Demon Monk's energy. In a panic, Shaman Miao quickly grabbed a precious sword beside him, but against a demon from hell, his figure seemed so insignificant. How could a mere mortal object withstand it? Countless tendrils reached for his body, and Shaman Miao continuously cried out for mercy. But Zhang did not waver, watching everything coldly, devoid of any compassion. Shaman Miao reached out to Zhang, crying out, "If it's because I tricked you." Before he could finish, Zhang interrupted, "No, that's not why. Since you've heard about the official seal and the secret manual, I can't let you live." Just like that, Shaman Miao was dragged into the abyss of endless fear. Only at the last moment did he realize that from the beginning, he was merely Zhang's prey. Moments later, Zhang called out to Go-chan. When he returned to the room, he was utterly shocked, and seeing the terrifying state of Shaman Miao's death, he shivered. Just then, Zhang nonchalantly said, "You can ask questions later. Can you carry the corpse?" Under Zhang's arrangement, Zhang staged the room to look like Shaman Miao went crazy and cut off the Lord's arm and then attempted to kill him. We stumbled upon the scene and put a stop to it. Hearing this, Go-chan was a bit confused and then asked, "Is that your plan on hiding the truth?" "Yes. Is there a problem with that?" But Go-chan worried that such tricks wouldn't deceive the lady. Young young master, a half-hearted attempt to concealment will only draw suspicion to you. Was it that obvious? Even if the shaman somehow went crazy and we ended up subduing him, the manor mistress that hired him won't easily accept it. Zhang thinks of a way to make it a bit more believable. Without hesitation, Zhang lifted the sword and plunged it into his own thigh. This act made Go-chan's spine chill. Then Zhang looked at him directly. Is it a bit more believable now? Seeing this, Go-chan hadn't expected Zhang to be so ruthless even to himself. His fear intensified, realizing this was not someone he could afford to provoke. Just then, a figure suddenly appeared. It was Zhang Myanjin from the inner hall of Mocksword Manor. Originally, he and the Lord Mockinden were brothers in arms and had sworn loyalty to the Lord 19 years ago. But now, for the future of Mocksword Manor, he had eerily agreed to the lady's request. Stepping away for a while shouldn't cause any problems. He hadn't expected to return to this scene. He angrily demanded to know what they had done to the Lord. Go-chan hurriedly explained that it was a misunderstanding, while Zhang feigned weakness, about to say something but then collapsed on the floor. Confused, Zhang Myanjin grabbed Go-chan and interrogated him. Go-chan initially wanted to say something but, seeing the sinister smile on Zhang's face, immediately abandoned all thoughts. He understood that Zhang was definitely acting. In the end, he could only explain things according to Zhang's arrangement. Soon after, Zhang lay in the pharmacy of Mocksword Manor, the scent of medicinal herbs around him feeling immensely familiar. Thinking he would soon have the secret manual and the official seal, he felt much relieved, even though these items were just beneath the pharmacy. With the place crowded during the day, Zhang decided to search for the official seal and the secret manual at night. At that moment, Go-chan, his hand bandaged, entered the room and, following Zhang's instructions, retrieved 2 books from Shaman Myo's corpse. One was Master Chu's Summary, original book of the Yin-Yang school, and the other was First Tome of Anomaly. Since the lady had ordered all Shaman Myo's belongings to be burned to destroy evidence, these books were secretly taken by Go-chan before they were destroyed. Go-chan didn't understand why Zhang wanted these 2 books, but Zhang didn't explain, merely pointing out the window. Can you see anything out there? Go-chan looked out the window for a long time, but couldn't spot anything. Unbeknownst to him, a ghostly shadow was floating outside the window, visible only to Zhang. That's why I want to figure it out. Just then, both of them heard noises from the outside. When Zhang thought everything was going smoothly, the lady suddenly visited the pharmacy. Seeing her appear, both Go-chan and Zhang were startled. Go-chan quickly greeted her immediately. Zhang looked at her carefully. The lady, born into a martial Suk clan, was not only highly skilled in martial arts but also more cunning and dangerous than the eldest son, Mok Yango. Even guard Cam reminded Zhang to be extra cautious around her. Just then, Zhang greeted her. He's still sitting on the bed, indicated he was unable to stand due to his leg injury. Go-chan sweated coldly at his actions. He greeted her better than I expected. I'm not here to hear your greeting, which made Zhang confused. Then Lady Suk suddenly punched Zhang in the leg. Zhang and Go-chan were utterly shocked. The intense pain made Zhang involuntarily grunt. Go-chan wanted to intervene, but a sword was suddenly placed at his neck. Don't move, Lady Suk guard said seriously. Lady Suk then looked at Zhang with a smile, instantly realizing that his wound was self-inflicted. She hadn't expected Zhang to go so far as to harm himself to conceal the truth. Although you fooled the inner hall master, you can't fool me. You should know, a powerful shaman would never be backfired by his own spells. Are you trying to fool me with such tricks? With that, Lady Suk slapped Zhang across the face. Zhang's frail body was instantly flung away. Lady Suk shook her hand and continued to press. What exactly did you hear in the room? Zhang was silent for a moment, then suddenly burst into hysterical laughter. The lady thought he had gone mad, but the next second, Zhang's expression turned cold, and he simply said, "Demonic monk." A ghostly shadow suddenly appeared behind him and lunged at the lady. The lady felt something pass over her, while a maid beside her was grabbed by the neck by demonic monk, her whole body floating in the air, desperately struggling. Seeing this, the lady remembered Shaman Myo's terrifying death. Before she could ponder further, Zhang's voice came from behind her. The secret manual and the seal. Aren't those what you need? Then you should be negotiating terms with me, instead of trying to threaten me. At this moment, the lady clearly panicked. She wanted to say something, but Zhang didn't give her a chance. Actually, I don't want the Lord's position, but since you're pressing me so hard, I might just have to tell the 2nd or 4th brother the information about the secret manual and the seal. After all, the 4th brother has a good foundation in martial arts. It would make a nice peace offering to him. These words infuriated the lady so much that her face turned green, but she was helpless against Zhang and could only leave in a fit of rage. Back at her residence, the more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She repeatedly muttered, "How dare he? How dare he?" And her guard tried to calm her down. Calm down? Does it look like I can calm down right now? The usually weak boy had dared to snatch her things right in front of her today. She suspected that Zhang had always been hiding his true nature. Now that I think about it, others have always praised him for being smart. But after his mother died, the family on his mother's side began to lose influence. Perhaps he changed in order to protect himself. Thinking this, she immediately regretted letting her guard down. At that moment, a maid suggested, "Should we kill the 3rd young master before he can try anything?" The lady didn't agree. She feared the secret manual and the seal might end up in someone else's his hands, but she didn't want to be led by the nose forever. Thus, she instructed the maid to inform the Phoenix Pavilion that Shaman Myo was dead, and soon this little devil would also not have it easy. At night, in the pharmacy, Jong sat on the floor reading the books left by Shaman Myo. According to the book, a person turns into a vengeful spirit or even an evil spirit after death due to their unresolved resentment. Depending on various factors, evil spirits are classified into different ranks. The first type is called red spirit, a spirit bound to a certain location. Its power are limited to causing chills or goosebumps in a person. The second type is orange spirit. This rank of evil spirit can possess humans and cause physical discomfort. The third type is yellow spirit. These are dangerous spirits that should be exorcised. It is so powerful it can use evil energy to kill. Just then demonic monk show itself. Jong thought to himself, I guess the demonic monk belongs to yellow spirit. It is useful for finding doorways to the underground and for scouting, but as seen before, demonic monk could not take action against the lady. It seems whether it can be a threat depends on the target's strength. Jong had tested demonic monk's power on Go-chan and the results were good, but it was still not enough to deal with the lady and guard cam. Therefore, he must find a more powerful evil spirit soon. The fourth type, green spirit, a spirit that has lived for decades, can induce chaos, cause hallucinations, and is an extremely dangerous existence. Just then, demonic monk found the entrance to the basement. It seemed like the right time to retrieve the secret manual and the seal. After what felt like a long walk, Jong finally reached the end of the ladder, facing 4 stone doors. The 4th stone door was his target. As he opened the door, he was dumbfounded. It seems like he needs to go even farther in. However, as soon as he stepped into the room, he triggered a trap. A huge rock fell from above, but luckily, he was able to dodge it. I didn't expect there to be traps. Just then, arrows crazily shot towards him. With his agile skills, Jong easily dodged the attack. An arrow was about to pierce his chest, but fortunately, the lamp was pierced instead. But the traps did not stop, and a massive pillar smashed down. Jong leaped up, narrowly avoiding it. The continuous traps made Jong realize that besides the secret manual and seal, there must be something even more important stored here. After navigating countless traps, Jong finally reached the deepest part of the stone chamber. The room was extremely symmetrical, and from the signs of life above, it seemed someone often practiced here. Jong didn't dwell on it. He smoothly found a wooden box on the table, inside which were the sword techniques and mental methods of mock sword manor. Go-chan once informed him that the secret manual was divided into 2, sword techniques and cultivation techniques. He pocketed them without hesitation, but then he thought there might be something else here. At that moment, a strange box caught his attention. It looks unnecessarily heavy and not functional. From the drag marks on the floor, it seemed the box had been deliberately dragged there. When he pushed the box aside, he noticed something on the floor. A floorboard sealed with a yellow talisman was revealed. Without a second thought, he flipped open the floorboard and found another small box underneath, still sealed with a yellow talisman. After pondering for a moment, Jong decided to tear off the yellow talisman. An ominous aura rushed towards him, and even the lantern beside him went out without any wind. Inside the box, there was a book made of human skin. Although it was wrapped with prayer beads, the eerie aura emanating from the book was distinctly palpable. It seems I've found a treasure, Jong thought to himself. Meanwhile, somewhere in Mock Sword Manor, there was the beating of drums and joyful music. Standing in the center was the second young master, Mok Yunpyeon, who was celebrating because today he had moved one step closer to becoming the lord of the villa, all thanks to the help of one person. That person was the long-missing guard cam. At that moment, inside Mock Sword Manor, the second young master, to win over guard cam, had specially organized a grand banquet for him. Guard cam wore a flattering expression, but he had already guessed the second young master's intentions. After a show of reluctance, he gladly accepted the second young master's overture. After the banquet, the second young master again confirmed with guard cam, "Is it true that Mok Jae-won has lost his martial arts?" To this, guard cam affirmed, "The real Mok Jae-won is dead, and the imposter indeed does not know martial arts. This wasn't really a lie. Besides, if people knew he had failed to protect his master, leading to his master's death, he would not end well." Thus, he decided to pledge his loyalty to the second young master with the life of the imposter Mok Jae-won. However, the second young master did not easily let down his guard. Although that boy was originally useless, now that he has lost his martial arts, he is indeed less of an opponent. Well, I guess I should be grateful since I have someone as talented as you working for me now. But I am still curious, how exactly did he lose his martial arts? Faced with the second young master's skepticism, guard cam was startled, pondering how to respond when the second young master spoke again. "You don't have to worry. Even if this was your negligence, I won't hold you accountable." He tried to alleviate guard cam's concerns, but after all, both were cunning old foxes. How could they easily leave a handle for others? Guard cam bowed again. "I am sorry. I cannot disclose it yet, but I assure you it will not implicate the second young master." Although the second young master verbally expressed his trust, he secretly pondered, guard cam must be an assassin from that infamous place, right? Hearing that place, guard cam's body jolted. He had thought the second young master was just a green kid, but it turned out he had thoroughly investigated him. Instantly, the situation became more delicate delicate. However, the second young master did not let go, instead pressing further. Are these also unspeakable secrets? Frightened, guard Cam hurriedly denied. Seeing that he was completely under control, the second young master chuckled inwardly. The second young master then decisively ended the conversation, saying no more, just letting guard Cam leave first. But the matter was not over. The second young master still had great doubts about the information provided by guard Cam, and immediately ordered his subordinates to clarify guard Cam's intentions and the real situation of Mok Jae-won. The subordinates were puzzled. Was it just to confirm whether Mok Jae-won had lost his martial arts? The second young master smiled coldly. No, that's no fun. Break an ankle or something while you're at it. Hearing this, the subordinate immediately agrees. Meanwhile, in the basement of the pharmacy, Jong was holding the human skin ancient book for a long time. His fingertips could clearly feel the pulsation coming from it, as if some powerful energy was churning inside. Although it was not a living thing, Jong knew this ancient book was extraordinary. He couldn't wait to undo the prayer bead sealing it. Just then, a black mist rose behind Jong, and the figure of demonic monk gradually appeared. Just as Jong was about to ask what had happened, demonic monk's expression suddenly changed. Just a glance at the human skin ancient book in Jong's hands made demonic monk break into a cold sweat, trembling all over. Seeing this, Jong's face showed excitement. Even demonic monk fears the existence of this book. It seems I really have obtained something incredible. However, he quickly put away this excitement because he had sent demonic monk and Go-chan to keep watch, and now demonic monk had come back to find him, indicating that certainly someone was coming. He wanted to see which troublemakers were actually coming. At this moment, outside the pharmacy, the assassin sent by the second young master was hiding in the trees. Noticing that Go-chan, who should be protecting his master closely, was instead keeping watch outside, the assassin speculated that the third young master must be hiding something, and took the opportunity to sneak into the room while Jong was asleep. Just as he was about to check whether the third young master really had lost his martial arts, the assassin was surprised to see the secret manuals of Mock Sword Manor laid out on the table, immediately drawn to them. After a quick look, realizing they were genuine, his hands began to tremble. If he could bring these to the second young master, the lordship would undoubtedly belong to him. However, just then, Jong's figure quietly appeared behind him, grabbing his head and fiercely smashing it into the table. Once, twice, 3 times. Jong's expression was cold. What brings you to my bedroom? Are you also here to sleep? The assassin was shocked, not expecting to have been outmaneuvered by a kid. But before he could say anything, Jong's movements grew more violent, and soon the assassin lost consciousness. When the assassin opened his eyes again, he found himself hanging upside down from the ceiling beam. Jong smirked coldly, his hand fiercely stabbing into the floor. Should we have a proper talk now? After subduing the assassin, hearing some noise, Go-chan quickly pushed open the door and saw the man lying on the floor. He recognized him at once as Cho Il-sang, a close aide of the second young master. The second son? Why would he be here? I'm not sure, but considering he's wearing a mask, he couldn't have any good intentions. Go-chan advised, the second young master always values talent. I would advise you best not to act rashly. But Jong didn't care. He simply carried Cho Il-sang on his back and turned to leave. Seeing Jong not listening to Go-chan, he lay on the floor and shouted, "Damn it, I don't care anymore. He won't kill him though, right? Even if he's reckless, he's smart." Go-chan talked to himself, but the thought of what Jong did with the manor master made him nervous. He won't kill him, right? When Cho Il-sang woke up, he found himself hanging upside down from the beam. Facing Jong's sharp gaze, he still spoke arrogantly. "I belong to the second young master. If he finds out how you've treated me, he will make sure you pay dearly." After saying this, he arrogantly demanded Jong hand over the secret manual. In return, I might speak well of you in front of the second young master, perhaps even sparing your life. Jong merely smiled slightly, then pulled out a dagger from his pocket. It seems the second brother really cherishes his subordinates. You're in such a state, yet you can still boast about his authority. Saying this, Jong untied Cho Il-sang. Seeing this, Cho Il-sang thought the other party had compromised. Just as he felt a stroke of luck, Jong's face showed a cold smile, and he asked coldly, "Whose fingers are these?" Cho Il-sang's face filled with terror and confusion. It was clearly his own fingers, yet he felt no pain at all. It turned out that Jong had already used a paralysis poison on him. The affected would feel nothing in their body for 2 hours. Hearing this, Cho Il-sang panicked. Jong sneered, "All right, from now on, for every question I ask, if you don't answer, I'll cut off one of your fingers every second. First, what was the purpose of the second brother sending you here?" Cho Il-sang was so frightened that he couldn't react in time. As he hesitated, Jong's dagger easily sliced off his fingers. In an instant, Cho Il-sang was left with almost no fingers. When Jong was about to chop off the last thumb, Cho Il-sang finally came to his senses from the fear and hurriedly begged for mercy. Cho Il-sang quickly explained that he was ordered to investigate whether Jong had really lost his martial arts. Hearing this, Jong fell into thought, surmising that guard Cam had already sided with the second young master. He then asked again, "Was it guard Cam who told you?" Cho Il-sang affirmed. Seeing the calculating young man in front of him, Cho Il-sang did not expect that just a few words would reveal guard Cam's betrayal. This made him wonder if he had fallen into their scheme from the start. However, at this moment, he could no longer afford to think so much. As he sensed a strong murderous intent from Zhang, he desperately shouted, begging Zhang to spare him and swearing loyalty to the third young master, willing to do anything for his life. Just then, Zhang suddenly changed his previously vicious demeanor and showed a friendly smile. I happen to have a favor to ask of you. Can you help me now? Hearing this, Cho Il-sang, like grasping at a lifeline, eagerly thanked Zhang for sparing his life. As long as it's an order from the third young master, I will accomplish it. As soon as the words left his mouth, a dagger pierced straight through his neck. You said you were willing to risk your life. Zhang cut his neck, his blood splattering. Zhang then looked at Cho Il-sang coldly and said, then I'll borrow your blood for a bit. The reason Zhang did this was to remove the prayer beads sealed on the magic book. He learned from the ancient book Yin-Yang family that righteous objects could seal evil ones, meaning that the blood of a wrongfully killed person might break the seal. Thus, he dripped Cho Il-sang's blood on the magic book. In just a moment, the prayer beads on the book began to shatter bit by bit. As Zhang pondered what was sealed within the book, the blood in the box began to churn violently. The blood spread all around, and above the magic book, a cocoon formed by countless vapors of blood coalesced. When the entity within the cocoon hatched, the entire space was engulfed by a sea of blood. Just then, a slender jade leg stepped out from the sea of blood, and a beautiful woman dressed in red slowly walked towards Zhang. The aura she emitted far surpassed that of a green spirit. According to the records of the Yin-Yang family ancient book, there is a fifth level of ghost spirit, blue spirit. At this moment, Zhang was unsure whether he was lucky or unfortunate. The woman issued a cold command from her lips, kneel. A mysterious pressure swept over, and Zhang's body was forcibly pressed to the ground, unable to move. Foolish human, hand over your soul to me. As a vengeful spirit dead for over a century, a blue spirit of this kind usually requires a minimum of 10 Taoist masters to subdue. At that moment, Zhang slowly rose, finally experiencing the danger described in the book. He scoffed, saying, it seems the book wasn't wrong. Indeed, a very dangerous entity. Seeing Zhang manage to stand, the woman in red couldn't help but take an interest in him. Zhang did not give up resisting and even provocatively said, just a ghost spirit without a body. You can't really do anything. Hearing this, the woman in red smirked. If you want my body, you'll have to take it by force. As soon as the words fell, the woman in red gently lifted her hand, and blood immediately gushed from the ground, forming sharp blades that pierced directly through Zhang's abdomen, leaving a deep gash. Zhang fell to the ground with a thud, but the woman in red did not stop there. A second blood spear rushed out mercilessly, destroying half of Zhang's face. The woman in red sneered. Do you realize now? There's nothing you can do. Zhang spat out blood, the intense pain causing his body to tremble involuntarily, yet he never yielded. Seeing this, the woman in red was shocked. Such a fragile human, why not just hand over your soul willingly? However, Zhang before her remained resolute, clearly no ordinary person. Thus, the woman in red waved her hand again, flinging Zhang harshly against the beam on the roof. Mortal, I offer you a proposal. If you agree to give up your soul, I will grant you one wish. Faced with the woman in red's proposal, Zhang hesitated. Clearly, she had the upper hand. Why would she make such an offer? The woman in red explained, continuing to fight might harm your soul, which would be of no benefit to me. What if I refuse? If you refuse, I will show no mercy and kill you, then find another suitable soul. Hearing this, Zhang sneered, indicating he indeed had one wish. The woman in red immediately became excited, eagerly asking, has someone betrayed you, or has someone killed a loved one? Whoever it is, I can obliterate them. So tell me now, your desire. However, Zhang scoffed, my wish is for you to shut up and then obediently become my familiar. This response completely infuriated the woman in red. She decided to let this foolish mortal taste the agony of having his bones sliced and flesh shredded. The woman in red waved her hand again, and countless blood-colored spikes shot out like arrows, instantly tearing Zhang's body into pieces. At the same time, Zhang's soul seemed to plunge into an endless sea of blood, his body sinking deeper and deeper. Zhang felt that the blood sea around him was different from any blood he had encountered before. Previously, the lively blood was full of vitality, warmth, and the breath of life. But now, all he felt was the cold of death. At that moment, he suddenly opened his eyes, easily shattering the illusion. Countless cracks appeared, and the barrier instantly shattered, the terrifying shockwave also flinging the woman in red away. Zhang emerged from the illusion unharmed. The woman in red's face was full of shock, unable to accept that Zhang could so easily break through her illusions, but she was not willing to give up, waving her hand to again materialize a blood-colored butterfly that slowly flew towards Zhang. As the blood-colored butterfly approached, it sliced a wound across his face, yet Zhang did not even blink, continuing to stand there composedly. The woman in red was once again shocked. Her illusions, which even a top Taoist master might not be able to break, had been easily shattered by Zhang. Could this be a natural talent he was born with? Just then, Zhang suddenly burst into laughter, which made the woman in red grit her teeth in anger. She coldly said, even if you have broken the illusion, do you think you can change the situation at hand? Zhang responded with a sneer, I just remembered something amusing. The woman in red appeared somewhat flustered, especially when she looked at the human skin magic book that sealed her, realizing that the other party had discovered her weakness. Indeed, the more ancient than a spirit, the more it requires a medium to inhabit, and this book was precisely her medium. In that instant, Jong opened his mouth wide and began frantically tearing at the book cover. Simultaneously, lines of blood emerged on the woman in red's body. She stood aghast as her power began to overflow. She couldn't believe that Jong had actually torn the book cover. That book was filled with demonic energy, and even a top shaman couldn't destroy it. They could only seal it temporarily, but now this brat had damaged it. The woman in red, frenzied, lunged at Jong, grasping his neck tightly, with only one thought in mind: to end Jong's life as quickly as possible. However, Jong continued to chew on the book cover, asking the woman perplexedly, "Why didn't you simply take this human skin book?" In reality, he had already deduced the truth. The woman in red couldn't touch this eerie book at all. The woman in red, teeth clenched in anger, threatened Jong to spit out the book immediately. At the same time, the blood energy within him began to surge, his body feeling as if it would burst apart like the first time he ingested poison. Spit it out. However, what Jong felt at this moment was not only the physical pain, but also the profound anger from the depths of the ghost spirit's heart. This rage far surpassed the physical pain. It was a burning desire for revenge. The woman in red cursed Jong as a madman, her hands tightly clutching his throat, causing him to spit out fresh blood. At this moment, as their gazes met, the memories of the woman in red flooded into Jong's mind like a torrent. The next second, Jong found himself in a completely unfamiliar environment, surrounded by corpses and rivers of blood. Just then, Jong found the woman in red. The severely wounded woman in red was struggling desperately. She tore off the cloth from her body, tightly wrapping her hands and sword together, the tip of the sword pointing directly at the man on the throne. Although Jong couldn't hear what they were saying, he could feel the deep hatred and despair. Jong clearly felt the towering rage in the woman in red's heart. The man on the throne looked down on her from above, which only fueled her anger further. She exerted all her strength and charged at the man. However, in just one round, the man's palm pierced through the woman in red's chest, even ripping her heart out directly. Powerlessly, the woman in red fell at the foot of the stairs. As she fell, numerous figures gathered around her, pointing their weapon directly at her. Her eyes filled with despair as she helplessly watched numerous figures stabbing into her body with weapons. Jong witnessed all these events unfolding. The woman in red couldn't even leave behind a complete body. She was ultimately made into this eerie human skin magic book. Meanwhile, Jong suddenly awoke from the memory, surprised to find a red thread on his chest, connecting him tightly to the woman in red. Suddenly, the woman burst into tears, her tears flowing like water breaking through a dam. She had become Jong's familiar. Jong sighed in relief, thinking, "I got myself a blue ghost. This has to be a dream." The woman in red called out to Jong. Anger swiftly consumed her rationality, and she frantically slapped Jong's neck, demanding he immediately release the contract. However, the next second, a deep handprint shockingly appeared on her own neck. A sudden feeling of suffocation overwhelmed the woman in red. She was both furious and frustrated, yet helpless. Eventually, she angrily turned away, sulking in a corner alone. This scene, observed by Jong, led him to an epiphany. Apparently, a familiar shares the pain with its master. This made him think of demonic monk. Having endured so much pain before, what was it going through now? At this moment, demonic monk was standing pitifully outside, all its previous suffering reflected upon it. Yet, without Jong's command, it could only silently endure the pain. Meanwhile, the woman in red gradually calmed down, and the atmosphere briefly became awkward. Seeing that she was not planning to engage with him, Jong took the initiative to speak up. "Since we're going to be together from now on, shouldn't we get to know each other's names? My name is Mok Jaewoon." However, the woman in red remained icy. Seeing this, Jong decided to use his last resort. "Well then, from now on, I'll just call you Red Dung Betel." The woman in red was both panicked and furious, furiously scolding Jong. "Are you out of your mind? How dare you mock me?" Hearing this, Jong laughed heartily, thinking to himself that his strategy had worked successfully, provoking a reaction from her. "It seems you're not too happy about it." The woman in red, rendered speechless by Jong's antics, and still unwilling to reveal her identity due to her pride, declared, "You ants are not worthy of knowing my name." Jong chuckled at her stubbornness and casually gave her a name, given her level as a blue spirit. "Then from now on, I shall call you Blue Spirit," Jong said offhandedly. The woman in red huffed and turned her head away, disdainfully ignoring him. Jong sighed lightly, thinking to himself, "I didn't expect this woman to have such strong pride. It's really troublesome since I can't defeat her by force. It looks like I'll have to slowly persuade her to like me." Moments later, Jong turned his attention back to the human skin magic book and asked, "Blue Spirit, do you know what's inside this?" The woman in red still acted uninterested, waving her hand to indicate she was busy and didn't want to talk. Left with no choice, Jong began to read the contents of the magic book himself. Although it was disorganized, he found it quite intriguing. His serious demeanor gradually caught the woman in red's attention. She thought he was just casually browsing, but the next second, Jong accurately recited the incantation written on it. As soon as the incantation was recited, a strange power flowed into Jong's body, and his hand holding the magic book stuck to the human skin pages. The woman in red was shocked, unable to believe what she saw. "How did you do?" Jong, puzzled, didn't understand what had happened. Just as he was feeling confused, a surge of dark energy suddenly appeared, and began to corrode his body. The woman in red, sensing danger, urgently exclaimed, "Little devil, hold your breath immediately, empty your mind, think of nothing." Following her instructions, Jong held his breath and focused, and gradually, the sinister black energy stabilized. At the same time, with a thud, the magic book that had stuck to his hand fell to the ground. The woman in red was profoundly shaken, not expecting Jong to so easily unravel the ritual of attachment. A person without martial arts skills possessing such an ability was unexpected. At this moment, the woman in red unprecedentedly showed a hint of a smile. She had not witnessed such a miracle during her life and never expected to see such a thing after death. This young man truly was a prodigy. After escaping the danger, Jong collapsed onto the ground, his face full of confusion. What exactly happened just now? The woman in red explained, "It's because you couldn't control the ritual of attachment properly, and there was a problem with your breathing during the process." Jong didn't miss a chance to tease her. "So you're finally willing to talk to me seriously?" The woman hurriedly explained, "I was just afraid you would mess things up and get me involved." "So, what exactly is this ritual of attachment?" Jong continued to inquire. "It's a technique that can generate a pulling force through the energy in the body," the woman in red answered. Jong became even more puzzled. "Then why do I feel a stomach ache and tightness in my veins?" "This is because you were pulling at nothing, leading to the reversal of the energy inside your body and causing your breath to become utterly chaotic." After explaining, the woman in red instructed Jong to try it on Cho Il-sang's body. She then directed Jong to position Cho Il-sang's body properly. "Now, repeat the same method on this person." Jong chanted the incantation, and a strong suction force appeared on his palm again, but this time, he felt a warm breath flowing through his veins and converging towards his energy core. "It seems you have grasped the essence of it. This is the ritual of attachment, which can absorb the energy of all things, including chi. That is how the ritual of attachment works." Jong was quite astonished. "A warm energy is wrapping around my torso. Is this what Go-chan referred to as chi?" According to Go-chan, chi takes a long time to cultivate. However, this method allows me to absorb someone else's chi. In other words, I can get stronger in a shorter period of time. Just when Jong thought he was about to become invincible, the chi he had just absorbed suddenly dissipated. It just scattered away. Jong confusedly said, "It turns out that the cultivation of chi requires a special breathing technique so that the energy core can firmly hold onto it. Due to the specificity of this condensed chi, it is not easy to mix with someone else's chi. This means, attempting to condense and maintain chi through the ritual of attachment is not feasible." Jong felt deeply disappointed, but the woman in red encouraged him not to be discouraged. The ritual of attachment has its uses as is. After all, this is just the basics of the thought-shattering 8 techniques. Even mastering just one of these techniques can reveal endless possibilities. Although the chi you absorb will quickly dissipate, chi is still chi. Try to concentrate the chi into your hand by circulating it. This left Jong thoroughly confused. Chi circulation involves guiding the images in the mind to channel the energy, and as long as this is achieved, chi can be condensed into the palms. The woman in red did not believe Jong could achieve this because, for a novice, without a breathing mantra, even exceptional talent is useless. However, things developed unexpectedly. Without any warning, the chi that had just dissipated now slowly started to condense into Jong's palms. He threw a punch, and a thick beam was easily snapped into two. This completely astonished the woman in red. Having seen many prodigies in her lifetime, it was the first time she had witnessed such an exceptional child. A complete novice in martial arts had executed a technique for chi circulation as a complete beginner. "That's great." Jong is astonished at what he can do. Just who is he? The woman in red became more curious. Looking at Jong, the woman in red can't help but think, "I've seen countless talented individuals in my lifetime, but I've never met someone like him before." At this moment, Jong was reveling in the power of his punch, remarking, "No wonder everyone wants to learn martial arts. Just mastering this makes it much easier to kill," Jong casually stated. This comment once again astounded the woman in red. This boy was not only incredibly talented, but he had also perceived the essence of martial arts, how to effectively kill an opponent. Just then, Jong called out to the woman in red and eagerly asked what the second technique of the thought-shattering 8 techniques was. The woman was about to answer, when suddenly, thinking of something, she turned her head away haughtily, "Almost tricked by you again. I absolutely will not help you. I just slipped up earlier." Now she finally understood why those old masters were always shouting about taking disciples. Seeing the woman revert to her uninterested demeanor, Jong felt somewhat disappointed. He had intended to ask about the origin of the black energy on his hands, but given the current situation, he presumed she would not answer. Perhaps it was better to explore on his own. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lady Sukgard Hoang arrived at the Phoenix Pavilion. As soon as she entered the room, she was greeted by an assortment of eerie wooden sculptures, which made her spine chill. Just as she was about to speak, a nearby candlestick spontaneously ignited, filling the surroundings with a strange atmosphere. She quickly relayed the message that Shaman Myo had been killed by the third young master. This is Lady Suk's expression of grief, 300 silver niang, and she stated that if the other party was willing to take on the commission to kill the third young master, the lady would add an extra 400 silver niang as a reward. However, after After she finished speaking, the room remained eerily silent, only the candlestick extinguished by itself. It seemed the deal was done. Hoang immediately turned to leave. Although the room was empty, she felt as if a pair of eyes were staring intently at her back, sending shivers down her spine. After Hoang left, several figures suddenly appeared in the previously empty room, holding staffs and wearing veils. They all gathered around the corpse of Shaman Myo. Based on Hoang's description, they quickly confirmed that the third young master had employed a ghost spirit, and moreover, one of the yellow spirit level. However, they were puzzled, as normally a vengeful spirit could not become a familiar, meaning this third young master was quite dangerous. The leader of the pavilion softly instructed, "One of you, go immediately and kill this third young master." In the morning, Zhang got up and ordered Go-chan to bring a brazier. Just as Go-chan wondered what he intended to do, Zhang took out 2 martial arts secret manuals from his bosom. Those were the peerless techniques everyone dreamed of. Go-chan was instantly shocked, and before he could recover, Zhang nonchalantly tore the manuals to shreds and threw them into the brazier. Go-chan exclaimed in disbelief, unable to process what was happening. This insane bastard just burned the secret manual. Unable to understand the reason behind this, Go-chan questions Zhang, "What are you doing? Such a waste of heaven-sent treasures. You're crazy." "Third young master, although I know you do not know martial arts, everyone wants these manuals. You could have used them properly." Zhang, unconcerned, casually threw a new manual at Go-chan's face, scoffing, "That's exactly why I burned them. The real techniques have all been preserved here." He pointed at his head, "So now, only I can utilize them." Hearing this, Go-chan suddenly understood, but Zhang's next statement shocked him even more. "Before the sun rises, make sure to deliver this manual to Lady Suk and the second young master." Go-chan was both surprised and puzzled. "Didn't you say everyone wants it?" Zhang smirked in response, "Ironically, I am a person who loves peace, so isn't it a beautiful thing if I can share it with my family?" Looking at the sinister smile on Zhang's face, Go-chan could not fathom the depths of his schemes. Meanwhile, elsewhere, guard Kim got up in the morning and started tidying his room, then carefully checked what needed to be done today. This was a habit he developed while working as an assassin, living strictly according to a planned schedule. However, soon he wouldn't need to live this way, because if he could successfully help the second young master ascend to the position of family head, he would become an elder of Mocksword Manor. Thinking of the wonderful life beckoning to him, guard Cam felt extremely relaxed. However, reality often deviates from expectations. At that moment, a servant came to inform him that the second young master needed him. Moments later, outside Mok Yunpyeong's room, guard Cam stood there, his head bleeding. Just a while ago, it turned out that Cho Il-seng's disappearance had infuriated Mok Yunpyeong, who blamed everything on guard Cam. Guard Cam was at a loss, but still firmly promised that he had not deceived the second young master. However, by this point, the second young master had already lost trust in him and picked up an inkstone from the desk and smashed it at guard Cam's head. Then why hasn't escort Cho returned yet? With guard Cam's skills, he could have easily dodged, but he chose not to, knowing that if he continued to act against the second young master now, his plans for a change of masters would be ruined. He had invested too much to give up now. Having come so far, guard Cam would not allow such an incident to occur. Enduring the pain on his head, he swore with his right arm, "Please give me some time. I will find out the truth and explain everything to you." Seeing guard Cam's demeanor did not seem deceptive, Mok Yunpyeong pondered for a moment, then said, "Good, then prove it to me. If you can find Cho Il-seng within 2 hours, I will believe you. But if you fail, you will lose not just your arm, but your life." "I'll keep that in mind," guard Cam answered immediately. Moments later, guard Cam left the room furiously, his mind racing. Ever since that imposter appeared, everything had deviated from his plan. Although he thought Zhang was unlikely to be involved, if that boy had used some trick, guard Cam would not let him off easily. Thinking this, he headed straight for Zhang's room. However, he hadn't gone far when he suddenly ran into Go-chan, and seeing Go-chan looking disheveled, guard Cam, furious, abruptly grabbed his neck. "Didn't I tell you not to take your eyes off that boy for even a moment? Do you think I was joking?" Go-chan was already guilty and faltered under guard Cam's tirade, but just as he tried to argue, guard Cam suddenly noticed the manual in Go-chan's arms. Guard Cam snatched the manual. Go-chan immediately felt something was wrong, but it was already too late. When guard Cam saw the name on the cover, even he showed a look of disbelief. He then called out to Go-chan, which made Go-chan shiver. "What have you been doing this whole time?" At this moment, rage completely took over guard Cam. Go-chan gritted his teeth while sweating profusely. Soon after, guard Cam, dragging an injured Go-chan, headed towards Zhang's room, pushed open the door, and violently threw Go-chan's body inside. Seeing Go-chan lying on the ground, barely alive, Zhang revealed a meaningful smile. "Welcome. I've been waiting for you, guard Cam. Explain yourself." Zhang's composed demeanor infuriated guard Cam, who grabbed Zhang's neck and demanded, "If you try anything funny, I'll kill you." Zhang smiled and responded, "Did you say that? I can't recall. What exactly did you do to the second young master's guard?" Zhang feigned innocence and calmly replied, "What could someone who doesn't know martial arts possibly do to him?" Guard Cam knew Zhang was right but still felt uneasy. Zhang before him had killed the real third young master without hesitation. With such cunning, how could he be expected to obey? Suddenly, guard Cam realized, it must be this guy who killed Cho Il-seng. Ilsang. Thinking this, Guard Cam immediately drew a dagger, determined, a person like this must not be allowed to live. Seeing Guard Cam pull out a weapon, Jong showed an excited smile. What will you do now? Guard Cam, you switched sides, but the damn fake killed the second sun guard. Guard Cam was extremely furious, as a sword crossed, blood splattered. However, Jong did not die. With eyes full of reluctance, Guard Cam growled, "For 3 years. Do you know how I survived these 3 years? To get into Mock Sword Manor, I spent all the money and time I had. Every day, I had to do various chores, and it was hard enough to make it till now, but now you've ruined everything, so I must kill you, or I too will die here." Guard Cam roared in anger. "I'm going to kill you and leave. I have no other option." At that moment, an idea suddenly flashed into his mind. "No!" Guard Cam shouted, which startled Jong. "Cho Il-sang's already dead. There's nothing that can be done about that, but there is something that can replace him." At that moment, Guard Cam pulled out a manual from his bosom. "But now, you still have one chance. Tell me where the rest of the manuals are. Maybe then, I'll spare your life. You have it, right? Answer me." Seeing Guard Cam finally showing his true colors, Jong smirked coldly, but still maintained an innocent appearance. "I don't know what you're talking about." Seeing that soft tactics were ineffective, Guard Cam once again pointed the dagger at Jong's neck, threatening, "If things go wrong for me, I can just kill you and leave. But who knows? It might change my mind if you give me the rest of the secret manual. But if you keep lying that you don't know, you're going to die a terrible and slow death filled with suffering. So you better give it up while I still have my patience." Jong sighed lightly. "All right, I'll give them to you now." Hearing this, Guard Cam instantly became excited, hastily reaching for the manuals from Jong. But the next second, Jong placed his own hand on Guard Cam's, smirking coldly. "Now, I've given them to you. The manuals are all in my mind." Guard Cam flew into a rage instantly, ready to punish Jong, but Jong suddenly gripped his hand tightly. A strange power suddenly emerges, and Guard Cam is utterly shocked. Thought-shattering 8 techniques. First technique, attachment, and Guard Cam's chi began to flow continuously into Jong's body. Jong stated coldly, "I was considering who to use this trick on, but you've come to me voluntarily. I'm so grateful for that." Guard Cam was shocked, trying to withdraw his hand, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't pull it back. In panic, Guard Cam raised his dagger and stabbed towards Jong. Fortunately, Jong dodged in time, avoiding the lethal strike, but in that instant, their hands separated. Then, Guard Cam kicked Jong flying, but by then, he had lost sensation in his hand. Although he didn't understand how the other party did it, he knew that if he delayed any longer, his life would be at risk. As expected of a first-rate martial artist, that wasn't enough. Sensing the overwhelming killing intent, Jong realized that the tricks he used before were not enough to confront a top-level master. "I'll have to find a different way to kill you." At this moment, filled with murderous intent, Guard Cam had no hesitation, raising the dagger to completely eradicate Jong. Jong decisively summoned Demon Monk. With a low chant, Guard Cam's hand was weirdly suspended in midair. Just as he wondered what was happening, Jong quickly grabbed the fallen dagger. What have you done this time?" Jong looked at him fiercely. "Well, another dirt little trick. I'll show you in more detail." At this time, Demon Monk is grabbing Guard Cam's arm fiercely, then pulling him immediately. Jong sneered, "I'll give this back to you. Both your inner energy and this dagger." Jong fiercely stabbed the dagger into Guard Cam's body. The intense pain made Guard Cam involuntarily grunt. "They were both yours." After all, the sudden turn of events made Guard Cam stagger back. "That was bad. The location he stabbed me in is dangerous. If I take this incorrectly, the bleeding is going to be fatal." At this moment, Guard Cam already regretted bringing such a calamity back, but he still had a trick up his sleeve. He sneered, "Third young master, you haven't forgotten about the poison pill, right?" Hearing this, Jong smirked. "Go on, let's negotiate. If we continue fighting, it's likely to end with both of us hurt. How about this? I give you the antidote and money. Isn't your goal to get out of here anyway?" Right now, Guard Cam thought that if he could just bow his head temporarily, he could always find another opportunity to eliminate Jong later. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly spat out blood and fell to his knees. Jong just stared at him blankly. Guard Cam was full of confusion, as the damage from just before was clearly not fatal. What was going on? Why am I so severely injured now? Guard Cam wondered in his heart. Suddenly, he had an epiphany. "This is poison," he then exclaimed in shock. "When did you poison me?" Jong replied indifferently, "Your dagger got my blood on it." "What are you talking about?" Guard Cam asked in confusion. Jong sneered, "My blood is extremely poisonous. I've eaten a lot of poisonous plants since I was young, so my blood turned poisonous." Hearing this, Guard Cam sweats profusely. "As for the poison pill you gave me, it doesn't affect me at all. I don't need the antidote." This revelation hit Guard Cam like a thunderclap, and he immediately felt the fear of death. Just moments ago, he had been so arrogant, but now his whole body shook uncontrollably. He didn't want to die and pleaded desperately, "Have mercy. Please have mercy. I'll swear my loyalty to you. I'll become your dog. I'll lick your feet if you wish. Just please spare my life." Yet Jong's expression remained cold. "I like your attitude." Jong then gives him a smile. "How nice is this? With that kind of attitude, we'll work great together." Hearing this, Guard Cam smiled, feeling relieved, but the next second, Jong gave him an ominous smile. "We would have if that was how you had acted from the beginning." As soon as he finished speaking, Jong forcefully drove the dagger deep into Guard Cam's chest. How could a dog that switches masters so easily ever be loyal? Zhang said coldly, showing no intention of mercy. Loyalty, my ass. Or do you disagree? Zhang twisted the dagger harder, which made Guard Cam scream from pain. You're better off dead. Gradually, Guard Cam lost consciousness amid endless regret and reluctance. Having done all this, Zhang stood up and stretched lazily. Although it had taken some effort, he felt quite fortunate to have dealt with this major problem so quickly. Then, his gaze turned to Go-chan, who was pretending to be dead nearby. Should I kill Go-chan too? And then he thought to himself, Guard Cam didn't know about the manual being burned, so this guy is quite tight-lipped. He's still useful to me too. Thinking this, he woke Go-chan. Get up quickly. I saw you moving around during the fight. Go-chan, exposed by Zhang, was slightly embarrassed and didn't know what to say. By the way, you know how to keep secrets. I'm liking you more and more, Zhang said with a smile. Shortly after, Zhang instructed Go-chan to dismiss everyone around while he stayed behind to deal with Guard Cam's body. He placed his hand on Guard Cam's body again, and just like before, a warm energy continuously flowed into Zhang's body. But this time, Zhang wasn't absorbing Guard Cam's chi. He wanted to confirm something else. As Guard Cam's chi was completely absorbed, a dense black energy surged up instantly. This was the death energy emitted after a person dies. Unlike chi, this cold chi did not dissipate after entering Zhang's core, making him feel as though he was back to his days as the scythe demon. This entire scene was witnessed by Blue Spirit. Now she finally understood why that demon monk obeyed Zhang. That's a monster. Zhang's demonic powers were likely about to break through. At the same time, inside the room of the second young master, John Yangpyeong, as Mok Yunpyeong's chief guard, thought that Guard Cam would not dare to lie. However, the second young master did not think so. He believed that if Guard Cam were to lie, it would be a lie that could not be easily exposed, because he knew that people like Guard Cam, who were bullies yet fearful at heart, if treated too leniently at the beginning, would definitely become overbearing later. Thus, the second young master knew well how to handle such people, to make them clearly understand who the real master is. Therefore, until the truth was fully uncovered, the second young master decided to appear magnanimous. Only then would Guard Cam bow down before him submissively. Hearing this, deeply admired the second young master Mok Yunpyeong's mastery of manipulating people. People with low loyalty like Guard Cam indeed needed to be tested. However, just then, the door burst open. There's a problem. Guard Han Seng suddenly came to report. Guard Cam attempted to kill the third young master, and the third young master claimed during the investigation in the outer hall that the person who instigated him was none other than young master Mok Yunpyeong. Upon hearing this, everyone in the room was shocked. Regardless of why Guard Cam had suddenly acted this way, the mere accusation by the third young master was enough to infuriate Mok Yunpyeong to the point of rage. He loudly demanded, where on earth did Guard Cam go? Yet, no one knew the whereabouts of Guard Cam, as if he had vanished into thin air. Mok Yunpyeong felt something was seriously wrong and immediately grabbed a weapon, ready to confront the third young master himself. Seeing this, everyone quickly stepped forward to stop him. If you attack the third young master now, it would only confirm his accusations. Fuming, Mok Yunpyeong shouted, am I supposed to just sit back and let that bastard mock me? Suddenly, John Yangpyeong thought of a solution. Perhaps we can contact that place. That statement made Mok Yunpyeong stop in his tracks and then listen carefully. If what the third young master says is true, letting them handle it should be simpler than we expected. After all, the organization Guard Cam belongs to is reputed to be very confident in their assassination skills. According to their ironclad rules, failure is absolutely not allowed. Even those who leave the organization are no exception, so they will spare no effort to complete the task. I'll contact them later. John Yangpyeong refers to one of the three assassination organizations of the Central Plains known as the Flying Death School. After hearing John Yangpyeong's suggestion, Mok Yunpyeong's anger gradually subsided and his attitude changed. The Flying Death School, you say? Good. At this moment, John was practicing internal strength according to the methods described in the manual, but no matter how he tried, the true chi would mysteriously dissipate as soon as it reached near his core. Unable to detect what went wrong, he called over Go-chan and asked if he knew the reason. After hearing Zhang's dilemma, Go-chan's face showed a hint of embarrassment. The guy who didn't even know martial arts yesterday now wanted to feel true chi overnight? This guy must be insane. At this moment, he really wanted to scold Zhang, but remembering that he was still just a kid who didn't know any better, and that doing so would likely lead to his own punishment later, he resisted. Reluctantly, Go-chan offered, let me test it for you. I'll channel some true chi into your body to see what the problem is. As they sat cross-legged and began the exercise, true chi slowly gathered around Zhang. Go-chan was shocked. He really could manipulate true chi. Moreover, from the flow of the true chi, Zhang's acupoints appeared completely unblocked, a state not even a master of internal strength could easily achieve daily. Could this guy truly be a one-of-a-kind genius? As Go-chan's true chi moved further into Zhang's core, an eerily cold energy suddenly emerged, forcefully pushing Go-chan's hands away, and, as expected, Zhang's accumulated true chi dissipated. Seeing Go-chan's hesitant expression, Zhang encouraged him to speak openly and honestly. Go-chan said with a wry smile, actually, I'm not sure what that strange energy is, but from what we've seen, you really can't accumulate internal strength in your core. Disappointed, Zhang wondered if this was as far as he could go. go. Then, Go-chan added, think about it. The energy in your core doesn't seem to be generated by normal breath control. Rather, it feels completely opposite. Hearing this, an idea immediately pops into Zhang's mind. Seeing this, Go-chan immediately regretted it, quickly explaining it was just his guess and urged Zhang not to take it seriously. However, Zhang fell into thought. Maybe you're right. I should try circulating my chi in reverse. Hearing this, Go-chan was alarmed. Reversing breath control could easily lead to deviating from the path, and he quickly tried to dissuade him. But just then, a mist of blood trapped him firmly. Blue Spirit appeared like a specter, hushing him with a gesture, signaling Go-chan to stay quiet. For familiar, harming their contractor would backfire, but if the contractor died by his own actions, the spirit could be freed. She had long awaited this moment. Once you become a spirit, I will personally tear you to shreds. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the villa, Lady Suk was meeting someone. It was a Taoist master from Phoenix Pavilion. You may call me Shua. However, she was uneasy. How could they send only one person when even a formidable man like Shaman Myo was killed? And from the sound of it, a young woman? Furthermore, why was Shaman Myo's body brought back? Shaman Myo's body was brought back as a clue to track the killer. Shua slowly said, until I find the murderer of disciple Myo, I will not leave. Hearing the word disciple, Lady Suk is a bit shocked, thinking Shua is higher in status than Shaman Myo. But first, there's one thing I must make clear. The third son, he's going to die. Hearing this, Lady Suk was initially surprised. Truth be told, I didn't have the highest expectations of you. Then she smiled contentedly, but now I'm starting to like you. After receiving Lady Suk's confirmation, Shua formed hand seals and chanted a spell. The next second, Shaman Myo's corpse eerily opened its eyes and mouth wide. Simultaneously, Shua struck several more hand seals and plunged a peachwood dagger fiercely into Shaman Myo's corpse. As streams of eerie energy emerged, grotesque lumps bubbled up on Shaman Myo's body and soon transformed into tentacles that writhed out from his orifices, ultimately forming a giant hand that surged towards the direction of Zhang. At this moment, unaware of the looming danger, Zhang was in the room, but Blue Spirit sensed something amiss first. By the time she reacted, the giant hand had already grabbed towards Zhang's head. Fortunately, Demon Monk reacted first, intercepting the ghost hand, but as a mere yellow spirit, he could not withstand the ghost hand and was easily knocked away. Seeing this, Blue Spirit felt an ominous premonition. Meanwhile, Shua's spellcasting continued, the peachwood dagger wildly stabbing Shaman Myo's corpse, and with each thrust, Shaman Myo's agony was transmitted unabated to whoever touched the ghost hand. This scene, viewed by Lady Suk, thrilled her immensely. Yes, that's it. Let that little brat taste what pain is, she thought. At this time, Blue Spirit also took action. She exhaled a puff of smoke, gently raised her hand, and the blood on the ground instantly turned into countless blades, slicing all the ghost hands apart. Blue Spirit smiled coldly, curious to see who was so bold as to disrupt her plans. With a piercing gaze, Blue Spirit instantly recognized the spellcaster behind the scenes. How dare they try to mess with my prey? She then swung her hand, uttering the word annihilation, and a terrifying energy followed the ghost hand to strike Shua, blowing her away along with Shaman Myo's corpse. Lady Suk immediately ran to her. Master Shua, are you okay? Shua spat blood, her body sweating profusely from shock. She couldn't believe someone could use the ghost hand to cast spells in reverse. This opponent's level was far beyond that of a yellow spirit. She sighed and said to Lady Suk, my lady, it seems our deal needs to be renegotiated. Hearing Shua wanting to change the terms of the deal on the spot, everyone present was perplexed. Shua continued, as you've seen, if my life is to be the stake, then the compensation for this mission must be raised to 1,000 silver coins. Hearing this, Lady Suk frowned. Has that guy really become that dangerous? Typically, a ghost spirit of the yellow spirit level could pose a life threat to humans, but the one you speak of far exceeds this level. A slight mistake could be disastrous. However, rest assured, although most shaman cannot handle a spirit of that level, I am different. Hearing this, Lady Suk thinks carefully, then agrees to Shou's terms, which shocked her guard. However, Lady Suk looks at Shou with piercing eyes. You'd better have a sure method of eliminating Mok Jiangwon. Just as there are ranks among spirit, there are among Taoist masters, and my level is 2 ranks higher than Shaman Myo's. Shua straightened her posture and removed her cloak, revealing a graceful face. Lady Suk was stunned upon learning that Shou was a lot younger than she imagined. Furthermore, I am one of the only 3 Taoist masters in Phoenix Pavilion. Meanwhile, as Shua walked towards the door, an eerie shadow transformed on her body under the light. I assure you, the 3rd young master will definitely not be safe. Her voice echoed coldly through the air. The scene shifted to Blue Spirit, who was furiously upset over the recent events. If Zhang died during the circulation of Qi, he couldn't be ruled as a suicide, and thus, the opportunity Blue Spirit had long awaited would be wasted. Therefore, she had to protect Zhang at all costs to prevent any disturbances. However, the situation developed unexpectedly. At that moment, streaks of black Qi began to emanate from Zhang. Blue Spirit was horrified, barely believing a living person could absorb the Qi of death. Not a single day with him is ordinary, she thought to herself. Not only did he understand the principle behind attachment all by himself, he even immediately accomplished circulating his Qi when he had no clue about it. Despite despite her reluctance to admit it. Zhang's astonishing talent increasingly intrigued her. Zhang opened his eyes, observing the gathering black qi in his hands, and chuckled. As I suspected, this method prevents the qi from dispersing. It's just a pity that this black qi is still too sparse to condense into qi at the core. However, this statement left Blue Spirit utterly speechless. Mortal, are you truly a living human? Hearing this, Zhang was confused. What sort of perfectly alive human being is able to drag in the death qi? Blue Spirit pointed out in confusion. Just then, Zhang noticed the room had become a complete mess. At this moment, Demon Monk sat nearby, looking as if he had been through a battle, while Go-chan lay on the ground, sound asleep. Blue Spirit's face turned awkward, about to make an excuse, but Demon Monk sternly interjected and reported everything to Zhang. You backstabbing baldy, you were part of it just now too. Blue Spirit turned her head away haughtily. You little devil, I saved you from reverse murder, and not even a thank you. Zhang was about to ask what reverse murder is when suddenly, a bizarre scene unfolded. Blue Spirit frowned. You really do attract a lot of annoying things. Just then, Zhang notices something on the floor. Shadows began to pour into the room from the doorway. What sort of lunatic thought to control something like this as their familiar? Blue Spirit said in disgust. Zhang's first time seeing it, asked what it was. It turns out these are dakibis, native to Mount Yuya, the armor-clad insects. As shadows surged into the room, Zhang shockingly discovered that these shadows were comprised of a vast army of poisonous insects. The ones that reside in the mountain are referred to as chimi or mountain spirits, and the ones in the sea as morio or sea spirits. For a long time, the people have called these spirits, which cause disaster and trouble, kaimamorio. Among them was a beast called the mountain-piercing shelled beast, which had the appearance of a bird but possesses the tail of a snake. It could summon insects to attack humans. It is a very dangerous and lethal being. At this moment, however, this formidable army of insects had become Shua's familiar. For Shua, Shaman Myo's life or death was of no concern to her. However, she was very annoyed to see a familiar face ruined by an evil spirit and killed like that. Thus, the third young master, Mok Jiangun, must die. With an order from Shua, the beast spread its wings and flew toward Zhang's room. At the same time, the insect army began their attack. Seeing this, Zhang is a bit nervous. Meanwhile, Go-chan still slept soundly on the bed until Zhang slapped his face to wake him. Just as he got up, he was shocked to see bugs swarming them. Whoa, what's all this? Just then, Go-chan felt intense pain in his hand. In just moments, his palms were bitten into swollen wounds by the poisonous insects. Zhang urgently instructed Go-chan to circulate his qi to protect himself, but he knew this was only a temporary delay. With so many poisonous insects, they would eventually be devoured if a solution was not found soon. At this time, Blue Spirit stood by. What will you do? You're gonna become insect food at this rate. Her detached attitude mildly infuriating Zhang. Blue Spirit, can you help us? But Blue Spirit still appeared indifferent after hearing this. Are you referring to me? Why? What reason do I have to help you? She deliberately responded coldly. You're supposed to be my familiar spirit. Are you gonna keep being uncooperative? Blue Spirit smirked. I'll consider it if you'll give me your body. Hearing this, Zhang turned his head back. Never mind. We'll all just die together then. Out of options, Zhang continued to fight off the insects with a pillow. As the situation became increasingly desperate, Blue Spirit finally spoke up slowly. How about we make a bet? Hearing this, Zhang pauses. If you're truly on the brink of death, it means you've lost, and at that time, you'll have to willingly offer your soul. Conversely, if you can resolve this crisis on your own, I'll support you wholeheartedly in the future. Hearing this, Zhang instantly revealed a smile that suggested his plan had worked. Deal. I hope you keep your word, Zhang said solemnly. Hearing Zhang speak nonchalantly, Blue Spirit is shocked. Young master, there are even more bugs now. What should we do? Go-chan shouted in panic. Go-chan, help me find something to burn. We're going to start a fire in this place. Go-chan was shocked. Starting a fire here was akin to digging their own graves. What on earth was Zhang thinking? But with no other option, Go-chan looked toward a nearby lantern. However, the swarm had already heavily surrounded them, making it difficult to reach the lantern. Just then, Zhang lightly lifted his hand, smoothly executing the ritual of attachment, and a pulling force immediately drew the lantern into his grasp. Go-chan was frightened, but there was no time for explanations. Zhang quickly lit a strip of cloth. He intended to use this method to uncover the mastermind behind the scenes. In fact, from the beginning, Zhang had seen through everything. Such a multitude of poisonous insects must have someone casting spells from behind. Normally, ordinary people would not have access to a priest, but Lady Suk was an exception. That is to say, there must be a master of spells beside her, and Zhang's purpose in making a large fire was precisely to draw out the mastermind. However, just as the cloth was ignited, suddenly a black fog appeared and instantly extinguished the flame. At the same time, footsteps could be heard from outside. How foolish to think such trivial tricks could deceive me. The voice of Shua came coldly as she nonchalantly walked through the swarm of insects, her right eye emitting a white light, a natural ability of hers that allowed her to see another world made of qi. Whatever you may be doing beyond the walls, you cannot hide from me, Shua stated coldly as she focused her eyes on the wall. At this moment, in Shua's eyes, Zhang was enveloped in a red qi, and he was also connected by two red lines. I finally found you. Then, with a loud bang, the entire entire wall was blown away by a palm strike from Shua. Seeing the mastermind finally appear, Zhang gave a cold smile. Nice to meet you. The next second, Demon Monk's figure stealthily appeared above Shua's head. However, Shua remained unfazed, simply uttering a word and an enormous hand materialized out of thin air, immediately pressing Demon Monk to the ground. No matter what you do, it's futile. Seeing the situation growing dire, Go-chan pulled out a dart, hoping to sneak attack, but Shua was prepared. She threw a thunder talisman, and the dart in Go-chan's hand was blasted away before he could even throw it. Zhang caught the falling dart, ready to counterattack, but Shua's familiar wings flapped violently, sending a tornado of insects furiously towards Zhang. Untrained in martial arts, Zhang was immediately swept away by the swarm, yet Shua had no intention of stopping. Countless poisonous insects, like a tornado, tightly wrapped around Zhang. At this moment, Demon Monk was pinned down by tentacles and couldn't move, the situation easily controlled by Shua. She thought she might have misjudged. Perhaps the opponent's spirit was not at the level of a green spirit. She gently stroked her familiar chin, complimenting its fine work. Let's go now. The swarm of bugs will eat him up if we just leave him be. But just when she thought everything was under control, she suddenly stopped, feeling a strange black chi rose from Zhang's body. Shua turned back and was stunned. At the same time, Zhang, like a ghostly figure, stood up again without hesitation. He quickly slashed across his own body with the sword in his hand, and blood immediately spurted out. Shua is utterly shocked by the situation. The surrounding poisonous insects, upon contact with the blood, fell like meteors to the ground. Even so, Zhang did not stop. He raised his sword again, piercing his own palm, and blood dripped all over his body. Seeing this scene, even the battle-hardened Shua showed a look of terror, unable to believe what she was seeing. In a moment of distraction, Zhang charged furiously at her. My blood is a deadly poison, so it's a great way to exterminate bugs too, Zhang said coldly. With that, Zhang's sword fiercely stabbed toward Shua's body. Fortunately, Shua reacted in time, narrowly avoiding the strike. She then commanded the mountain-piercing shelled beast to attack. The beast faces head-on with Zhang. This time, Shua realized that the insects could no longer harm Zhang, so she needed to buy more time. Immediately, Shua began forming seals with her fingers, chanting a spell spirit commanding method, and energy began to gather in her palms. However, Zhang clearly wasn't going to give her a chance to complete her spell. Thought-shattering 8 techniques. First technique, Ritual of Attachment. A terrifying suction force erupted from Zhang's palm, pulling Shua's familiar towards him, leaving her no chance to resist. It was sucked right next to Zhang's hand. Seeing this, Shua was shocked, though she didn't know how Zhang had managed it. Finally, it's quiet, Zhang said while fiercely grabbing Shua's familiar by its neck. She stopped her spell casting and lunged at Zhang, preparing for a final counterattack, but it was too late. Zhang exerted a little pressure with his palm, and Shua immediately felt excruciating pain. What shocked her even more was that Zhang in front of her was unabashedly absorbing the death chi she controlled. This scene was beyond her comprehension. Even the most senior elders of the Phoenix Pavilion had never seen a living person who could absorb death chi and survive. Yet Zhang not only succeeded in absorbing it, but also turned it into his own power. Zhang had originally only intended to capture the bird controlling the poisonous insects, but to his surprise, the bird gave him an unexpected gift. Its vast death chi far exceeded his expectations, even more than what he had gained from personally killing a lot of people. If he could absorb all this death chi, he was confident that he could successfully condense chi within his core. Shua seemed to realize Zhang's intentions, her hands trembling as she begged him to stop. If you keep doing that, it will die. However, Zhang just showed a devilish smile, with no intention of stopping at all. Meanwhile, somewhere in Blessing Flower Hall, Lady Sook's residence, Lady Sook anxiously awaited news from Shua. Although she was confident in this commission, after disposing of the third young master, she had to ensure to get her hands on the secret manual. If not, she will make sure that these secrets did not fall into others' hands. Just then, Shua finally appeared in the distance. The lady almost laughed out loud, thinking she had succeeded. Imagining her son soon taking the position of the manor master, her heart was already overjoyed, even starting to envision a future where she was above 10,000 people. However, at that moment, Shua suddenly stopped, and before the crowd could react, she shouted, "Great First Madam, we, the Phoenix Pavilion, can no longer accept the order to kill Mok Jiangwon." With that statement, the entire place erupted into chaos. With a buzz, Lady Sook's mind went blank. Cunning bastard, he's the devil himself, to make me do something like this, Shua thought while gritting her teeth. Just now, Zhang had used Shua's familiar life as leverage to force her to expose Lady Sook publicly, because he knew that even if Shua was defeated now, the Phoenix Pavilion would continue to send people. Thus, he decided to use this method to turn Lady Sook and the Phoenix Pavilion into enemies. Shua understood that this action was akin to betraying the Phoenix Pavilion, but she had no choice. She continued to shout, "Lady Sook, you claim that young Master Mok Jiangwon was possessed by a demon and ordered us to exorcise the evil and take his life. However, upon my confirmation, young Master Mok Jiangwon has not been possessed by anything. Therefore, please retract your commission to the Phoenix Pavilion." Instantly, Shua's voice spread throughout the entire villa. turning the once quiet Blessing Flower Hall into a scene of uproar. Hearing that Lady Suk wanted Mok Jaewon's life, many people lit lamps and got up to check, and there were even calls to capture this sinister and vicious lady. At the same time, guards from the outer hall rushed over at the sound. At this moment, Lady Suk was sweating profusely and utterly panicked. When Shua returned to Zhang's room, the entire villa was already in chaos. She looked up the window, and Zhang, still holding Shua's familiar by the neck, merely smirked. "Is everything taken care of? Just as you wished. The lady has been captured as a criminal, and the Phoenix Pavilion has become hostile to her." Shua said this, gritting her teeth with irritation. To fulfill Zhang's demands, she had completely betrayed the Phoenix Pavilion, and her life might be hunted by them from now on. She reached out to Zhang. "Give me back my familiar spirit as promised," but he just smirked ghostly and said, "Before that, I have some questions to ask you." Moments later, inside the room, Shua looked puzzled. "You want to know about spirit and goblins?" "Yes, including Demon Monk by my side, and those who can control them, especially you from the Phoenix Pavilion," Zhang answered. However, upon hearing Zhang's question, Shua didn't know how to respond. Although she confirmed that Zhang wasn't possessed by an evil spirit, she still couldn't understand how he managed to turn an evil spirit into a familiar, and on top of that, she could see another one. Seeing that Shua didn't respond, Zhang slightly increased the pressure on his hand. Frightened, Shua hurriedly began to speak. "There are 6 levels to the Kaimamoryo: ominous beasts, strange beasts, mythical beasts, demonic beasts, sacred beasts, and divine beasts. Even the lowest level, the ominous beast, can bring significant disaster to humans, and as their level increases, they become even more dangerous. As for the Phoenix Pavilion, only 3 people can control such beasts as their familiar spirits. One of them is Go, who has long aided the Hall Master. He handles the strange beast of Luwu Mountain known as Gudiao. Although I don't know its abilities, it's said that its mere presence is a major disaster. The second one is the Master of the Phoenix Pavilion. Although no one knows what monster he controls, but its level is certainly very high." Zhang curiously asked, "Could he be controlling a sacred beast or a divine beast?" Shua denied his speculation. "No, those only exist in legends, let alone becoming a human familiar. Therefore, it's most likely that the Pavilion Master's familiar is either a mythical beast or a demonic beast." Having said that, Shua pulled out a copy of the Classic of Mountains and Seas from her pocket. "The details about these monsters are all recorded in this book. If there's anything unclear, you can look it up carefully." Zhang took the book, flipping through it casually as if finding a treasure. Even these lowest level monsters contain such immense energy. He began to look forward to encountering higher level monsters. Then, he casually threw the familiar spirit back to Shua. Watching her critically injured familiar in her arms, Shua trembled with anger, but still had to forcibly thank him. Even Go-chan thought Zhang was being a bit excessive. Moments later, watching Shua's indignant departure, Zhang felt great joy in his heart. Now, the Lady Suk could no longer pose a threat to him, and he had absorbed huge amounts of energy from Shua's familiar, enough to form inner power in his core. This meant that no one could stop him from learning martial arts anymore. But at that moment, Go-chan asked in confusion, "Are you really just going to let her go? Now that you two have such a deep grudge, she will surely not let you go in the future." To this, Zhang was unconcerned. "Since I promised to let her go, I will keep my word. Moreover, she won't be able to pose a threat to me anymore." Hearing this, Go-chan is confused. Just then, Zhang smiled as if talking to someone. "Now, it's time for you to fulfill your part of the promise." Not long after, outside the Blessing Flower Hall, holding the dying familiar in her arms, she vowed that one day she would return for revenge. However, the next second, a tremendous force hit her, causing her to stagger backward, followed by instinctive trembling as she felt an impending death. The horror and evil too great. At the same time, her right eye began bleeding, and a pair of hands quietly appeared behind her head. A second later, her right eye burst open, and the crimson moonlight enveloped everything around. Just then, Blue Spirit appeared like a specter before Shua, coldly smiling, even without eyes. "You still look so lovely." At that moment, Shua was numb all over from the eerie aura. Simultaneously, a strange scene occurred. The blood from the corner of her eye didn't drip down, but gathered and surged crazily into her mouth. Back in the outer hall of Blessing Flower Hall, the First Lady was desperately defending herself. "How could I possibly harm the third young master? It must be him and that priestess conspiring against me." But her words were soon interrupted. She immediately stopped speaking. This person was Sang Woongbeek, the outer hall master. Unlike the chief of the inner hall, Sang Woongbeek was utterly loyal to the manor master, thus being the most influential figure among the household servants, unreachable by the First Lady. Sang Woongbeek interrogated the great lady. "I heard there was a conflict between you and the third young master. What exactly happened?" Lady Suk claimed, "Because he disobeyed orders." But these words, merely questioned in passing. How could Sang Woongbeek possibly believe them? "Isn't it because you plan to kill the manor master?" Sang Woongbeek asked coldly. The lady was shocked. She intended to explain something, but upon seeing Sang Woongbeek's grim expression, she quieted down immediately. Sang Woongbeek continued, "I will not ignore the attempt on the third young master's life, so I hope you will cooperate fully. However, you needn't worry. Everyone will undergo a fair investigation. We will look very thoroughly into you and the second son, as well as the third son. After the lady left, Sang Wongbik fell into deep thought. He couldn't understand why. Even though the third young master neither had martial arts skills nor powerful marriage alliances, both the second young master and the lady saw him as a thorn in their side. Could it be that this guy has some unspeakable secret? Sang Wongbik mused to himself. Now thinking back to the time when Mok Jaehyun was being interrogated in the outer hall, he indeed seemed different than usual. At first, Sang Wongbik thought he was just scared, hence the temporary strange behavior, but up to now, Mok Jaehyun's actions gave him an odd feeling. It seems this third young master requires my personal attention, he thought to himself. After Blue Spirit dealt with Shua, she slipped back into the room through the walls silently. Demon Monk quickly greeted her with a respectful fist salute. Seeing Mok Jaehyun focusing on his breathing and energy, she was again surprised. Unexpectedly, this guy could not only control ghost spirits but also absorb death energy from them. From the current situation, it seemed he was about to condense the absorbed death energy into his energy core, known to be denser than the death energy emitted by the deceased. Not just humans but even ghost spirits would suffer backlash if they absorbed it. Yet Jong seemed perfectly fine. Blue Spirit pouted, brought her face close to Jong's, and carefully examined his features. His fair and tender appearance completely met the standards of a handsome young man, and for a moment, Blue Spirit found herself quite entranced. Just then, Jong suddenly opened his eyes. "What are you doing?" This startled Blue Spirit, but she quickly recovered. If she now admitted she was admiring his handsome features, it would be quite embarrassing. So, she immediately backed off and turned her head away, starting to divert the topic. Jong looked at Blue Spirit, seemingly realizing something. When Blue Spirit looked back, Jong suddenly burst into laughter. Seeing his expression, Blue Spirit unexpectedly blushed. She arched an eyebrow and quickly told Jong to stop talking nonsense and continue focusing on his breathing and energy cultivation. At this moment, Blue Spirit also felt regret for making that bet with such a young kid. It was all because of that damn girl's incompetence. Just then, Jong slowly spoke, indicating he needed Blue Spirit's help to confirm whether he had successfully condensed the energy core. Blue Spirit smirked and noncommittally responded, expecting to condense an energy core within a single day. Before she could finish, Jong interrupted, "Is that even possible? Then what's this little bump below my navel?" Hearing this, Blue Spirit's eyebrows furrowed, and she looked at Mok Jaehyun incredulously. She was utterly shocked. Such rapid success was hard for Blue Spirit to accept. "It looks like I need to check it myself." With that, Blue Spirit reached out towards Jong's core. However, when her palm touched his body, a tremendous force repelled her hand away. This was the first time Blue Spirit had encountered such a situation. Curious, she quickly called Demon Monk to try as well, but no matter how hard they tried, their hands couldn't touch Jong's body. "Is it because I'm a familiar spirit now?" Blue Spirit thought to himself. Then, Blue Spirit turned her gaze to Go-chan, who was soundly asleep beside them. She reached into his belly without obstruction. Go-chan immediately woke up in pain and then fainted from the shock. "He's being so dramatic," Blue Spirit muttered to herself. It turns out, Blue Spirit forgot that from the moment inner power begins to condense in the core, the body becomes extremely sensitive, and even a slight touch can cause intense pain. However, she didn't care whether Go-chan would faint or not. "Anyway, it doesn't seem like a problem on my end." Jong asked again, "Isn't there any other way to confirm?" Blue Spirit thought for a moment. "There is another method," but before she could finish, they heard a knock at the door. Sang Wongbik, the hall master of the outer hall, had come for a late-night visit. Jong, also curious, prepared to greet this unexpected visitor. Having met Sang Wongbik once during the interrogation in the outer hall, Jong remembered him well. As a servant who had served 2 generations of manor masters, his beliefs are very firm, and the elders trust him. Because of that, even Lady So can't do anything to him. Jong knew well the influence Sang Wongbik had in Mok Sword Manor. At this moment, seeing Mok Jaehyun sitting on the bed, Sang Wongbik's expression seemed a bit gloomy, but the next second, he suddenly knelt down, bowing his head. "It's all due to my negligence that the third young master was attacked." Jong shook his hand after hearing this, indicating, "It's not your fault. I don't mind, so you don't need to blame yourself. I'm completely fine." Sang Wongbik, looking at Mok Jaehyun like this, flashed a strange look in his eyes. He pretended to check Jong's injuries, but he stopped midway when he raised his hand. Although Jong found it odd, he was quickly distracted by Sang Wongbik's next move. Sang Wongbik smiled and patted Jong's shoulder, saying, "I truly appreciate that the third young master can think this way." Then, Sang Wongbik looked around cautiously and asked Jong, "The dagger I sent you last time, I don't see it. Since the manor master has been ill, I've given each young master a weapon for self-defense. Did you lose it?" Realizing his mistake, Mok Jaehyun quickly found an excuse, saying, "I put it in the drawer of the closet." Hearing this, Sang Wongbik burst into laughter. "I would have been sad had you lost it." But Jong's face suddenly changed. Then he said, "But I don't remember ever receiving a dagger." As soon as the words left his mouth, Sang Wongbik's expression darkened instantly. "That's because I never sent you guys that thing." With that, he suddenly punched towards Jong. Fortunately, Jong reacted in time, dodging the blow with a swift movement. However, in the next second, Sang Wongbik struck out with lightning speed, pointing several fingers while loudly demanding, "Who exactly are you? You made 2 mistakes." Sang Sang Woongbik explained. Firstly, the third young master gets very arrogant when someone submits to him. Secondly, since he is often bullied by the fourth young master, he instinctively dodges whenever someone reaches out to him. But just now, your expression was completely calm, and you showed no fear at all. Now that I have locked all your acupoints, you won't be able to move. You might as well confess. Where is the real third young master? However, after hearing Sang Woongbik's words, Jong gave a mysterious smile. The next second, his body, which should have been immobilized, suddenly moved. Sang Woongbik was shocked, not understanding how Jong managed it, but by then it was too late. Just as he heard the word blue spirit from Jong's mouth, an unusual palm pierced through Sang Woongbik's body. In an instant, Sang Woongbik felt a strange power gripping his heart tightly, frightening him into immobility. Seeing this, Jong praised Blue Spirit. You're just as skilled as I expected. Blue Spirit slowly understood the situation. Since life chi and death chi are on the opposite ends of the spectrum, the innate energy he uses to pin your meridian would naturally scatter. With this, she confirmed that Jong definitely formed an energy core. Realizing this, she can't help but be amazed. A body resistant to acupuncture without needing an immense amount of chi. How interesting. Jong did manage to create an energy core, but someone caught his identity, so he can't stay any longer. Thinking this, Jong had a new idea, and he lightly uttered the word demon monk. Possess him. Hearing this, Blue Spirit smirked. You're basically a demon yourself. At that moment, Sang Woongbik could no longer keep calm. Although he did not know who Jong was talking to, he felt a deathly fear from hell, as his body was already tightly bound by numerous tendrils. Jong's showdown with Sang Woongbik, the outer hall master, finally came to an end at the appearance of the demon monk. From then on, there was one less person in Mock Sword Manor who could threaten Jong, which delighted him greatly. The next morning, Go-chan woke up from a coma and was immediately summoned to Jong's room. On the way to the room, Go-chan saw the guards of the outer hall standing solemnly and a lot more polite. At Jong's door, a guard greeted him. Welcome. The young master is waiting. This situation made him very curious. Just what is going on? Before Go-chan could recover from his confusion, the moment he pushed open the door, he was stunned by the scene before him. Sang Woongbik, the outer hall master, was respectfully standing in front of Jong. You're excused, outer hall master. Yes, I'll be going, Sang Woongbik said with a bow, and when he left, he even nodded respectfully at Go-chan. Go-chan couldn't believe what he was seeing and didn't understand what had changed in the world after last night. At that moment, Jong finally spoke, casually inviting Go-chan to join him for breakfast, which scared Go-chan quite a bit, as Jong seemed so unperturbed at the moment. Just as Go-chan was about to ask what had happened, Jong spoke first. Can you teach me the basic techniques of Mock Sword Manor's martial arts? Hearing this, Go-chan was so startled that the food he was about to eat fell from his chopsticks. Jong had begun trying to practice martial arts based on the descriptions in the secret manual of Mock Sword Manor. However, he found that no matter how he practiced, he couldn't perform the movements coherently. Later, he learned from Blue Spirit that these actions were mainly to lay a foundation for practitioners. The so-called martial arts secrets were based on extending and evolving these basic movements to a higher level. This meant that without understanding the basic techniques, no matter how much he practiced, he wouldn't grasp their significance. For someone like Jong, who knew nothing about martial arts, mastering the sword techniques of Mock Sword Manor required first learning the Mock Sword Manor basic techniques. However, after hearing Jong's words, Go-chan stood up excitedly. Does that mean you also want to become the master of Mock Sword Manor? Obviously, he had misunderstood Jong's intention. I just thought it'd be useful. Upon hearing this, Go-chan finally realized, but he still declined Jong's request, because the basic techniques of Mock Sword Manor, I've only ever glimpsed them from a distance, so I don't know what they are really like. For a renowned family like Mock Sword Manor, even the basic techniques are only allowed to be practiced by family members. Jong looked at him directly. Then the people who know these techniques are the manor master and the other young masters. Upon hearing this, Jong put his chopsticks on the bowl and stroked his chin thoughtfully. He had thought that the warriors of Mock Sword Manor would all know the basic techniques, but he didn't expect such a result. But how could the other young masters possibly teach him the basic techniques? And if anything went wrong in the process, his identity might also be exposed. If that's the case, then there's nothing I can do, he said, and decisively got up, asking Go-chan to follow him. When Go-chan learned that Jong was planning to find someone who could teach him the basic techniques, he quickly tried to intervene, but no matter what he said, Jong still walked out without looking back. Following Jong to the destination, Go-chan was once again shocked by Jong's bold decision, because the person Jong was seeking was Mok Yu-chun, the fourth young master, who had beaten him half to death 2 years ago. Jong went to the training ground to ask Mok Yu-chun, and they saw him training as usual. Jong was about to approach Mok Yu-chun. Seeing Mok Yu-chun's muscular physique, Go-chan was so frightened he could hardly speak. I told you there was an incident. Jong remembers what Go-chan said the other day, but that doesn't stop him from going. The scene of Mok Jae-woon being beaten is still vivid in my mind. Go-chan couldn't help but say. The third young master's legs and ribs were broken in multiple places. He was sobbing and crying. It was a whole mess. The fourth young master's resentment towards the third young master has reached an irreconcilable point, and most importantly, importantly, despite being only 16 years old, his martial arts skills have reached a peak. Blue Spirit also spoke up. I too have sensed the extraordinary power in the fourth young master. There aren't many with an aura like this at this age. It's not an exaggeration to call him a once-in-a-generation genius. If I were still alive, I would definitely take him as my disciple. After speaking, Blue Spirit urged Jong to be cautious, as she could not exert her full strength during the day. To this, Jong just smirked devilishly and casually walked towards the fourth young master. On the other side, Mok Yuchun suddenly saw Mok Jaehyung appear before him, first startled, then his expression darkened. Jong greeted him, but he just turned his head. If you don't want to be beaten again, you'd better scram. But before he could finish speaking, Mok Yuchun's expression turned to shock. Jong pulled out the Mok Sword Manor's supreme secret manual from his bosom and asked with a smile, "Do you want this?" He then tossed it unhesitatingly to Mok Yuchun, who caught it swiftly. Seeing this, Mok Yuchun's eyes widened, initially skeptical of the authenticity of the manual, but after taking it and examining it closely, he was astonished to find that it indeed contained many profound principles. It truly was Mok Sword Manor's Heart Method manual. But soon, Mok Yuchun noticed that several pages were missing from the manual. Mok Yuchun asked Jong where are the ripped pages, and Jong nodded slowly. They have all been memorized in my mind. At this point, Mok Yuchun had no idea what Jong was planning. He knew the Manor Master would never pass the manual to Mok Jaehyung, so he asked again, "How did you get it?" Jong did not respond, his expression unchanged. However, this infuriated Mok Yuchun, who shouted, "If you came here to boast that the position of Manor Master is yours, then get lost before I beat you up again." After speaking, he angrily threw the manual at Jong, but Jong simply picked it up nonchalantly and said, "It seems you've misunderstood something. I'm just here to negotiate with you. I'm not interested in the position of Manor Master." Hearing this, Mok Yuchun laughed. He punched Jong in the face without hesitation, not believing a word and thinking that Jong was clearly plotting something. With a bang, the tremendous force sent Jong flying backward. "If you've forgotten what happened 2 years ago, I don't mind helping you recall, so you can never try anything with me ever again." Blood streaming from Jong's nose. Yet at that moment, Jong laughed. "Indeed different. Besides that guy with the black sword, you are the first to hit me so hard." This was his first time experiencing such a stark disparity between masters. He finally understood why Go-chan called Mok Yuchun a monster. Facing such an opponent, Jong was very clear that this was not someone he could defeat just by luck. However, this made him even more eager. If he learned martial arts, could he also become so powerful? He wiped the blood from his mouth and smiled slightly. "Your fist is indeed very hard." Seeing Mok Jaehyung stand up again, still scoffing at himself, Mok Yuchun's face was full of surprise. He issued another warning to Jong, "If you want to taste more punches, I don't mind giving you a refresher." But then Jong laughed and said, "I know you still have your doubts. No, this is not doubt, but certainty, because I will not believe a single word you say." Mok Yuchun clenched his fists, realizing that since things had come to this, he should teach this guy a harsh lesson, just like he had done 2 years ago. However, just as he was about to throw a punch, Jong smiled and said, "Then there's no helping it. I'll just have to pass the secret manual to the lady or our second brother." Hearing this, Mok Yuchun's face changed dramatically, and he shouted angrily, "How dare you threaten me?" Yet Jong remained unmoved. "Believing it or not is your choice, but if you choose so, after I give them the manual, I will still get what I want, but you might not." Mok Yuchun was stunned by this remark, for he fully understood its implications. At this moment, Mok Yuchun looked at the fearless gaze of Jong, and his body involuntarily trembled. "Who are you? Are you really Mok Jaehyung?" Mok Yuchun questioned. Hearing this, Go-chan behind him was shocked, secretly thinking, could it be that Jong's identity had been exposed? However, Jong's expression remained unchanged, and he smiled slightly, looking straight at Mok Yuchun. "Who else would I be? You speak as if you know me well." Mok Yuchun's gaze faltered. "Of course, I know you. You're the one I beat up like a dog 2 years ago, a coward who would even run away from looking at me because of fear." Jong responded calmly, "You're right about that, but besides that incident and the fact that we are half-brothers, what else do you know about me? Including what I like, what I dislike, and even why I am willing to give up the position of master. You know nothing about me." Hearing this, Mok Yuchun was taken aback. The huge change in this brother over the past 2 years surprised him. Despite Jong's justified stance, he still shouted loudly, "Why do you question me? You people despise me for my lowly background, alienate me, ignore me. No one has ever acknowledged me. Why are you seeking me out now instead of dealing with those who think they are nobler?" Jong answered nonchalantly, "Because you are the best among them." Instantly, Mok Yuchun fell silent. He stared incredulously into Jong's eyes. Suffering from his lowly origins, he had endured torment from a young age, spending his childhood in loneliness. Yet today, he heard someone acknowledge him, and it was the person he least expected. Did this mean he needed to change as well? Mok Yuchun let down his guard and said bluntly, "Very well, then tell me what you want." Hearing this, Jong is very pleased. Moments later, on the way back to his room, Go-chan looked up to Jong with utmost admiration. It must be said, in terms of strategy, Jong did an exceptionally good job. He had been worried that his request to Mok Yuchun to learn basic techniques would arouse suspicion, but Jong had managed to get his agreement so naturally. Just now, Jong had made 3 demands to Mok Yuchun. Yu-chan. First and foremost, the most important thing, if you become the master in the future, you absolutely must not lay a hand on me. As for the second thing, you must provide me with sufficient financial support. Mok Yu-chan's expression was serious as he promised Jong that as long as Jong didn't provoke him first, he would not lay a hand on him. After receiving a positive response, Jong casually made his final request, which was for Mok Yu-chan to teach him the basic martial arts techniques of Mok sword manor. As expected, when Mok Yu-chan heard this request, he agreed without any hesitation and even mocked Jong for forgetting something so simple. This, of course, was Jong's plan. From the moment they first met, Jong had been subtly directing Mok Yu-chan's attention to the first two demands. After gaining Mok Yu-chan's trust, the request to learn the basic techniques seemed trivial. Mok Yu-chan didn't doubt him one bit and just laughed at him for forgetting the basics and agrees to teach him. So, Mok Yu-chan revealed the secret formulas of the basic techniques to Jong, and Jong thought the missing pages of the manual to Mok Yu-chan. Reflecting on everything that had just happened, Go-chan once again looked at Jong with admiration. However, what made him feel regretful was how easily Mok Yu-chan obtained the manual. However, Jong didn't care because he had altered the contents of the manual, changing one word in every 13 or 14 characters. At first, he worried it might be discovered, but to his surprise, the process went smoothly. Upon hearing this, Go-chan broke into a cold sweat. No wonder Jong had been so open about revealing the manual's contents to Mok Yu-chan. Wasn't he afraid that Mok Yu-chan would practice the wrong techniques and mess up his vital energy, leading to a dangerous outcome? Jong coldly replied, "What about it?" At that moment, Go-chan felt a chill run down his spine. This guy didn't care at all whether Mok Yu-chan would be harmed. He was truly a devil. Before the previous storm had even subsided, another one had begun. Due to the betrayal of Shua, the relationship between the Phoenix Pavilion and the Suk clan had completely broken down. In order to uncover the truth, the pavilion master ordered that Shua must be found. However, even with all the disciples of the pavilion searching, there was still no trace of him. Eventually, in order to salvage the reputation of the organization, the eldest elder had to personally take action. At this moment, in a secluded forest, as the talisman in the hands of Master Gu burned out completely, he looked at the crimson stain on the ground and fell into deep thought. As one of the three most powerful spellcasters of the Phoenix Pavilion, what kind of force could have been strong enough to kill her so ruthlessly? Thinking of this, he immediately began forming hand seals, muttering a few incantations. In an instant, the surrounding winds began to howl. The next moment, a red light flashed in Master Gu's eyes, and everything Shua had experienced before her death seemed to play like a revolving lantern in front of his eyes. But before he could fully process the information, a chilling coldness descended upon him. At this moment, he felt the bone-deep fear Shua had felt before her death, as if his body had fallen into an endless inferno. Instantly, he snapped back to reality, frozen in place, unable to regain his senses for a long time. After a while, he sighed deeply. "I didn't expect this thing could already reach into the spiritual realm. I had underestimated the situation before." Then, he looked up at the sky and murmured, "It seems we need to prepare again." At the same time, a shadow in the shape of an eagle flapped its wings in response. The scene shifted, and at Mok Sword Manor, Jong began practicing the basic martial arts formulas provided by Mok Yu-chan. Every movement he made was seamless, flowing without any hesitation, completely unlike a beginner learning martial arts for the first time. Even Blue Spirit, who was nearby, stared blankly, completely mesmerized. Normally, when an ordinary person begins learning martial arts, they start with basic movements, practicing them over many years, linking each movement together to eventually form a full set of martial arts techniques. However, Jong directly skipped this most important step. Thanks to his incredible memory and comprehension ability, he didn't need to practice each movement separately. For him, all that was left was to continuously train his muscles. Seeing Jong's astonishing martial arts talent, Blue Spirit felt deeply frustrated. She had originally thought Jong would rely on her for guidance. Not that I was going to, of course. Well, if he begged, maybe I could. This sense of defeat made her feel quite uncomfortable. Jong, noticing this, was curious about what she was thinking. Just then, Go-chan appeared. Jong smiled. "You're just in time. I need you to help me with something." Hearing this, Go-chan looked completely confused. Not long after, Go-chan stared at the strange symbol in his hand, deep in thought. The symbol was very simple, yet he had never seen it before. Jong had asked him to contact an intelligence agency to gather information about it. So, he went to the Eternal Orchid Pavilion. This place was considered to be at the bottom of the intelligence network, but it was the only one nearby. As for whether he would get any useful information, Go-chan had little hope. Thinking about his pitiful life, which had now been reduced to running errands, Go-chan sighed deeply. However, he wasn't particularly bothered by it since he had never had any real goals in life. His parents had abandoned him when he was very young, and he had become an assassin. But due to a lack of talent, he was soon kicked out of the organization. At first, he had followed his senior, Guard Cam, just because they had both been cast out by the organization. He knew Guard Cam was never a good person and had always treated him as a tool. Though it was still the same now, Go-chan had come to enjoy this drifting feeling. At least, he felt like he was still alive. Well, I guess life right now was better better than before. I am working less, that's for sure, Go-chan said with a smile. The only thing that worried him was Jong's elaborate plans, which were always unpredictable. While Go-chan was lost in his thoughts, a fat man with a woman in tow walked in. He was the owner of the Eternal Orchid Pavilion, Quack, his face flushed with drunkenness. He asked Go-chan, "She's new here. What do you think of her? Isn't she pretty, right?" Go-chan was very angry. Although the woman was indeed dazzlingly beautiful, now was not the time to consider such things. Send her out. However, Quack's mind was not on work at all, still fixed on the woman's graceful figure, unable to look away. Seeing how angry Go-chan was, Quack reluctantly let the woman leave first, but as the woman got up to leave, he still tried to grope her behind. This completely enraged Go-chan, but before he could react, a slap landed on Quack's face with a smack. The woman muttered a few words, "Ugh, I can't take it anymore," and then she took off the wig on her head. At this moment, both Go-chan and Quack were still dumbfounded. However, the next second, with a strange movement, the woman grabbed Quack's head, and with a crack, his body fell to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. Startled by this scene, Go-chan hurriedly tried to draw his sword, but the woman took the opportunity to kick over the table. Go-chan was utterly shocked. Several wooden spikes appeared in her hands out of thin air, and before he could react, they were thrust into Go-chan's acupoints. At this time, the woman shed her disguise, revealing a delicate figure. "I'm disappointed that you didn't recognize me, number 86, or rather Mr. Go-chan." Hearing this voice, Go-chan was utterly panicked, stammering, "Madam, accomplish 100 murders. This is the ritual you must go through in order to become the Flying Death School sect leader. Once you become the Flying Death School sect leader, you will also receive a secret poisonous weapon." The keen benevolence needle, a symbol of the head of the Flying Death School, was now in the hands of a brothel woman, an impossible scenario. The fact that she has this means she's now the sect leader. No way! Go-chan thought in disbelief. Ha-Chiron is the only variable successor of the Flying Death School sect leader. As the only family he had, he pinned all his hopes on Ha-Chiron. Everyone understood this. However, the problem was Ha-Chiron's damned personality. All the assassins of the Flying Death School believed it was impossible for Ha-Chiron to kill 100 of people because of that personality of hers. Go-chan still can remember how much of an arrogant little troublemaker Ha-Chiron was. Now, at 19, Go-chan only needed to look at her thrilling figure to know she had developed very well. Plus, with that charming face, many people would be deceived by her appearance. Just then, Ha-Chiron finally reached out to Go-chan and pulled the keen benevolence needle out of his body. Go-chan can finally move his body. Just then, Ha-Chiron spoke. "I didn't expect us to see each other again like this." "Yes, I agree. It's been a while, madam." Before Go-chan could finish, Ha-Chiron interrupted. "It's sect leader," which made Go-chan confused. "I'm the sect leader now." Seeing her performance now, Go-chan began to wonder, had she really changed for the better? If so, perhaps she indeed qualified to be the sect leader. However, seeing that Go-chan still appeared doubtful, Ha-Chiron's gaze instantly turned icy. "Don't think that just because you left the organization, you can disrespect the sect leader." After confirming his suspicion, Go-chan felt a wave of unease. Based on past experiences, the fate of assassins who left the organization was invariably death. Fearing that Ha-Chiron was here to take his life, he immediately knelt down, hastily exclaiming, "Greetings, sect leader." Seeing Go-chan's reaction, Ha-Chiron couldn't help but curse. Ha-Chiron smiled at Go-chan, saying softly, "Don't be nervous. My purpose here is to get close to the eldest son of the Mocksword Manor." She had heard that the first son was lecherous and liked to drink, so she planned to enter Mocksword Manor through him, but now it seemed unnecessary. "I just need to go in with you." Go-chan furrowed his brow, not understanding the meaning of Ha-Chiron's words. Why did she want to enter Mocksword Manor with him? To this question, Ha-Chiron looked Go-chan seriously, her voice filled with a murderous tone. "Assassin number 29, Guard Cam, the bodyguard." Hearing Guard Cam's name, Go-chan felt extremely nervous. "I heard his assassination mission failed." Ha-Chiron continues. "According to the golden rule of the Flying Death School, an assassination mission must be completed. So, my purpose here is to take the head of the third son of Mocksword Manor." Hearing this, Go-chan is extremely shocked. Meanwhile, Jong continued to practice the basic techniques of Mocksword Manor. Just 3 hours had passed, and he already looked as if he had been practicing for years. The sun was almost completely set, and Blue Spirit finally approached to speak. "How long are you going to practice like this?" Jong, still not fully satisfied, came back from his practice, looked up at the sky, and, seeing it was indeed late, said, "Right, then let's go eat." At this, Blue Spirit seemed to have been waiting a long time, her lips immediately curling into an excited smile. Back to Jong's room, a maid was focused on eating, while Jong sat opposite her with a book, appearing nonchalant. After the maid cleared the food from the table, a satisfied expression appeared on her face. Seeing her like this, Jong couldn't help but be curious, asking, "Are you really that happy?" The maid picked up a jug of wine, still not having enough, and said, "The greatest pleasure in life is eating. One day you'll understand." And this maid was actually Blue Spirit, possessed. For days ago, Jong had Blue Spirit try possessing the maid who brought her food, and Blue Spirit seemed to really enjoy it. But just then, bulging veins suddenly appeared on the maid's body, and her veins seemed to darken as if dyed with ink. Blue Spirit exclaimed in surprise, She can't even endure 15 minutes. Seeing this, Jong thought, it seems an ordinary body can't handle a spirit of such a high level. Having had her fill, Blue Spirit looked at Jong and wondered, why are you too interested in shamanism? The book in Jong's hands, which Blue Spirit had obtained from Shua, was titled Six-Person Spirit Summoning Technique. Having witnessed Shua's use of familiar, Jong naturally became very interested in these methods. Just as Jong was ready to continue studying, a sinister presence suddenly approached. He furrowed his brow and turned his head. Seeing his reaction, Blue Spirit's eyes brightened, saying, it seems your intuition has indeed become very sharp. Moments later, in Go Chan's room, he brought Ha Chiron a set of maid's clothes, but Ha Chiron merely glanced at them casually and turned her head away. So tacky. I'd rather wear clothes from a brothel. Go Chan couldn't help but swallow. The situation was becoming more and more critical. Since encountering Ha Chiron, she had been keeping a firm eye on him. Now, taking advantage of the moment, she changed clothes to slip away. How could Go Chan miss this chance? He put down the clothes and turned to leave. But just then, Ha Chiron playfully asked, why don't you stay? Opportunities to see a figure like mine aren't common. Saying this, she deliberately revealed her impressive legs. Go Chan, who had never seen such a scene, blushed intensely. Just as he was about to turn back for a look, he heard Ha Chiron's hearty laughter. I'm just joking with you. I can't believe you took it seriously. Go Chan was speechless, but Ha Chiron's voice came again. Thanks to you, I could enter this place so easily. Hearing this, Go Chan felt bitter inside. It was not his intention. Although he was reluctant, he still had to keep agreeing. I've been wanting to avenge my senior brother too. It's like I've got a whole army by my side now that you're here. Upon hearing this, Ha Chiron showed a satisfied expression. I knew it. As long as one is a member of the Flying Death School, even if they leave the organization, they are still very trustworthy. However, as soon as the words fell, a chill flashed in Ha Chiron's eyes. I trusted you. Just then, puff puff sounds rang out as the keen benevolence needles once again accurately pierced into Go Chan's acupoints. Go Chan looked at her, puzzled, not understanding what was happening. Ha Chiron giggled as she retrieved the needle on her right hand. Let's stop here. Did you really think I would believe those foolish excuses? Ha Chiron coldly walked towards Go Chan. Your predecessor is dead, but you remain so low-key. It seems you've changed whom you are loyal to. It's funny to watch you act like you've been waiting for a chance to kill that bastard when you're basically forced into retirement because of your uselessness. Go Chan is stunned, realizing that she had never believed him from the start. As she spoke, Ha Chiron pulled out the short sword and said contemptuously, to avenge your predecessor, you killed the third son you served, and now you've chosen to commit suicide. That's your ending. As soon as the words were spoken, Ha Chiron's sword stabbed viciously towards Go Chan's throat. However, just at the critical moment, with a snap, a hand reached in through the window, a powerful suction suddenly emerged, and Ha Chiron's short sword flew out of her hand. This ability to retrieve objects through the air astonished Ha Chiron, leaving her wide-eyed and flabbergasted. Just as she was taken aback, the door was kicked open, and the third son, Mok Jae-won, appeared at the doorway. Seeing this, Go Chan's tears immediately started flowing down his cheeks. This was the first time he thought this devilish man looked so cool. Jong gave him a smile. Go Chan, were you in danger just now? Ha Chiron, sensing that the situation was turning dire, she suddenly grabbed Go Chan by the collar, pulling him in front of her. The panicked Go Chan tried to break free, but given the disparity in strength, his resistance was futile. Meanwhile, Ha Chiron pressed the short sword against Go Chan's neck, threatening Mok Jae-won, if you don't want to see your guard die, you better not make any sudden moves. Hearing Ha Chiron's words, Go Chan broke out in a cold sweat. Although he knew Ha Chiron had previously investigated Mok Jae-won, the Mok Jae-won of now was no longer the old third son. She definitely didn't know that Jong before her never valued others' lives. He was thoroughly a devil. On his part, Jong indeed raised the weapon. Just when Go Chan thought Jong was going to charge at Ha Chiron, the weapon was harshly thrust into the floor. Go Chan felt confused. Alright, now let Go Chan go. Hearing this, Go Chan was completely stunned. Then, Jong's voice rang out again. If you let go of Go Chan, I will let you leave. Hearing Mok Jae-won's words, Ha Chiron's eyebrows lifted. His attitude, as if giving alms, annoyed her, but it also indirectly proved that he cared about Go Chan. It seems you really cherish your guard. I just think it would be a pity to lose him, so you better leave before I change my mind. Hearing this, Go Chan thought to himself, that demon is trying to save me? However, Ha Chiron escalated the situation. If you kneel and beg me, maybe I will agree. Upon these words, the atmosphere immediately tensed. Jong sighed resignedly and slowly began to bend down. Seeing this, not only Go Chan, but even Ha Chiron was immensely shocked. For the sake of a mere guard, he was actually preparing to kneel. However, things did not develop as they imagined. The next second, a cold glint flashed in Jong's eyes. He suddenly turned swiftly, pulling up the weapon from the ground and charged toward Ha Chiron. This action provoked wild laughter from Ha Chiron. I knew you couldn't possibly kneel and beg for his sake. However, as she spoke, she was surprised to find that Jong's gaze was not on her. He glanced sideways slightly. At the same time, a creepy scene unfolded. Ha Chiron felt a terrifying chill surge through her, as if her entire body had plunged into a pool of blood. Countless tentacles, like the claws of demons from hell, reached towards Ha Chiron's body. body, and clearly, something was approaching her from behind. Sensing this ominous presence, Hachiran instinctively dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding Blue Spirit's strike. In that instant, she quickly pulled on Go-chan's collar to retreat while positioning her short sword in front of her, confused since there is nothing in front of her. Blue Spirit had actually anticipated this outcome. After all, a top expert could sense the slightest aura of a ghost spirit, so she would instinctively dodge as soon as Blue Spirit approached. However, Jong was no pushover. During the moment Hachiran was distracted, he swiftly threw his weapon, accurately knocking the short sword from her hand. Taking advantage of the moment, Hachiran released Go-chan. Jong quickly moved, smoothly pulling out keen benevolence needles from Go-chan's body. Everything happened so fast, Hachiran hadn't anticipated it. Although she didn't know what technique the opponent had just used, she had sharply felt that strange energy. So, facing Jong's rapidly approaching figure, she was not afraid. In her eyes, the person before her was too weak, and she only needed to interrupt him before he could cast another spell to easily resolve the fight. Moreover, aside from these, Hachiran still had her last ace up her sleeve. Her figure moved swiftly, her hand quietly reaching towards the weapon at her waist. Seeing this, Go-chan immediately felt uneasy. That was the Flying Death School's most formidable hidden weapon, the Extreme Execution Needle. At this moment, Jong was completely unaware of the looming danger. Although it could only be used once each time, it had a unique function that could seal the target's chi. He had planned to perform the ritual of attachment again, drawing the weapon back to his hand, but suddenly found he couldn't muster any chi. Nearby, Blue Spirit also sensed something was wrong, but she couldn't intervene in time. Jong is frozen in place. Blue Spirit cried out in alarm as the Extreme Execution Needle darted towards Jong's heart. Hey, Chiron shouted. Die. Just then, a figure startlingly blocked in front of Jong. Go-chan came forward. He shielded Jong with his body. Instantly, everyone showed a shocked expression. The Extreme Execution Needle inevitably pierced into Go-chan, and seeing this, Jong was utterly enraged. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he shouted, Blue Spirit. A creepy shadow swiftly approached Hachiran, sensing the danger, quickly shot 3 flying needles at Jong's head. However, Jong made no move to dodge. Instead, a suction force appeared in his palm, and the flying needles were forcefully embedded in his hand. Seeing this, Hachiran was shocked. Keen Benevolence needles had unexpectedly changed their flight path. However, just as she was utterly astonished, dozens of tentacles stretched out, tightly entwining her body. Hachiran was instantly thrown into panic. She wanted to escape, but no matter how she struggled, it was futile. Then a creepy voice resounded. You should have died when I was being nice. Meanwhile, a nauseating scent of blood emerged, and everything around turned into a sea of blood. Faced with the strangest situation she had ever encountered, Hachiran fell into complete despair. Watching the young girl's pain and fear before him, Jong looked at her coldly. Jong shook his head. I clearly gave you a chance, but you chose to give it up. As soon as the words fell, Hachiran's consciousness was completely engulfed by endless fear. Seeing this, Jong's face remained impassive. He slowly walked over to Go-chan. He wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. At that moment, Go-chan slowly spoke. It's a pity. I won't be able to serve the young master anymore. To this, Jong asked in confusion, why would you do this? Protecting the young master is my duty. I just did what I had to do. Moreover, the young master has already sacrificed so much to save me. I couldn't just betray you. Hearing this, Jong fell silent. However, Go-chan continued to mutter laboriously, you are the only person who has cared about me in my life, so I have no regrets. After saying this, Go-chan slowly closed his eyes. But just then, a woman's voice arose. Is he really dead? The speaker was Hachiran, who was supposed to be dead, but Jong knew that this Hachiran was not the real her. It seems you have completely consumed her, Jong said coldly. Hearing this, the woman gave a slight smile. Yes, a young body is indeed delightful. It wasn't a waste of my effort. However, no sooner had she spoken than Hachiran's body began to show bulging veins. Blue Spirit was instantly enraged. Damn, it looks like this body won't last much longer. But quickly, Blue Spirit's tone shifted, and she glanced at Go-chan on the ground with a sly smile. Didn't expect him to die just like that, but he seems to have no regrets, so it looks like he won't become a vengeful spirit. Hearing this, Jong kept his gaze fixed on Go-chan, his mouth twitching as he murmured, according to the 6-person spirit summoning technique, vengeful spirits are born from strong resentment, but if a person dies in a place filled with malice and death chi, they can also be influenced to arise. Blue Spirit was shocked by this statement, seeming to guess what was coming. At that moment, Jong's hand movements changed continuously. The death chi around him began to spread, and then flowed into Go-chan's body through his palms. Gradually, Go-chan's soul emerged as streaks of light from his body, eventually condensing into a faint orb of light. At that moment, a red line swiftly connected to the orb. This scene made Blue Spirit's eyes widen. He had actually used the death chi to extract Go-chan's soul and establish a connection with it. However, Go-chan's soul is still too weak. If we don't find a vessel quickly, it will dissipate completely. But where can we find a body in such a short time? Blue Spirit said anxiously. Jong did not respond, just looked coldly at Blue Spirit. Seeing Jong's expression, Blue Spirit felt uneasy, realizing that something bad was about about to happen. At this moment, Go Chan's soul felt as if it had plunged into a vast ocean. He could feel his consciousness gradually fading, but he had no complaints. He had no regrets in his life, and it was time for everything to end. But just then, a familiar voice suddenly rang out near his ear. When he violently opened his eyes, his consciousness was still intact. Sure enough, he saw that familiar figure again. He didn't understand what was happening, why he was still alive. Zhang's expression remained neutral, signaling Go-chan to calm down, then slowly explained, "In order to preserve your soul, I transferred the death chi to your body, so you have now become my familiar. However, your soul energy is very weak and could dissipate at any moment. I had no other choice." Go-chan was still confused, wanting to ask when his own voice startled him. Zhang continued, "There's only one usable body here, so I put you into that assassin's body." Hearing this, Go-chan completely lost his composure. He looked down at his chest that kept rising and falling. What on earth was going on? In the end, he had turned into a woman. Seeing his current appearance, Go-chan let out a cry of shock and kept pleading with Zhang to change him back, complaining that this woman's figure was simply too much. To this, Zhang just coldly continued to fix the door, completely ignoring him. "If I pull you out, you would disappear immediately. Moreover, even if I did that, this female assassin's body has already become an empty shell." Go-chan's mind was in total disarray, unsure of what to do. Putting aside the fact that he had turned into a woman, if the Flying Death School found out their master had died here, there would indeed be no good days ahead. Just as he was feeling utterly distressed, a ghostly voice came from behind. "You should be thankful to have received this body. I can't even possess it yet." Hearing the voice, Go-chan turned his head and was so startled by Blue Spirit's figure that he shouted out loud. Although Go-chan didn't know who the other was, even now that he had become a spirit, he could clearly feel the huge gap between them. Just one look gave him the illusion of being in a sea of blood. At that moment, he couldn't help but look at Zhang beside him, wondering if he had always been in the company of such beings. Go-chan was becoming increasingly puzzled by this young man. Seeing Go-chan's ghostly expression, Blue Spirit comforted him. "Don't be sad. After all, you still have a body to use." However, Go-chan looked utterly dejected. "But I am a man." This really annoyed Blue Spirit. "Really? You get a bargain and still complain. Why are you still thinking like a mortal? Shouldn't you be happy that you've gone from being second-rate to master level?" As soon as these words fell, Zhang's voice came. "Why not give it a try?" With that, he harshly kicked at Go-chan's head. Without thinking, purely on instinct, Go-chan bent down and dodged it. Feeling the robust internal force within him, Go-chan only then realized, "This is what it feels like to be at a master level. Are you satisfied now?" Blue Spirit asked. Go-chan still looked aggrieved. "But I am still a man." Blue Spirit listened and chuckled meaningfully. "Isn't that just perfect? When no one is around, you can touch all you want." Go-chan's face turned bright red. He was a gentleman. How could he possibly do such a thing? Seeing Go-chan's righteous indignation, Zhang assured him, "If I have the chance in the future, I will definitely find you a suitable body again." Just then, urgent knocking suddenly came from outside the door. The inner chamber's guard came panting. "The hallmaster has awakened." Hearing this, everyone was shocked. The scene shifts to the outside of Mock Sword Manor, where a man in a blue Taoist robe stands not far away. He pointed towards a certain direction in the sky, then closed his eyes and muttered. Soon, he furrowed his brow and opened his eyes. "Just now, through a secret method, I discovered that the entire villa seems to be enveloped in a red haze of blood chi. It's a kind of ghost realm barrier that immediately captures anyone who approaches." Thinking of this, Gu turned his head to look at the villa entrance. At this time, a drunken young man was being helped into the villa by two courtesans. He was Mok Yango, the eldest son of Mock Sword Manor. Seeing the newcomer, the guard hurriedly approached to report, "Eldest young master, the master has awakened." The other sons had already been notified to go to the master's room, not far away. Hearing this news, Gu's expression tightened. This was his chance to act, thinking, he'll have to go to the hallmaster, so if I separate that azure ghost spirit from him using my familiar, Gu Diao, I can kill him when he's all alone. Meanwhile, hearing that the master has awakened, Zhang is momentarily stunned, but he still puts on a relieved expression. "That's great, father has finally woken up." Inside, however, Zhang breaks out in a cold sweat. He has always felt that competing for the position of heir would be troublesome, so he had planned to leave here after learning the basic techniques. But unexpectedly, the master woke up at this time, which now complicates his ability to leave smoothly. The guard tells him that the master has summoned everyone to the bedroom to make an announcement. Zhang knows that there's no way to delay meeting the master any longer. Thus, he follows the guard to head towards the bedroom, with Go-chan subconsciously following behind. Fortunately, Zhang turns to him and says, "Guard Go-che Rin, I'll leave you to clean the mess." Hearing this name, Go-chan shudders. He suddenly remembers that his own body hasn't been dealt with yet, and he can only nod silently. Blue Spirit naturally follows Zhang. After they leave, Go-chan becomes troubled again, not expecting that in the end, he would have to deal with his own body. However, his face soon turns red. He looks down at his heaving chest. Having never experienced this weight as a man, his feelings strangely begin to shift. Thinking about Ha-Charon's enchanting figure, Go-chan falls into complex emotions. She is indeed beautiful, and suddenly Go-chan's mood becomes somewhat heavy. He starts looking around to make sure no one is nearby. He has died and come back to life, and is now a woman. So, he stealthily stealthily closes the door, thinking about checking his body while no one is around. But just as he is about to take off his clothes, Blue Spirit's figure silently passes through the window. Instantly, Go-chan freezes like an ice sculpture, but Blue Spirit just mutters something and then disappears again. Seeing this, Go-chan wishes he could just bury himself. I was just trying to change into something more comfortable to move in, he says helplessly to himself. Meanwhile, Blue Spirit has already returned to Jong's side. On their way to the hall, Jong unexpectedly encounters Mok Yu-chan. Compared to 4 days ago, Mok Yu-chan's complexion appears somewhat darkened. Although he hasn't gone mad from disrupted chi, the darkening of his complexion indicates he hasn't been having a good time. Upon seeing Jong, Mok Yu-chan walks over angrily, quietly demanding if Jong had tried the contents of the secret manual. Jong feigns ignorance, deliberately raising his voice. Are you talking about the secret manual? He purposely raises his voice, startling Mok Yu-chan so much that his anger is immediately halved. Don't speak so loudly, just answer my question. Was there any problem? Jong answered, faking innocent. Hearing this, Mok Yu-chan narrows his eyes, staring intensely at Jong. He thinks to himself, it's impossible he hasn't practiced in advance. Even if not for the sake of competing for the master's position, any martial artist, out of curiosity, would surely practice such peerless martial arts. Why are you unharmed then? Mok Yu-chan finally can't help but ask. If this guy had recited the correct secret manual, then the problem must be with himself. Mok Yu-chan has to admit that perhaps he hasn't fully grasped the true essence of the secret manual. This left Blue Spirit speechless. Indeed, this guy was as wicked as ever. However, just then, Blue Spirit suddenly sensed something. She looked up towards a certain direction, showing a curious expression. Jong looked at her in surprise, and Blue Spirit whispered, seems like a bug has sneaked in. I wonder who gave him the guts to step into my territory without any hesitation. Looks like I need to entertain him properly. Hearing this, Jong immediately understood that someone from the Phoenix Pavilion had arrived. I'll be leaving, Blue Spirit announces as she passes through the wall. Then Jong and Mok Yu-chan proceed to go to the master's room. The scene switches to the master's room, where Mok Yango and Mok Yunpyeong had already arrived ahead of time, and now the family's lineage was all gathered here. Seeing Jong and Mok Yu-chan arrive together, Mok Yunpyeong felt quite puzzled. When had their relationship become so good? At this moment, although Mok Yango had used his chi to push back some of the drunkenness, his body still reeked of alcohol. Lady Suk was busy wiping him down, but her heart was already filled with unease. This old man waking up and gathering his sons around him was surely to announce the issue of the year. This is bad, thought the lady anxiously. Her own son, Mok Yango, who only knew indulgence in pleasures, had the least chance of becoming the heir. So, no matter whom the master chose as his successor, the situation would be very unfavorable for her and Mok Yango. A moment later, the four stood side by side in front of the master's bedroom. Although each displayed a nervous demeanor, each harbored their own schemes. All four together greeted their father. Father, congratulations on your recovery. I offer my respectful greetings, they said simultaneously. Suddenly, a tremendous surge of chi burst from Mok Inden. Jong had heard from guard Cam that his martial arts had reached the pinnacle, but he had not felt it strongly until now. Standing before Mok Inden, he truly felt the intimidating power of this level. However, Jong also harbored a doubt. How could such a formidable master like Mok Inden have been cursed? Just as he pondered this for a moment, Jong's gaze was fixed on Mok Inden. Then, carefully thought, just what sort of being was able to send death to such a figure? The scene shifts to a residence of the Outer Guards near Mok Sword Manor, where the house was already strewn with corpses. In the darkness, two figures casually scanned the surroundings. A tall man pulled out an object the size of a finger from his pocket, on which was clearly written Mok Inden. This old man actually escaped from the curse. How did he manage it? The tall man asked in a low voice. The mysterious person beside him slowly spoke. I heard the cry of a gudiao earlier. It is a familiar of the witch doctors from Mount Luwu. Hearing this, the burly man laughed heartily. I thought so. Since a Taoist master intervened, it must be that person who saved Mok Inden from death. As he spoke, he turned his head to look at the barely alive guard on the ground, sneering. It seems I need to meet this master of Mok Sword Manor myself. With a flash of cold light, the guard also followed the fate of the others. Meanwhile, several figures appeared outside the house and quickly headed towards Mok Sword Manor. Back to the hallmaster's room. Compared to his brothers, Jong appeared exceptionally relaxed, showing no sign of tension. Mok Inden slowly began. Do you know why I called you all here? Everyone knew the answer but kept silent, afraid to respond. Only Jong casually said, isn't it to decide the matter of the successor? As soon as these words came out, everyone showed a look of surprise. They had not expected him to speak so directly. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere in the room instantly tensed. Everyone's feelings became complex. Mok Inden was also a bit surprised. Upon waking, he had learned of the events that had transpired during his illness from the head of the inner hall, especially hearing that the third son had saved him. At first, he thought this was either a coincidence or a setup by the third son, but from the performance just now, it seemed that the third son might have truly changed. Jong wasn't thinking much about it. He had no interest in the position of the master. He was relaxed merely to go along with the atmosphere of the scene. However, Mok Inden smiled meaningfully and then announced that the successor would be decided through a test. As the room fell into a brief silence, Jong suddenly spoke up. I do not plan to participate in the test. His words exploded like a bomb in the room, shocking everyone present. Everyone's expressions became incredibly animated. Mak Yunpyeong and Mak Yango looked at him with disbelief. Even the master asked in surprise, why do you not plan to participate in the test? It's because compared to my brothers, I have many shortcomings, so I don't think I qualify to be the heir. At this, Mak Yunpyeong smirked. Although he didn't know what the third son was plotting, if he was willing to step aside, it would not be a bad thing for him. Then, Mak Inden asked again, why do you think you are not qualified? Faced with the master's repeated questioning, Jong also felt surprised. As far as he knew, the master had always been very disappointed with the eldest and the third sons, so their failure in the test should not have been significant. Now the master's interest in his withdrawal seemed to suggest that an excuse was needed. Thinking this, Jong immediately responded, as the future master of Mock Sword Manor, one must possess outstanding abilities in both martial arts and wisdom. I lack in both aspects, so I give up my eligibility to become the master. Upon hearing this, Mak Inden burst out laughing, but as he laughed, his gaze gradually became sharp, looking at Jong, thinking, it seems he really has changed. He indeed didn't save me for the position of the master. Seeing a third son who has no desire for recognition start to reflect on himself and give up the position of the master for the prosperity of Mock Sword Manor is indeed gratifying. Mak Inden felt very reassured. You are fully qualified to be the heir. As he spoke, the master slowly removed his clothes. However, when everyone saw the master's severed right arm, all were shocked, and Jong's complexion changed drastically. At this moment inside Mock Sword Manor, Mak Inden was telling his sons about how Mak Jaewoon had saved him. Everyone was uneasy, having heard about an accident a few days ago but unaware that the master's arm had been chopped off, and they broke out in cold sweat. Different from them, at this moment, Jong was plunged into deep memories. Scenes of his grandfather's death surfaced in his mind, and he vividly remembered the scar-like mark on his grandfather's body. After he was captured, he too was marked with the same symbol. This was the mark he had desperately sought, and now it appeared on Mak Inden. I finally found you. To find the murderer of his grandfather, Jong transformed into the murderous scythe ghost. However, after being captured, a scar-like mark was carved on his body. Fortunately surviving, he changed his identity and became the third son of Mock Sword Manor. Now, seeing the same mark on Mak Inden's waist, he smiled. He had not expected to find the very thing he had been searching for all this time here. As he pondered his next move, his brow suddenly furrowed, and his eyes involuntarily drifted towards the door. Mak Inden, seeing this, felt surprised and was about to ask what was happening when his gaze also sharpened, and he abruptly stood up from his seat, startling the others. At that moment, faint noises came from outside, and a guard burst through the door. Not good, master. We're under attack. The scene shifts to numerous assassins battling with the guards of Mock Sword Manor. Faced with powerful enemies, they could only struggle desperately, placing all their hopes on the master arriving in time. However, under the leadership of the leading man, wherever they went, corpses were left in their wake. At this time, he walked unhurriedly to the front gate of Mock Sword Manor, his formidable chi bursting forth from him. With a swing of his sword, the great gate was instantly blasted into dust. This sight chilled the guards on sight, but they had no time for surprise as the attackers had already begun their assault. Elsewhere, a figure was hidden in a corner watching all this. The previously infiltrating Grandmaster Gu. He was nervously chanting an invisibility spell. During the chant, no one could detect his presence, but the downside was he couldn't move and had to keep chanting. He avoided the assassin's sight with his invisibility spell, but this put him in an awkward position. His body was soaked with sweat as he continuously surveyed his surroundings, staying alert. His Gu Diao was being used to divert Blue Spirit's attention, and in this situation, there was no way he could kill Mak Jaewoon. At this moment, he began to regret his actions. However, as long as he could hold out until these people left, at least he wouldn't be caught. However, just then, the appearance of a mysterious figure filled him with dread. This person emitted an unusual aura. Grandmaster Gu could tell at a glance that this was a characteristic of someone who had long practiced sorcery. But what terrified him more was that the mysterious person kept forming various seals with his hands, apparently some sort of tracking spell. Someone capable of casting such a spell must be at least a master-level sorcerer. Just as Grandmaster Gu felt the situation was dire, he heard the mysterious person utter the word release, and the space around him began to distort, and his invisibility spell was forcefully broken. In the next second, the mysterious person appeared before him, grabbing his throat. You are the one who lifted the curse from Mak Inden, aren't you? Hearing this, Grandmaster Gu panicked. Perhaps there's been some misunderstanding, but the mysterious person wasn't interested in listening to explanations. Daring to interfere with the actions of the underworld assassin pavilion, you should be prepared to die. With that, he tightened his grip, and blood blisters surged on Grandmaster Gu's head, which burst in the next second. Seeing the situation, the leading man quickly guessed his intentions. It seems the master of that Gu Diao has been dealt with by you. We need to hurry and find that item. Hearing this, the mysterious person pulled out another tracking charm. It's time to retrieve our treasure from Mak Inden. At this moment, the sound of clashing weapons words echoed throughout Mocksword Manor, turning what was just a tranquil courtyard into a battlefield. Mock Inden, not adept with his left hand, drew his long sword and shouted, "Who dares to breach Mocksword Manor? It seems you are prepared to die." Seeing the master who had been bedridden for a long time suddenly appear, the warriors cheered, boosting their morale instantly. Mock Inden bellowed, "Follow me." The warriors echoed his command, and Mock's brothers followed him closely. Not everyone was so motivated, however. At that moment, Zhang was merely following behind superficially, taking advantage of the chaos as everyone fought the attackers. He quietly turned away, hiding in a less crowded area. Although unclear about what was happening, the lives and deaths here had nothing to do with him. He saw no reason to defend this place. He was only concerned about one thing, the scar-like mark. He had planned to leave after figuring things out, but the sudden crisis forced him to leave earlier. After all, in such turmoil, the disappearance of one or two people wouldn't be strange. However, just as he turned around, a strange feeling surged through him. At that moment, streams of dark energy began gathering into his palms. Just as he was distracted, an assassin launched a surprise attack on him. Yet, Zhang merely raised his hand lightly to block the attack, his palm swiftly rotating, and the next second it seamlessly entered the assassin's body. As the assassin's life faded, a dark energy emanated from his body. Just as I thought, this dark energy is indeed the death chi of a deceased person. Subsequently, Zhang closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and quickly felt the death chi around him increase rapidly. Apparently, many had died in a short time. Such an opportunity was rare, so he couldn't afford to waste it. However, with masked individuals everywhere, trying to absorb death chi here could be dangerous. Just then, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. It was Go-chan, occupying the body of Ha-Chiron. Just now, he had been attacked by a group while changing clothes, and after dealing with them, he hurriedly found Zhang. Zhang said with a smile, "You've come at the right time. I need you to protect me for a while." Saying this, he sat down cross-legged and began using a breathing technique to absorb the swirling death chi. Seeing this, Go-chan was speechless. This guy's got some nerve, trying to cultivate chi on a battlefield. Isn't that akin to courting death? But quickly, he seemed to understand Zhang's intention. Zhang wasn't cultivating chi, but absorbing death chi. Although Go-chan was a ghost spirit occupying Ha-Chiron's body, he could clearly see the death chi from all around being absorbed into Zhang's body. At this moment, Zhang felt the death chi continuously filling him, produced by dozens of deceased individuals. Not only was it dense, but it was also extremely pure, containing the dark emotions of everyone's moment of death. Compared to the death chi absorbed before, the quantity this time was at least 3 times more, far exceeding Zhang's expectations. However, unbeknownst to him, as he focused on his breathing technique, Go-chan was under immense stress. With more and more masked individuals converging, even he, with his peak-level strength, was caught in a tough fight. At that moment, Go-chan suddenly wished that the terrifying ghost woman would come to support him. Just then, a figure appeared. It was the head of the outer hall, Sang Wongbik. Seeing the figure, Go-chan finally breathed a sigh of relief. He had learned from Zhang that Sang Wongbik also had a ghost spirit within him. He excitedly called out Demon Monk, but after shouting for a while, Sang Wongbik remained unresponsive. Just when Go-chan was puzzled, a blood shadow flashed, and Sang Wongbik's body was brutally split in half. At the same time, a scarred man slowly emerged, turning his gaze toward the cultivating Mok Jiangwon with interest. What an interesting kid, daring to cultivate right under the enemy's nose. Seeing the man at that moment, Go-chan knew trouble was brewing. The man's strength was beyond his imagination, and even he, at peak level, couldn't help but tremble. The scarred man turned his gaze to Zhang, intrigued. The outside is already a river of blood, yet this kid is still engrossed in his cultivation. How interesting. Saying that, he strode towards Zhang, closing the distance with each step he took. Seeing this scene, Go-chan was so frightened that he hurriedly called Zhang's name, but at this moment, Zhang was already lost in a state of self-forgetfulness. The death chi around him surged into his body like a tidal wave, making it nearly impossible to wake him at this time. Moreover, forcibly interrupting him could likely cause him to go into a frenzy. Realizing this, Go-chan trembled inwardly, but quickly gathered his spirits. Faced with the monster before him, he felt somewhat helpless, yet he could not just sit by and wait for death. Go-chan steeled his heart, knowing he couldn't stop the opponent, but even if it meant his flesh was destroyed, he would fight to buy more time for the young master. The next second, he leapt up, instantly appearing above the man's head, moving with the speed of lightning. At that moment, the unique martial skill Flying Assassin Technique Third Form, Silent Defeat, instinctively unfolded in him. However, the man remained unmoved, not even assuming a defensive posture, and said lightly, "You are indeed fast, but still too slow." Before the words fell, a sharp sword shadow appeared out of thin air, swiftly slashing towards him. Go-chan reacted in time, swiftly flipping his body, and his severed hair flew about. A moment later and his body would have been split in two. The battle was not over yet. Go-chan took advantage of the man's momentary recovery to shoot 3 spirit knife flying needles at him. In an instant, his figure appeared in front of Go-chan, casually flicking, sending Go-chan flying backward like a cannonball. This was the difference in strength. That man was too powerful, with just one strike putting Go-chan on the verge of death. He shakily stood up, trying to prevent the man from getting closer to Mok Jae-won, but his body could no longer exert any strength properly. At that moment, the man ominously warned, "If you interfere with me again, you're dead." With that, he raised his hand toward Jong's head. However, as his hand was about to touch Jong, the man clenched his teeth, swung his massive blade, and slashed towards Jong. Just then, with a clang, a figure blocked the man's sword. It was the master of Mok Sword Manor, Mok Inden. Immediately afterward, a fierce battle between the two erupted, the sound of sword and knife colliding resonating in the air. A battle between two masters caused a violent wind around them, but there was still a huge gap between them. After a fierce strike, Mok Inden was sent flying back several meters, and a stream of black blood flowed from his mouth. He had just awoken from his sickbed, and with his right hand gone, his strength was not even half of what it was at its peak. However, he still glanced at Mok Jae-won, who was meditating nearby, and seeing that he was unharmed, he turned his attention back to the man. Mok Inden questioned why the man attacked Mok Sword Manor. Hearing this, the man laughed heartily and then reached out his hand. "Manor Master Mok, I'll just say this once. If you don't want Mok Sword Manor to turn into ruins, you'd better hand over what you stole willingly." Hearing this, Mok Inden's expression instantly stiffened. "The treasure you stole from us." The scene shifts outside Mok Sword Manor, where Blue Spirit is lost in thought. She had thought the Gudiao had entered her territory to lure her out, but it unexpectedly died. This means that its master has lost his life at this moment. But no ordinary person could kill a master of sorcery that quickly, which means a very dangerous presence must have emerged in the villa. Soon after, inside Mok Sword Manor, where the fire had already died down, everyone gathered in the central square. At that moment, Jong finally opened his eyes, saw the wreckage around him, and was confused. He turned his head to the central square. The villa's guards knelt on the ground, already without the power to resist, while the master, Mok Inden, was facing off against that burly man, with very different expressions on their faces. To this, Jong seemed indifferent. No wonder the death chi is thinning. It seems the fight is over. What a pity. Thinking this, he slowly walked over to Go-chan and asked in a low voice, "What's going on?" Seeing that Jong had finally awakened, Go-chan looked embarrassed and unsure of how to explain, so he recounted what had happened. Originally, when Mok Inden confronted the man at the first moment, he guessed the man's identity. "It seems you are from the Heaven-Earth Association, right?" Hearing this, the man just chuckled. Mok Inden sighed deeply and then announced his surrender to the man, letting all the guards give up resistance. "I will return that thing to you, but as a condition, I hope you can spare Mok Sword Manor." Hearing this, the man showed a hint of regret. "It seems I spoke too soon. It would have been good to see you struggle a bit more." With that, the man laughed heartily and then spoke, "I swear on my honor as one of the 5 kings of the Heaven-Earth Association, the King of Brilliance Sun Yun, your request is granted." Go-chan, hearing the names Heaven-Earth Association and Sun Yun, widened his eyes. Hearing this, Jong asked Go-chan to explain further what the Heaven-Earth Association is. "It is a very dangerous organization," Go-chan continued. "The Heaven-Earth Association, one of the 3 major powers currently dividing the martial arts world in Zhongyuan's Murim, venerates strength and aims to unify the martial arts world. They had once caused rivers of blood in the martial world. Thus, the name Heaven-Earth Association strikes fear in the martial arts community." Regarding Mok Sword Manor, although it is definitely a large clan, compared to Heaven-Earth Association, it is merely a minor player. And that man over there is one of the 5 great kings of the Heaven-Earth Association, the King of Brilliance, Sun Yun. His strength and the power he wielded were enough to terrify countless people. If a real fight were to break out, Mok Sword Manor would likely face annihilation. In the end, the manor master, Mok Inden, had no choice but to hand over the treasure. However, the treasure they are after is stored in the secret chamber beneath the medicinal hall. Indeed, they were searching for that very book of human skin. When hearing that the item Heaven-Earth Association was looking for was in the secret chamber beneath the medicinal hall, Jong quickly guessed what they wanted. They were indeed looking for the book of human skin. At this time, although Go-chan was unclear about the specific item they were after, he suspected it was likely on Jong. Therefore, once Jong awoke, he continuously warned him to be cautious of Heaven-Earth Association and to avoid stirring up trouble. However, in the next second, he saw Jong walking straight towards Mok Inden, nearly causing Go-chan's soul to fly out of fright. At this moment, Mok Inden also noticed that Jong had awoken. Mok Inden first asked Jong if he was injured and admonished him not to take such risks again, then asked him to rest aside. However, Jong directly asked, "How did you get the scar on your body?" Mok Inden initially thought that the third son was concerned about him, but after thinking it over, he realized Jong hadn't sustained any external injuries, which puzzled him. Jong continued to press, "Who caused that scar on your waist?" Hearing Mok Jae-won's question, Mok Inden frowned. Given the current situation, why would Jong suddenly ask about this? Just then, the masked men who had gone to retrieve the treasure from the medicinal hall's basement returned. They knelt before Sun Yun, respectfully presenting the wooden box that originally contained the book of human skin. Although the seal charms on the surface of the box were gone, it appeared intact. Sun Yun was overjoyed at the sight, and Mok Inden seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. "Now is not the time to discuss this. I will tell you later." However, Jong insisted, "You must tell me now." Mok Inden didn't answer, just silently watched as Sun Yun slowly opened the treasure box. box. At this moment, Sun Yun was immersed in the joy of having recovered the treasure, unaware of the mischievous smile that had appeared on Zhang's face. If you don't speak up, there could be big trouble, Zhang whispered quietly. Mok Inden looked at Zhang puzzledly, but what Zhang said next made him visibly shocked. What they want isn't underneath the medicinal hall. At this moment, as Sun Yun saw the contents of the box, his face suddenly changed. A tremendous internal force burst from him, causing the air around to buzz. He then looked at Mok Inden with a murderous gaze, a moment that struck fear into the hearts of the Mok family. However, at this moment, Lady Suk sneered. She thought, it seems they didn't find what they were looking for, and since Mok Jiangwon has obtained a secret manual of Mok Sword Manor, that thing is probably on him. She quietly calculated that if she could expose this, she could use these people to eliminate Mok Jiangwon. However, the next developments shattered her illusions. At this moment, Sun Yun pulled a pair of earrings from the box. These earrings, made of gold, silver, and jade, were clearly valuable and could only be worn by someone of high status. Indeed, they were the very earrings that Mok Inden had personally given to his wife on their anniversary. The lady felt a sense of doom and turned her fierce gaze towards Mok Jiangwon. You dare. Before she could finish, Zhang smirked devilishly and loudly said, aren't these earrings the lady's most cherished items? As soon as these words came out, Mok Inden was shocked, and the lady was utterly flustered. Mok Inden, seeing this, tried to stop Zhang from continuing, but Zhang kept shouting, why are you playing dumb, madam? Madam, under these circumstances, are you still going to pretend you don't know? I know for sure that those are yours. Sun Yun sneered coldly and crushed the earrings in his hand. You have chosen to bring on your own downfall. Sun Yun then glared at the trembling lady. At this moment, Lady Suk was panicked and staggered back a few steps, quickly explaining, sir, this must be a misunderstanding. Think about it. If I had stolen something, why would I put my own jewelry in there? This must be someone else's setup. But Sun Yun didn't listen to her explanation, lifting his huge sword and swinging it towards Lady Suk's head. Just then, Mok Inden used all his strength to block the sword with his own, only to hear a clang as his treasured sword was bent and deformed by the strike, and he himself was flung away by the immense force. At this moment, looking at Mok Inden lying on the ground, Sun Yun coldly said, since none of you know where that item is, it means I won't lose anything from killing you. Saying this, Sun Yun approached the kneeling Mok guards and scoffed, not only did you steal the treasure of the Heaven-Earth Association, but you also dared to mock us. With that, he smashed the kneeling guard in front with his sword. This is absolutely intolerable. Seeing this, Zhang whispered to Mok Inden, can you tell me now? Mok Inden responded, didn't I say I would definitely tell you later? Zhang coldly smiled, that's not how you negotiate. At this moment, Sun Yun had started a killing spree, cutting down the guards one by one. Do you intend to let everyone here die? Mok Inden shouted. Zhang coldly said, you're making me repeat myself. I guess you'll tell me once the situation is worse. However, just then, a voice suddenly said, sir, I have something to report. The speaker was Lady Suk's personal guard, Hoan. She pointed towards Mok Yunpyeong and Mok Yuchun, slowly saying, as the lady of the master, if something happens to her, it would jeopardize the position of her eldest son, and these people could benefit from it, even taking over the master's position. They must be the culprits. Instantly, everyone's gaze shifted to Mok Yunpyeong and others. However, Hoang's next words shocked them even more. The place where the treasure was stored also contained the secret manual of Mok Sword Manor. They must have taken the scriptures and then stolen the treasure. Hearing this, Zhang secretly smiled, as all this was part of his plan. Previously, he had given the scriptures to Mok Yunpyeong and Mok Yuchun precisely for this moment. Hoang's accusation was also part of his arrangement, as the demon monk had long possessed Hoang. Mok Yunpyeong, panicked, shouted, what are you talking about? Mok Yuchun also vehemently denied it, claiming he would never do such a thing. However, Zhang remained silently on the side. Their panic successfully caught Sun Yun's attention, and he coldly said, the ones who just shouted in protest, drag them away and skin them. Hearing this, Mok Inden finally realized the severity of the situation. Turning to look at Zhang, who seemed just to be enjoying the show, shaking all over, he hysterically said, the person who put that scar on me is Phantom Sword from the 6 heavens and 8 stars. Are you satisfied now? Hearing this name, Zhang smiled faintly, finally having a lead on that person. But just then, Zhang's expression changed abruptly as a bell rang through the entire villa, and the demon monk possessing Hoang let out a painful scream. At the same time, the mysterious sorcerer slowly appeared. Seeing his figure, Zhang had only one thought, this person is extremely dangerous. Zhang's secret was about to be revealed. As the bell continued to ring, a sorcerer wearing a hat and holding a staff slowly appeared, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Sun Yun softly called out, Shaman Cho. Seeing this figure, Zhang also deeply felt the danger. However, before he could react, Shaman Cho murmured, who is causing trouble here? I shall exorcise you. He then waved his staff rapidly, formed a seal with his left hand, and chanted, sending an invisible energy spreading around. As the energy touched Hoang, she clutched her head in agony, her neck veins bulging out, emitting a ghastly black air. Seeing this, everyone stepped back in fear. At that moment, although Go-chan did not suffer as Hoang did, his chest also felt uncomfortable. As the energy wave reached him, he quickly circulated his chi, barely preventing his soul from being stripped ripped from his body. As the demon monk was forcibly extracted, Shaman Cho accelerated his movements, determined to completely destroy the demon monk. Just then, a flying sword shot towards Shaman Cho, interrupting his spellcasting. Simultaneously, a masked person appeared rapidly, blocking the deadly strike for Shaman Cho. The person who threw the sword was Zhang. Despicable and shameless. How dare you attack by surprise? The masked person shouted angrily, then prepared to attack Zhang. However, Shaman Cho stopped him, frowning deeply and staring at Zhang, asking, "Can you also see spirits?" As soon as he said this, the surrounding people became restless. At this moment, Zhang tensed up. At the moment he threw the flying sword, he hadn't thought much, just feeling that losing the demon monk was too regrettable. Now coming to his senses, he realized his actions had been somewhat reckless. "I don't know what you're talking about." However, this expression did not escape Shaman Cho's eyes. Shaman Cho muttered to himself, "You don't know? Then I guess I can get rid of this ominous thing." Demon monk screamed from pain. "The people here won't have any idea what we're doing." Zhang stayed silent. In this world, few can become martial arts geniuses, but even fewer can become shaman because these individuals are born with talents that are extraordinary. The best quality a shaman can be born with is the eyes. You can just train the other qualities, but you cannot train to see. In other words, if Zhang could indeed see spirits, it would mean he was naturally gifted to be a shaman. After hearing Shaman Cho's words, Zhang was secretly astonished but chose to remain silent. Seeing that Zhang was unwilling to admit it, Shaman Cho's expression changed. "Then let me ask you differently. Why did you try to stop me from destroying the spirit?" Shaman Cho then formed a hand seal and summoned the Four Peaks interlocking technique. For streams of light trapped the demon monk tightly, and the space within the formation began to shrink gradually. The demon monk looked around, unable to hide the panic on its face. Shaman Cho said, "Normally, spirits do not obey human commands, but it seems this spirit is following your will. So if you tell me the reason, I will let it go." Knowing he could no longer feign ignorance, Zhang also began to form hand seals, and the seals he made were exactly the same as those of Shaman Cho. Simultaneously, for streams of light also appeared around the demon monk, effectively blocking the shrinking column of light. This scene completely astonished Shaman Cho, even making him suspect Zhang was playing dumb. He was shocked and asked, "How do you know this spell?" Zhang countered, "Must one learn it to use it?" At that moment, Shaman Cho finally confirmed that Zhang was a true genius. To know the Four Peaks interlocking technique required one to be at least a master of the monthly phase to perform, but this young man had mimicked it after just a glance, even adjusting the spell's usage to function within another's formation. Even Shaman Cho himself could not achieve this. "It seems that eyes are not your only talent." Thinking this, Shaman Cho laughed heartily, then pointed with one hand and uttered a release word. The light around the demon monk instantly scattered. Then, Shaman Cho turned to King of Brilliance Sun Yun and said, "I don't care about the others, but I want this kid." Instantly, everyone's eyes widened, not understanding why the Heaven-Earth Association suddenly decided to spare Mok Jae-won. At this moment, Sun Yun coldly said, "What kind of nonsense is this now?" But in the end, he agreed to Shaman Cho's request. "Well, alright, but I'm killing everyone else," Sun Yun nonchalantly said. Upon hearing this, Mok Inden was the first to become unsettled, looking at Mok Jae-won nervously, wanting to say something but not knowing how to begin. Zhang sighed helplessly. Since he had already promised Mok Inden, he could only keep his word now. He walked up to Sun Yun and interrupted, "What you want is with me." Hearing this, Sun Yun stared furiously at Mok Jae-won. "If you deceive me again, no matter what Shaman Cho requests, I will definitely chop you into pieces." Facing Sun Yun's threat, Zhang was unafraid, simply pointing at his own head. "I'm sorry, but what you want has already been burned by me. However, I've memorized it all in my mind." Next to him, Mok Inden was even more terrified, originally thinking that if Mok Jae-won handed over the book, Mok Sword Manor could escape disaster. Unexpectedly, he mocked Sun Yun right to his face. After hearing this, Sun Yun did not get angry but laughed heartily. "Are all the so-called righteous sects a bunch of liars?" Zhang coldly retorted, "Why do you think I am lying?" Sun Yun's face changed dramatically, his eyes filled with murderous intent as he stared at Zhang. "Because what you said is impossible. That book cannot be burned, nor destroyed, as if something is protecting it. You haven't even seen what the treasure book looks like and dare to waste my time here. Since that's the case, I will grant your wish." Saying this, Sun Yun picked up a great sword and coldly said, "Remember not to lie in your next life." A fierce sword aura slashed towards Zhang's neck. However, the next second, a statement from Zhang abruptly stopped the sword in its tracks. The cover did not burn, but the content written in blood inside burns quite easily. Instantly, Sun Yun's face turned pale, unable to believe what Zhang said. This guy had actually seen the book. It's known within the inner circles of the Heaven-Earth Association that the human skin book is written in blood. Sun Yun's body began to tremble uncontrollably. However, at this moment, Sun Yun was still unwilling to believe what Zhang said. Because he had witnessed countless masters being devoured bit by the human skin book, no one could survive after seeing the book. Therefore, he suspected if the other party was not lying, then it must be good luck, having fortuitously survived. Sun Yun, his voice trembling, asked, "Did you really see that book?" Zhang calmly replied, "In this situation, why would I lie to you?" Sun Yun stared at Mok Jae-won Jaewoon, sweat soaking through his clothes. He couldn't detect any panic in Jong's eyes. If Jong was telling the truth, then he could finally report back to that person. But cautiously, he said, "Since you claim to have memorized the content in your mind, prove it to me, whether it's the mantras or techniques." Hearing Sun Yun's words, everyone at Mock Sword Manor looked at Mock Jaewoon with nervous eyes. Knowing he had taken the treasure, everyone felt a strong sense of betrayal, but under the current circumstances, only Mock Jaewoon could save them. At that moment, they all hoped he was telling the truth. At the same time, Jong also frowned deeply. Although he could deceive Mock Yuchan by altering some of the content as before, after all, the other party was the true owner of the book. If they knew the contents were incorrect, he might be killed because of it. If that's the case, then I'll pick out few sentences to see how he reacts, Jong thought to himself, preparing to speak. However, the next second, a surge of dark red blood rushed towards him. Looking up, he saw the blood spread like a tide across the entire plaza. Just then, a figure stood on the roof. It was Blue Spirit. Simultaneously, her voice echoed in his mind, "If you dare to reveal a single sentence from inside, you will die." The moment he saw Blue Spirit, Jong felt something was off. At this moment, she was completely different from usual, radiating towering rage, even giving Jong the illusion of being in a blood-soaked abyss, capable of devouring everything. This rage turned into a sea of blood, enveloping the entire Mock Sword Manor. In an instant, the entire world seemed frozen by the sea of blood, with Blue Spirit standing under the moonlight, glaring fiercely at the people of the Heaven-Earth Association. This was the first time Jong felt Blue Spirit's purest rage. Although he did not know why she hated these people so much, since Blue Spirit stopped him, she definitely did not want these people to know the contents of the book. Yet, if he didn't speak, he might be killed by Sun Yun. At that moment, Jong couldn't help but furrow his brow. Before he had avenged his grandfather, he did not want to die so easily. But what should he do now? Just then, he heard Blue Spirit's ethereal voice in his ear. Blue Spirit seemed to sense Jong's dilemma and whispered, "Just do as I told you." This made Jong even more puzzled. "Do you mean to tell them the wrong content? Sun Yun and the others should know the contents of the book. If I recite the wrong mantra, I will surely die." Blue Spirit responded indifferently after hearing this. "You just need to trust me. If you die, I won't be spared either." Hearing this, Jong could only sigh softly. On the other side, seeing that Jong had not spoken for a long time, Sun Yun was getting impatient. However, just then, Jong silently walked over to a masked man and snatched the long sword from his hand. The masked man was shocked, thinking Jong was planning to resist to the death, but instead, he just stood there silently, closing his eyes. Meanwhile, Blue Spirit removed the hairpin from her head and started demonstrating techniques with the pin as a sword. Her red garment fluttered like falling petals under the moonlight. Jong followed her movements, wielding the long sword and perfectly reproducing the techniques. As a mantra slipped from his lips, a sharp sword chi spread outward along the blade. The sword techniques demonstrated by Jong had no superfluous movements, and it was evident at a glance that it was a lunar vein sword technique. Not only the people of Mock Sword Manor, but even Sun Yun were stunned on the spot. Who would have thought that a third-rate warrior could execute such perfect sword moves? This not only proved the finesse of the sword techniques, but also showcased Jong's unparalleled martial arts talent. Sun Yun was overjoyed. According to his knowledge, that mantra was part of the lunar vein sword technique, lost for 100 years. However, just as he was about to burst into laughter, the masked people around started stirring, because Jong began reciting the second move's mantra. Sun Yun felt alarmed and quickly intervened. He knew that if the lunar vein sword technique were made public in this manner, it would cause great trouble. Seeing Sun Yun's tense expression, Jong slowly stopped his movements and smirked, confident that he had won his bet. In his heart, he knew the Human Skin Ancient Book contained no such mantras. Yet, Sun Yun's tense expression seemed to indicate that these were indeed the contents of the Human Skin Ancient Book. For a moment, he wasn't sure which it was, so he asked Sun Yun for confirmation. Sun Yun snapped out of it, realizing he had unconsciously shown a tense expression just now. This made things complicated. This sword technique should absolutely not be known to others, under normal circumstances. Therefore, the principle was that he should get the complete manual first, then eliminate the opposition. However, just as Sun Yun was contemplating killing him, Shaman Cho called out to him. Sun Yun understood Shaman Cho was interested in Jong, but he was interested as well. After all, Jong had achieved something that no one in the Heaven-Earth Association could, and with his unmatched martial arts talent, he was bound to reach the pinnacle of the martial world. Unfortunately, anyone who knew the contents of the Human Skin Book had to die. As he pondered how to handle the situation, Jong looked at him and then smirked without hesitation, drew the long sword across his own neck. "Are you mad?" This action shocked everyone present. Sun Yun quickly intervened, knocking the sword from Jong's hand in the nick of time. At that moment, only he knew that if he hadn't acted in time, the other would have surely ended his own life. Jong, clutching his profusely bleeding wound, scoffed. "It seems this technique is indeed very precious. Now I know how valuable this is. I wasn't planning on speaking so easily, so feel free to take me with you." Upon hearing this, the room fell silent. Everyone at Mock Sword Manor was stunned, unable to believe that Mock Jaewoon was actually offering to go with the enemy. Wasn't that akin to seeking death? But it seemed to be the best solution under the circumstances. Sun Yun, surprised to hear Zhang voluntarily offer to return with him to the Heaven-Earth Association, initially paused but then reasoned it was indeed the best approach. This young fellow could not be coerced or threatened into speaking. He had to be taken back to the Heaven-Earth Association for further action. What Sun Yun did not know was that Zhang's bold decision was precisely to use these people to escape from Mock Sword Manor. Soon after, the Heaven-Earth Association's forces left Mock Sword Manor in a grand procession. Inside the carriage, Zhang was bound hand and foot and transported to the Heaven-Earth Association's headquarters, along with another person who was also bound and taken away from Mock Sword Manor. Zhang was bound in the carriage with Mok Yuchan. Mok Yuchan sighed deeply, puzzled as to why he too was taken hostage. This all began 2 hours earlier. After Mok Jiangwon volunteered to leave with the Heaven-Earth Association, Sun Yun struck him, knocking him unconscious. However, Sun Yun didn't leave immediately but made 2 demands to Mok Inden. After all, since Mock Sword Manor had stolen from the Heaven-Earth Association, the matter couldn't be settled lightly. Sun Yun raised his hand and said, "If you refuse my demands, I can destroy Mock Sword Manor right now." The 2 conditions Sun Yun proposed were, first, Mock Sword Manor must close its doors for 10 years and not set foot in the martial world. Second, your heir will be taken as a hostage. Upon hearing this, the second condition made the Mok brothers nervous, especially Mok Yuchan, who was stunned as everyone pointed fingers at him. He didn't expect to be acknowledged as the successor this way. Thus, Mok Yuchan became the hostage. Now, though he wasn't knocked unconscious, he was bound tightly, unable to move, and even had his acupoints sealed to prevent him from using his internal strength. Compared to Mok Jiangwon beside him, his situation was slightly better. At this moment, Mok Yuchan was filled with regret. He had thought he would have a chance to shine once his father awoke, but now he found himself in such a tragic situation, uncertain of what would happen next. As he pondered, he suddenly heard a slight noise. However, other than him, there was only Mok Jiangwon in the carriage, and with Mok Jiangwon's acupoints sealed, he couldn't be the source of the noise. Who made it? Just as he was puzzled, the blindfold over his eyes was suddenly pulled off, and Mok Yuchan's eyes widened. It was Mok Jiangwon. "How did you?" Before he could finish, Zhang made a shush gesture. He calmly checked the outside of the carriage and said, "If you answer one thing for me, I'll help you untie these ropes." Mok Yuchan was curious about what he wanted to ask. Zhang looked at him expressionlessly and asked, "Who is the Phantom Sword of the 6 heavens and 8 stars?" Zhang's expression grew serious. "So, Phantom Sword might be in that place? It's just a rumor, but it's probably true," Mok Yuchan replied. Zhang fell silent. From Mok Yuchan's words, he learned about Phantom Sword, but the situation was complicated by the existence of that place. As he contemplated his next move, Blue Spirit's voice came to his ear. "Mortal, it's all taken care of outside." Hearing this, Zhang immediately knelt to untie Mok Yuchan. However, this action startled Mok Yuchan. "Are you planning to escape? If we do this, Mock Sword Manor will face retaliation again." Zhang looked indifferent. "What does that have to do with me? If you don't want to come with me, then stay here." Saying that, he struck Mok Yuchan's neck, knocking him unconscious. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't have been so easy to knock him out, but it was possible because Mok Yuchan's internal strength was sealed. Thinking this, Zhang walked out of the carriage without looking back. Outside, the scene was a mess, with Blue Spirit impatiently urging him to leave quickly. However, just as Zhang stepped out of the carriage, a strange feeling suddenly washed over him, lasting only a moment but leaving him stunned for a long time. At that moment, Blue Spirit's urging voice came again. Zhang stopped hesitating and jumped out of the carriage. He then moved his body and began to circulate death chi. The death chi flowed from his core throughout his body, and in the next second, he sped away like an arrow. In just an instant, he was hundreds of meters away, a speed that could not be compared to ordinary running. Thus, under the moonlight, a shadow swiftly moved through the forest. However, as he ran, Zhang noticed something odd. Though it had been only half an hour, he had seen the same scenery multiple times. He stopped and began to observe carefully, which also piqued Blue Spirit's curiosity. Zhang pointed at a withered tree nearby. "I've seen this tree 4 times now. It seems we've been going in circles." Hearing Zhang's words, Blue Spirit frowned slightly. "Could you be mistaken? If we were caught in some kind of spell, I would have noticed." She waved her hand dismissively. "Maybe you're just too tense. We need to keep moving." She continued forward without looking back, but Zhang suddenly called her to stop, suggesting that he might have twisted his ankle due to unfamiliarity with the technique. He proposed taking a break right there. Hearing this, Blue Spirit visibly became annoyed. "At your pace, when will we ever get out? Let me check it for you first." Saying so, she reached out towards Zhang's ankle. As Blue Spirit bent down, Zhang suddenly grasped her neck tightly. "Who exactly are you?" Blue Spirit struggled, shouting, "Mortal, have you lost your mind? Let go of me." Zhang coldly said, "If you were really Blue Spirit, you would have pushed me away by now." As he tightened his grip, Blue Spirit's body began to crumble bit by bit. Zhang scoffed, "If you want to impersonate someone, you should at least make it believable." As he spoke, a crackling sound was heard, and Blue Spirit's body turned into a puppet. Seeing this, Zhang brought his hands together and closed his eyes, chanting a spell. A wave of invisible death chi spread around him. Suddenly, the entire space began to shatter. With a crisp sound, Shaman Cho appeared before Zhang. This sudden turn of events startled Shaman Cho. Knowing that the Willow Spirit training technique technique was a high-level spell that could turn a willow doll into a trusted figure. He was astonished that it had been uncovered by this young man in less than half an hour. Such a talented individual was truly once in a lifetime. Shaman Cho's lips curled up slightly, and he directly said, "Become my disciple." Hearing Shaman Cho's offer to take him as a disciple, Zhang's gaze sharpened, yet he remained cautious and surveyed his surroundings. Though he saw no one else, Shaman Cho was only 10 steps away from him, a distance Zhang was confident he could easily manage. Just as he was about to make a move, he sensed something unusual, the same feeling he had when he first stepped down from the carriage. At that moment, a strange bloodstain appeared on Zhang's cheek, and runes emerged around him. Shaman Cho smiled coldly. "Did you think you could attack me because there's no one around? I have set up barriers around us. If you try to escape, your body might be torn to pieces," Shaman Cho said coldly. "To survive in such a brutal world, you must be fully prepared. That's the first lesson I intend to teach you." Hearing this, Zhang was momentarily stunned. "I haven't agreed to be your disciple yet." Shaman Cho was unconcerned but pulled out a puppet and threw it to Zhang. The puppet had a seal on it and was connected to Zhang by a red thread. It was a puppet sealed with Demon Monk, but Zhang could not feel any of Demon Monk's energy from the puppet and wondered how Shaman Cho had managed it. Then, Shaman Cho spoke again. "I'll give you a piece of advice. Since you hold the secrets of the Heaven-Earth Association, your fate now entirely depends on the moods of the high ranks of the association. But if you become my disciple, you will at least have a chance to live." Shaman Cho knew that even with a sword to his neck, Zhang would still haggle, so he hoped to break him this way. However, Zhang remained composed, staring intently at the puppet in his hand. After a moment of contemplation, he decisively agreed. "All right, but I have one condition in return. You must tell me how you sealed Demon Monk." Hearing this, Shaman Cho burst into laughter. "Had I known this, I wouldn't have needed to threaten you." He then pulled another object from his belt. "This is not difficult for me, as I was planning to teach you anyway. But first, you must take an oath." Zhang took the object Shaman Cho threw to him, furrowing his brows in silence. Zhang looked puzzled. In his hands was a string of black prayer beads. "You just need to wear it on your wrist and say, 'I, Mak Jiangun, the son of Makinden, will become the disciple of Cho Yugong.'" Zhang asked doubtfully, "What will happen after I say it?" Cho Yugong smiled. "Once you've taken the oath, you can no longer harm me. After all, I cannot trust someone who has tried to kill me and attempted to escape." Hearing this, Zhang did not hesitate, tucked the puppet into his bosom, and immediately began to take the oath. As soon as the oath was completed, the prayer beads made a crisp sound, and the curse words appeared. This was the legendary curse retracting bead. Anyone who wears it and takes an oath can neither remove it nor ever disobey the commands of the person they swore to. This was Cho Yugong's scheme. He was someone who needed to control everything. At that moment, Cho Yugong wore a satisfied expression and threw Zhang a book made of cowhide. "This is a manual I wrote myself. It contains what you wish to learn. Memorize it all, then return it to me." Saying this, Cho Yugong turned to leave. However, Zhang stopped him just a few steps away. "Aren't you going to release me from this spell?" Cho Yugong chuckled. "That book also contains the method to undo the spell. I'll give you an hour. If you can't figure it out by then, you're really in trouble." With that, he disappeared into the woods without looking back. Zhang snorted softly, smirking to himself. "This is indeed interesting. It seems he was planning to teach me these things all along." Just then, a figure lightly descended from the sky, the long-missing blue spirit. She had waited until Cho Yugong was far enough away before daring to reappear. However, Zhang looked at her skeptically and, catching her off guard, made a grab at her body, but Blue Spirit easily dodged. Blue Spirit, visibly annoyed, demanded, "What are you trying to do?" Zhang, looking somewhat embarrassed, replied, "Just a little test." In the next second, Blue Spirit burst out laughing, recalling Zhang's comical jumping around in the illusion. But in a blink, she became serious again, curiously asking, "Why did you take such an oath? That string of beads contains a very strong curse retracting power. Only this way could I get this," he said, looking again at the manual in his hand. Blue Spirit was speechless. "Are you really just after this thing? That's not like you at all." The next second, Zhang effortlessly removed the prayer beads from his wrist, surprising Blue Spirit. She frowned and asked, "How did you do that? An oath must be taken in one's own name, right? But my real name isn't Mak Jiangun, and my father isn't Makinden either, so the oath could never take effect." Hearing this, Blue Spirit realized, "So are you planning to run away now?" At that moment, Zhang smiled faintly. "I've changed my mind now. I want to become his disciple." When Blue Spirit heard Zhang say he wanted to become Cho Yugong's disciple, she was completely unsettled. She couldn't understand why Zhang would make such a decision. "Do you really want to become a disciple of the Heaven-Earth Association?" Zhang did not answer, but a firm look appeared on his face. Instead, he shared what he had learned earlier in the carriage. It turned out that Mak Yuchun told him that as one of the 6 heavens and 8 stars represents the pinnacle of martial arts power today. It is said that 6 of them have transcended human limits, and the remaining 8 possess the strongest combat power among humans. Phantom Sword is one of those 8 stars. Phantom Sword was most famous 17 years ago. Rumors claim that his targets are all highly reputable masters in the martial arts world. People speculate that he must be either a royal family member or a top figure in the Heaven-Earth Association. Therefore, he is very likely to be in the Heaven-Earth Association. That is to say, as long as he goes to the Heaven-Earth Association, he might be able to find the other party. Thus, when Cho Yugong offered to take Zhang as his disciple, he began to plan how to infiltrate the inner workings of the Heaven-Earth Association. After all, being dark under the light would facilitate his search for Phantom Sword. After hearing Zhang's words, Blue Spirit was silent for a long time, then slowly exhaled a puff of green smoke. That's quite coincidental. It seems that from the moment we met, our destinies were already destined. Hearing this, Zhang curiously looked at Blue Spirit, wondering why she suddenly brought this up. However, Blue Spirit looked at him with a determined gaze. Become my disciple, take on my karma, and avenge me. At this moment, Blue Spirit's tone was completely different from usual. Every word she uttered was filled with intense murderous intent. Zhang carefully thought about it. It seemed her anger was always directed at the Heaven-Earth Association. Indeed, she wanted to take revenge on the Heaven-Earth Association, but what puzzled Zhang was why she was so fixated on revenge. Considering your age, shouldn't the object of your revenge have died long ago? Can't such a long time dilute your hatred? Zhang asked, puzzled. Blue Spirit's lips trembled slightly. If it were you, would your hatred diminish over time? At that moment, Zhang fell silent, because in his heart, he harbored thoughts similar to Blue Spirit's. I absolutely cannot forgive that bastard and his descendants living in this world, nor can I forget the humiliation after the truth was concealed. Even if 1,000 years pass and the object of my vengeance has decayed, the anger in my heart will never be erased. Therefore, I must annihilate them, even if it means drenching everything in blood. At this moment, Zhang once again felt the purest anger in Blue Spirit's heart, as if it were transforming into a blood sea that slowly engulfed him, sinking deeper and deeper. Although Zhang understood that this was an illusion of Blue Spirit's anger, he still saw the hatred in the depths of her heart, cold and dark, even after more than 700 years, just like himself, who struggled to live to avenge his grandfather. At that moment, Zhang's thoughts solidified. I understand. I am willing to become your disciple. Blue Spirit was stunned. She did not expect Zhang to agree so quickly and was at a loss for words for a moment. She just silently watched him, and after a long while, she turned her head away pretentiously and muttered, "You should have done so in the first place." Before she could finish her sentence, Zhang spoke again. However, as a condition, you must tell me the reason for your revenge. I don't want to get involved in something I don't understand. Blue Spirit frowned slightly, exhaled a puff of green smoke slowly, and said with a dim expression, "Since that's the case, I will tell you one of the reasons. Originally, the Heaven-Earth Association was formed by 3 divisions, one of which was the Moon Division." Hearing Blue Spirit's words, Zhang seemed to guess something. "It seems that you are a member of the Moon Division." At this moment, Blue Spirit did not deny it. "That's all I can tell you now. What you need to do is inherit the karma of the Moon Division." Hearing this, Zhang silently gazed at Blue Spirit, trying to discern her thoughts from her eyes. However, despite looking for a long time, he was never able to see through her. He was curious about what exactly had happened back then that made Blue Spirit keep silent about it all this time. Finally, Zhang bowed with both hands clasped together and sincerely revealed his own name to Blue Spirit. "My name is Zhang." At this moment, the moonlight shone on Blue Spirit's face as if time had come to a standstill. The breeze fluttered through her sleeves, and Zhang's voice came again. "I will accept my fate and inherit all the karma of the Moon Division, and voluntarily become Blue Spirit's disciple." Hearing Zhang's vow, Blue Spirit smiled, a smile so radiant. Perhaps at this moment, she saw a glimpse of hope for her revenge. As fate intertwined, under the moonlight, Zhang made his vow to voluntarily become Blue Spirit's disciple. Seeing Zhang's sincere eyes, Blue Spirit's eyebrows slightly raised, and her heart filled with satisfaction. She slowly exhaled a puff of smoke. "Very well, from now on, you should call me master." However, this request was quickly rejected by Zhang. He calmly said, "This is my second condition. Let's omit formal titles like master and disciple." Blue Spirit was infuriated. "How can you say that? You just called that Taoist master, so why can't you call me that?" Zhang disdainfully pulled out the wooden doll containing Demon Monk from his chest. "As a spirit, Demon Monk always calls me master, yet I don't see you calling me master." At this, Blue Spirit was rendered speechless and could only silently turn her head away, mentally cursing Demon Monk. Seeing this, Zhang just smiled faintly. In fact, if he was to go to the Heaven-Earth Association, he would need to learn the rest of the magic spells from Blue Spirit, so it was only right to call her master. But regardless, now that his plot had succeeded, he would just leave it at that. Thinking this, he opened the secret book in his hand and began trying to lift the surrounding prohibitions. An hour later, the masked men who had been attracted away started to return one by one. Cho Yugong looked disappointedly towards the northwest forest. He had expected Zhang to lift the prohibitions quickly, but as it was nearing an hour, he inevitably began to doubt whether his demands were too harsh. In reality, an hour was not very long, especially considering the difficulty of mastering specified techniques in such a short time. Moreover, he was still in such a perilous situation. However, Cho Yugong decided to personally go and lift the prohibitions. Just then, Zhang's figure slowly walked out of the forest. The masked men were startled and prepared to subdue him, but Cho Yugong stopped them. Then, Zhang called Cho Yugong master. Although the masked men were puzzled, they dared not say anything. At this moment, Cho Yugong looked at Zhang in front of him, his eyes filled with surprise, but he kept scolding blaming Zhang for being later than expected. In fact, Zhang's speed was entirely beyond his expectations. Among all the talents Cho Yugong valued, Zhang had the most potential. However, now that Mok Jiangwon had become his disciple, he also decided to refrain from praising him too much, simply agreeing with a brief remark, then letting Zhang return to the cart to rest. As the carriage slowly moved forward, the large troop set off again towards the distance. Back in the carriage, Zhang finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, Mok Yuchun was still lying in the carriage, fast asleep. Zhang's lips curled up slightly, whispering softly, "It seems we haven't been discovered yet." Speaking, a thumb-sized wooden doll emerged from his embrace. The wooden doll spoke. "I never thought I'd have to hide in such a wooden doll." The speaker was Blue Spirit. Unfortunately, due to Blue Spirit's high level, even a slight movement from her would cause the doll to crack. Fortunately, Zhang's masterful control of the technique allowed the doll to remain intact. However, it was indeed uncomfortable for Blue Spirit to be trapped inside. Zhang could only comfort her, promising to find her a suitable body as soon as possible. Originally, to help Blue Spirit conceal her presence, Zhang not only quickly learned the art of prohibition but also mastered the technique of infusing spirits into dolls with the remaining time. If Cho Yugong knew, he would probably be scared silly with laughter. Zhang then started his long journey to the Heaven-Earth Association. 2 weeks later, various troops gradually converged. At this moment, not far from the forest, a figure watched the direction of the caravan's progress. This person was Ha Chiron, possessed by Go-chan. At this moment, he was incredibly conflicted, on one hand, lamenting the predicament of becoming a woman, and on the other, regretting making such a decision. Originally, after Mok Jiangwon was taken away by Sun Yun, Go-chan had been following behind the carriage. Having become Zhang's spirit, he had formed a connection with Zhang and thus instinctively knew where Mok Jiangwon was. In fact, if it weren't for becoming a spirit, this would have been an excellent opportunity to escape from Mok Jiangwon. However, the farther he got away, the more anxious he felt in his heart, perhaps because he knew that if Mok Jiangwon died, he would disappear too. So, no matter what, if he wanted to remain in this world, he had to help Mok Jiangwon survive. But the thought of rescuing someone from the hands of the Heaven-Earth Association immediately made him balk. "I can't keep going like this. I have to think of a plan first." As Ha Chiron was a top assassin of the Flying Assassins School, she definitely had experience in infiltration. Go-chan thought that if he could trace her memories, he might discover some infiltration techniques he had never tried before. Just then, an idea popped into Go-chan's mind, and he felt somewhat helpless. "It's over. I have to resort to using my beauty." When this thought emerged, a wave of embarrassment swept over him, and it took quite some effort for Go-chan to overcome his rationality and maintain the last bit of his dignity. However, along the way, there was something that greatly puzzled Go-chan. Since the people of the Heaven-Earth Association had already achieved their objective, why didn't they return directly to the Heaven-Earth Association, instead taking detours? Moreover, every 2 days, they would see groups of kids under the age of 20 joining the troops. This situation gave him a vague premonition of something ominous. Zhang had also noticed this early on. He had inquired several times with Cho Yugong, but the responses he received were to mind his own business. Therefore, in the following time, he could only stay in the carriage, focusing on studying secret techniques. Until this day, the massive troop of over 300 people, led by Sun Yun, suddenly stopped. Sun Yun, visibly excited, shouted toward the front, "This place is still as spectacular as ever." Hearing this, Zhang also emerged from the carriage. What entered his sight was a huge city, standing amidst numerous towering peaks, separated by a tall wall. Just passing through the grand entrance in front of him would allow entry. Just then, the voice of Blue Spirit came from the wooden doll in Zhang's hand. "Are you nervous?" Zhang didn't respond, and Blue Spirit reminded him, "You'd better start getting nervous. Given your current strength, if you encounter a real expert, you probably won't last half a round." In fact, Zhang's growth had been incredibly fast. In just a month, he had leaped from a third-rate level to a first-class master, thanks largely to the death chi he had absorbed at the Mock Sword Manor, giving him the equivalent of half a century's worth of chi. However, Blue Spirit appeared calm on the surface but was still filled with deep worries. After all, places filled with death chi like the Mock Sword Manor were not commonly found. Moreover, once Zhang stepped into the pinnacle realm, he could no longer rely solely on absorbing death chi for cultivation. He would need to comprehend on his own to further improve. Otherwise, he might remain stagnant for the rest of his life. If Zhang wants to undertake the legacy of the Moon Division, not only do they need to become stronger faster, but they also need some luck. While Blue Spirit analyzed the current situation, Zhang suddenly noticed something unusual, as the convoy did not enter the city through the main gate, but moved along the wall towards another direction. Zhang, puzzled, suddenly had the carriage door pushed open by Cho Yugong, who appeared panicked and said, "There's a problem." Before Zhang could even ask, Cho Yugong pulled an item from his clothes and, without hesitation, handed it to Zhang. No time to explain. "Put this on quickly." It was an ancient ring, engraved with tiny spell characters. "As long as you wear this, even without talismans, you can use magic." Zhang was curious why Cho Yugong would give him this, but Cho Yugong did not explain and just muttered to himself, "Such an absurd thing to happen. I thought they wouldn't do this since you were a hostage, but I didn't expect expect you to be sent there," Cho Yugong sighed. It turned out that just then, the leader of the Heaven-Earth Association had personally ordered that the Mach brothers be sent to Corpse Blood Valley. As a testing ground for the Heaven-Earth Association, countless youths are sent there each year, but less than 10% survive. There is no mercy or kindness there, only endless slaughter and corpses everywhere. Zhang had not yet entered the valley, but from Cho Yugong's words, he could already deeply feel the terror and bloodiness of the Corpse Blood Valley. Cho Yugong clenched his fists, unwilling in his heart. His brilliant disciple, whom he had found with great difficulty, was about to be thrown into such a place to die. "I will report to the chief immediately and get you out," he said excitedly to Zhang. "During this time, you must find a way to survive." Just as he finished speaking, a cold voice came from outside the carriage. "This is as far as it goes. From now on, no one but the testers is allowed to enter." A group of people wearing red scarves and masks stopped the carriage, staring intently at Zhang with their eerie eyes. "Welcome to the Corpse Blood Valley." Before Zhang could truly enter the inner parts of the Heaven-Earth Association, he was sent to the Corpse Blood Valley. As a testing ground for the Heaven-Earth Association, anyone who enters must go through a life-or-death ordeal, and less than 1 in 10 survive. At this time, Mach Yuchan was also moving into the valley with the crowd. Over the past month, except for meal times, he had been almost continuously unconscious and knew nothing about the place he was going to. However, he spotted Mach Jiangwon in the crowd, shouted out, and prepared to push through the crowd to ask Mach Jiangwon for clarity. But the next second, he was hit on the back by a warrior's club. Though his acupoints had been released, his inner power was sealed, and he could only obediently follow orders, moving forward quietly like a captive. Unlike Mach Yuchan's panic, Zhang appeared unusually calm. He had already sensed the problem through Cho Yugong's warning. Now, the only thing that puzzled him was why everyone here had their inner power sealed with silver needles, including himself and Mach Yuchan. He asked Blue Spirit for the reason, but she was also clueless. She only knew that such a situation had never happened before in the Heaven-Earth Association and reminded Zhang to be careful, as this place was very sinister. Thus, after about 3 hours of marching, the crowd finally reached a wide, shallow valley. By now, many youths had gathered, including the team with Mach Jiangwon, totaling at least 800 people. As they arrived, a deafening voice rang out, "Welcome to the Corpse Blood Valley." Instantly, all eyes were fixed on the figure standing on the platform ahead. Wearing a demon mask and hands behind his back, he stood proudly. He said, "From now on, you will undertake the first task." As he spoke, he pulled out a fingertip-sized iron ball from his pocket. As the crowd looked on in confusion, the demon-masked man continued, "In the waters of this valley, there are many iron balls like this. You need to find them within a specified time, or you will face the penalty of death." Upon this proclamation, the crowd instantly became agitated. Now deep into the night, although there were warriors holding torches, finding these tiny iron balls in the darkness was like searching for a needle in a haystack. At that moment, a youth raised his hand and said, "We are all elites selected from our own sex, yet now we are to lose our lives over a small iron ball. Isn't this too excessive?" Before he could finish, a plop sound was heard as the iron ball in the hand of the demon-masked man pierced through his head. Everyone around immediately showed shocked expressions and began to panic. The demon-masked man spoke loudly again, "Here, strength, status, and all other identities will lose their meaning. The only thing you must do is obey commands unconditionally. Those who question or resist will lose their lives." Instantly, the area fell dead silent. The previously noisy valley suddenly quieted down, and faced with the threat of death, everyone was terrified. Even Zhang is quiet in the crowd. The scene shifts to a room somewhere where Cho Yugong paces back and forth anxiously, with Sun Yun by his side, equally anxious. Cho Yugong, full of indignation, asked, "Why didn't you tell the leader that I had already taken him as a disciple?" To this, Sun Yun responded with disdain, "It would have been useless. When have you ever seen the leader retract an order?" Cho Yugong fell silent. As Sun Yun said, once the leader issued an order, it was never retracted, and sometimes those who failed to execute the order were even severely punished. Thinking of this, Cho Yugong knew that persuading the leader was almost impossible, but having finally found such a usable disciple, how could he bear to lose him? In fact, Sun Yun also felt the same regret. Zhang was the first person who could recite the content of the Human Skin book, which many had died trying to read without understanding it, not to mention that he had also learned the long-lost lunar vein sword technique. Now, without even meeting the leader, Zhang was sent to the Corpse Blood Valley, a decision that Sun Yun found hard to understand. Suddenly, Sun Yun's gaze sharpened. Could it be that the leader sent that boy to the Corpse Blood Valley to test him? Just then, the demon-masked man lit a long incense stick and coldly reminded, "Let me also tell you, the number of iron balls in the valley is far less than the number of people present. You better start moving quickly." The trial in the Corpse Blood Valley finally began. At the command of the demon-masked man, the youth who had been hesitating rushed into the valley. Over 800 people running at the same time made the ground seem to shake. Seeing this scene, Mach Yuchan cursed silently in his heart, feeling he had really bad luck. At this point, he had no choice. Even though Mach Jiangwon was his half-brother from the same father, he had to find an iron ball first, or else he would die. Just as everyone jumped into the water and frantically searched for iron balls. Mok Yu-chun accidentally noticed that Mok Jae-won was standing still, seemingly aloof. What is this guy doing? Does he really not fear death? Mok Yu-chun wondered in his heart, but he had no time to ponder further. Finding a small iron ball in such darkness was no easy task. The area was filled with the anxious voices of youths groping in the water, with their fingers inevitably getting injured. Soon, much time had passed. Just then, a voice suddenly rang out across the valley. I found one. A youth held up the iron ball he had just picked up and shouted excitedly. At that moment, his hand holding the iron ball was mangled, but he still smiled broadly. On one hand, he was relieved that he wouldn't have to die, and on the other, he was thrilled to have distinguished himself. However, this scene also aroused jealousy and hostility among the onlookers. As the boy holding the iron ball walked toward the stands, a burly youth madly rushed toward him. At this moment, although the boy with the iron ball was already exhausted, he still desperately ran forward. However, his pursuer clearly had no intention of giving up, shouting as he chased, "Kid, if I catch you, I'll smash you into a pancake." Fortunately, there was a significant difference in their speeds, and it wasn't long before a considerable distance was created. The boy with the iron ball showed a smug expression, but before he could enjoy his triumph for long, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his way. Mok Jae-won stood there with his hands behind his back, his face expressionless. The boy with the iron ball was stunned, thinking to himself, when did this guy get ahead of me? He soon realized that Mok Jae-won had never entered the valley. At the same time, the demon-masked man had witnessed the entire scene, a hint of mockery flashing in his eyes as he took interest in watching this group of youths perform. Faced with such a dilemma, the boy with the iron ball made a startling move. Since you all want to steal my iron ball, then no one shall have it. Saying this, he swallowed the iron ball without hesitation. Seeing this, the burly youth cursed loudly, to think I've been busy for nothing in the end. However, before he could finish, Mok Jae-won moved swiftly forward, instantly grabbing the throat of the boy with the iron ball. At that moment, Mok Jae-won's lips curled into a sinister smile. You've really made things complicated. Saying this, his fingers inadvertently pressed hard against the other's throat. Before the boy with the iron ball could react, a pfft sound was heard as Mok Jae-won's palm went straight through his neck. As they watched the throat being brutally torn open, the entire place fell into a dead silence. Not just the youth participating in the trial, even the surrounding guards felt a chill run down their spines. The burly youth, who had been shouting moments ago, now collapsed on the ground in terror, especially after making eye contact with Mok Jae-won's demonic gaze, feeling as though his heart was about to burst. As the saying goes, once your momentum is suppressed, no matter how strong you are, you will lose the courage to confront your opponent. Faced with the ruthlessly brutal Mok Jae-won, no one dared to step forward to stop him, and everyone was marked with a deep imprint of fear, only able to watch helplessly as Mok Jae-won handed over the iron ball. At that moment, Blue Spirit also showed a hint of excitement, for Jong's actions seemed to trigger some changes here, a perfect start for her plan of revenge against the Heaven-Earth Association. On the other side, the demon-masked man, looking at the blood-stained iron ball in Mok Jae-won's hand, became even more interested in Jong. He softly said, "Congratulations on passing the first trial. To get the iron ball without entering the water was something that had never happened before in previous trials. It seems this kid had planned it all from the start." Thinking this, he pulled out an item from his pocket, flicked his fingers, and tossed it to Mok Jae-won. It was a round silver medal engraved with the character 1. "This is your proof of passing the first trial," said the demon-masked man. "Keep it and the iron ball well." He then instructed the guards to take Mok Jae-won aside to rest. Mok Jae-won did not linger. After securing the items, he followed the guards to one side. At this moment, watching Jong's unruffled back, the demon-masked man fell into thought. Until now, he had been puzzled why the leader would let a child from a reputable family participate in the trial, perhaps intending to torture him before killing him. But now, it seemed not so. Indeed, the leader would not send them here without reason. If the leader had seen Mok Jae-won's performance just now, he would also be surprised. Compared to his reputable family background, Mok Jae-won's nature seemed more akin to those from the demonic path. This made the demon-masked man even more interested in Jong's upcoming trials. Meanwhile, Jong sat on a stone nearby, studying the silver medal in his hand. From the demon-masked man's words, he had guessed the true nature of the Corpse Blood Valley trial. The reason the survival rate here was less than 10% was that the Heaven-Earth Association wanted to filter out useful talents through competition. It looked like the upcoming trials would be even more intense. Indeed, the melee in the shallow valley became more intense. To fight for the iron balls, youths participating in the trial killed each other, and whenever someone found an iron ball, it would attract others' attacks. Gradually, they learned to keep silent after picking up an iron ball, but as soon as they prepared to leave the water surface, they would be spotted and attacked. During this, one youth seized the chance to leave but was suddenly sent flying with a slap from a bald youth covered in strange tattoos. Seeing these tattoos, youths who had intended to snatch the ball immediately stopped in their tracks, their faces showing terror because the tattoos indicated that this person came from Scarlet Death Valley. Scarlet Death Valley, as one of the 3 most infamous organizations under the Heaven-Earth Association, although Although only having over 30 disciples, its notoriety was enough to terrify anyone in the martial world. Each one was a master. After handing over the iron ball, the bald youth walked disappointedly towards Mok Jae-woon, snorting disdainfully, "A bunch of useless trash." Then he quietly threatened Mok Jae-woon, "Don't think you can surpass me in the next round, because I will kill you with my own hands." Hearing this blatant threat, Mok Jae-woon just gave a cold smile, unwilling to waste energy on such unnecessary matters. Meanwhile, the slaughter in the valley continued, featuring a few particularly conspicuous figures. Among them, a short-haired girl with a pale face, but wherever she went, youth rushing towards her invariably fell to the ground. Even without using internal power, she mercilessly killed people with just a stone in her hand. She was an assassin from the Manhwa House. The once Manhwa House was one of the 4 major assassin organizations, which later withdrew from the assassination business and joined the Heaven-Earth Association. The second notable figure was a youth as sturdy as a calf, from the sect known in the martial world for its external skills, Baekhyun sect. They primarily focused on physical training, and even with their internal power sealed, they could still demonstrate extraordinary strength here. Besides them, some other youths also displayed exceptional talent, easily passing the first trial. As time went on, the remaining time also grew shorter. At this moment, Mok Yu-chun was still searching in the water, but no matter how hard he tried, he could never find a trace of the iron ball. His heart was filled with confusion and anger. Why did he, just a hostage, have to participate in this damn trial? At that time, Mok Yu-chun started to have thoughts of retreating, wondering if perhaps he could just plead with the demon-masked man for forgiveness. However, just then, a youth holding an iron ball next to him was suddenly beheaded. The guard wiped the blood off his blade and coldly said, "Didn't I say not to ask questions at random?" This scene completely stunned Mok Yu-chun. At that moment, he finally understood that here, no matter who you are, if you don't follow the rules, the only outcome is death. What he didn't know was that the boy was killed because the iron ball he was holding was the one initially thrown out by the demon-masked man, which had no number engraved on it. Mok Jae-woon sensed something odd. The death chi was spreading through the valley and silently converging towards him. So, to test if he can absorb the death chi, he extended his hand into the air, following the flow of the death chi, and began to chant a spell. Unexpectedly, as soon as he spoke the spell, the surrounding death chi seemed to be summoned, rapidly gathering into his palm. This scene excited him greatly. As he had suspected, even with his internal power sealed, he was still able to smoothly operate his techniques. It seemed the techniques from the Human Skin book were indeed marvelous. With this realization, he no longer hesitated and began greedily absorbing the surrounding death chi. As the death chi continuously flowed into his body, he felt as if he had returned to Mock Sword Manor, only the death chi here was much denser than before. Watching youths still fiercely fighting, Mok Jae-woon's eyes turned even redder. Yes, keep killing each other. The more they kill, the more death chi he could absorb. As time ticked away, only 1 minute remained in the first trial, yet many youths were still killing each other over the iron balls. At this time, Mok Yu-chun had pinned a youth down, punching him repeatedly in the face. At that moment, the intense desire to survive seemed to awaken the demon inside Mok Yu-chun. After he had beaten the youth beneath him to a bloody pulp, Mok Yu-chun finally stopped his fists, trembling as he picked up the blood-stained iron ball, collapsing into the water, his gaze vacant. He couldn't remember how many he had killed to get that iron ball, feeling as though he had turned into a beast, where, to survive, there was no other way but to kill. Just then, the long incense burned down to its last flicker. At the same time, the voice of the demon-masked man rang out again. "The trial is over. All those who did not get an iron ball will be killed without mercy." Instantly, the valley was filled with wails of agony. As the youth's internal powers were sealed, they had no way to resist against the armed guards. Watching the bodies fall around him, Mok Yu-chun was stunned. He had just obtained an iron ball and hadn't had the chance to hand it over. Was he also destined to die like the others? Just then, an armed guard approached him. Mok Yu-chun, in a daze, slowly raised the iron ball in his hand. At that moment, fear completely overwhelmed him. However, to his surprise, the guard patted him on the shoulder and said, "Passed," then turned and walked away. Instantly, all the tension and fear vanished. He collapsed to the ground, and the first thought that came to his mind was, "I survived." However, when he saw his hands covered in blood, a wave of guilt overwhelmed him. What have I done? Although he knew he had fought desperately to survive, he still couldn't accept this version of himself. Thus, from the original 800+ participants, only 468 remained. When the demon-masked man heard the final number, he burst out laughing. It turned out that 60% had survived. He seemed very pleased with this result. However, he showed no concern for those who had died. He congratulated the youths below. "Congratulations on passing the first trial." The youths just listened quietly. In the 2 hours of the trial, they had fought with all their might to survive. Though they were exhausted now, they were secretly relieved to have lived. Watching them, the demon-masked man continued, "You should know by now, each iron ball is engraved with a different number. Please remember them well, as they will serve as your only identifier here. Let's begin the second trial immediately." Hearing the demon-masked man's words, those youths who hadn't had time to catch their breath immediately stirred, especially those who had barely passed, as the candle was about to burn burn out. Their faces showed pain. They had thought they could rest well after the first trial, but instead, they were thrown right into the next one. Mach Yuchan looked the same. He hadn't recovered his strength yet, and he didn't know how much longer he could last. The demon-masked man ignored their reactions, clapped his hands, and gently pointed to the mountain across. From now until dawn, you just need to survive on that mountain. Hearing this, the youths breathed a sigh of relief. Although it was deep into the night, there were still about 3 hours until dawn. If that was all, they just needed to find a good place to hide, which would allow them to rest well and easily pass the trial. However, how could things be that simple? The demon-masked man spoke coldly. The second trial also has restrictions. There are 40 flags planted on the mountain across. When dawn breaks, you need to be near one of the flags, but only 8 people can stand around each flag. If there are more than 8 people or fewer than 8, it will be considered a trial failure, and those who fail will be executed. As soon as this was announced, the scene was in uproar again. Mach Yuchan also showed a look of shock. At least 500 people had survived the first trial, but there were only 40 flags on the mountain. This meant that only 320 people could survive, signaling that another round of bloody trials was about to begin. The place fell silent, as if everyone was pondering the difference in this trial. However, they quickly realized the key was teamwork. Once someone found a flag, to hold it, 8 people must cooperate for the remainder of the time. This was full of variables, as the method of cooperation would directly determine whether the team could effectively hold on. At this moment, everyone naturally turned their eyes to each other. They didn't rush to blindly search for flags, but began to communicate and form teams. Among them, the bald youth who had passed the first trial early quickly caught everyone's attention. Being able to join his team or recruit him to their own would surely be an advantage in this trial. However, faced with their invitations, the bald youth directly chose to reject. Now, both in terms of physical strength and ability, he held the upper hand, so he planned to make good use of this by teaming up with someone of equal strength. Only in this way could he conserve energy before the start of the third round. Thus, he approached the youth who was strong as an ox and straightforwardly invited him. Since our strengths are comparable, why don't we team up? That way, we'll have a better chance of getting through the second round. Hearing the bald youth's words, the burly youth pondered for a moment and indeed thought it was a good strategy, but he still immediately declined the invitation. I'll think about teaming up after I find a flag. He said this and, without turning back, walked away. He did this to conceal his own strength, because eventually they would compete against each other, and he didn't want his abilities to be understood so soon. The bald youth, furious, blurted out, "You'll regret this," and then turned to invite the girl from the Manhwa house. However, before he could speak, he was ruthlessly rejected. With no other choice, the bald youth could only shut his mouth in frustration. It seemed from the start, cooperating with these people was unlikely. As he seethed with anger, Jong approached him proactively, asking, "Do you want to team up with me?" The bald youth was startled, not expecting anyone to approach him voluntarily. Could it be that the other had the same idea? Although teaming up with Jong didn't seem too bad, the sight of Jong enjoying himself gave him a chilling feeling. Out of instinct, he chose to decline. Watching the bald youths retreating back, Blue Spirit couldn't help but laugh. "You got rejected. It seems the scene of you tearing someone's throat open had quite an impact on them." Jong sighed, then his face twisted into a sinister smile. "I was actually planning on killing him first, but according to Blue Spirit, finding teammates was now very difficult for him. Perhaps he should listen to Blue Spirit's advice and try a different way to pass the trials." As he pondered his next move, a short-haired youth cautiously approached him, asking, "Do you need a teammate?" Surprised that someone was inviting him to join their team, Jong was taken aback. Before he could respond, the short-haired youth continued, "Our team just needs one more person. Would you like to join us?" Jong turned to look in the direction the short-haired youth was pointing. There were 6 youths there. Among them, a beautiful girl sat in the center, with 5 other youths circled around her like guards, clearly indicating that the team was centered around her. The girl also waved at Jong to signal him. Jong smiled slightly and immediately agreed. Meanwhile, seeing that Mach Jaehyun had already formed a team, Mach Yuchan also sighed. Although he and Mach Jaehyun were brothers, he had considered joining forces but ultimately gave up. Mach Jaehyun's life or death was irrelevant to him. After all, he had also found a team. The most important thing now was to ensure his own survival. Thus, Mach Yuchan convinced himself internally. Just then, the drumbeat signaling the start of the second trial rang out. The youths all rushed towards the mountain. As before, moving early was advantageous. However, the warriors watching them couldn't help but sneer, knowing this round would be much harder than the youths imagined. The scene shifted, and Jong's small team had already entered the woods, with Jong following quietly behind. At this point, a youth whispered to the girl in the center of the team, "Is it really okay to have this guy in our team?" The others had similar doubts, as everyone else avoided Jong if they could. To this, the girl chuckled lightly and said, "Are you scared? Don't worry. Trust me, having him with us is beneficial. At least those who are afraid of him won't dare to attack us. Besides, he can tear people's throats out with his bare hands. We need to make good use of someone with such strength." In fact, from the beginning, they had planned to use Jong and then dispose of him. Although he was strong, they believed that 7 people could surely subdue him. They had even arranged for someone to follow at the back of the team to maintain a certain distance from from the others. As soon as Zhang died, their companion would appear to fill the gap. The girl smugly ridiculed those fools who had easily given up such a good card. As they delved deeper into the woods, the girl was surprised to find that Zhang was actually quite handsome. She thought it a waste to not use such a good-looking face, so she quietly moved closer to Zhang, starting to make small talk and inquire about his name and background. The girl confidently believed that men were easily seduced by women, especially younger boys who were the easiest to attract. She showed a bit of interest, thinking he would take the bait. However, faced with the girl's advances, Zhang remained expressionless. Seeing him unresponsive, the girl leaned in and whispered, "Do you know, you've caught my attention." Zhang glanced at her and said with a smile, "I feel the same." Seeing this, the surrounding boys immediately became envious, sending looks of jealousy her way. After speaking, he placed his hand on the girl's shoulder. At this moment, the girl was secretly pleased with herself, as she had anticipated. Just a little initiative on her part, and the other party couldn't resist. Next, she only needed to exploit the fool's jealousy, and they would become even more loyal to her, just as she was smug about her perfect plan. With a snap, Zhang unhesitatingly broke her neck. The air fell instantly silent, and the girl didn't even have time to scream before she died on the spot. The others were stunned. They had thought Zhang would be manipulated by the girl, but instead, he was ruthlessly decisive, ending her life in an instant. They stood by, too shocked to speak. Nobody expected such a thing to happen. At that moment, a youth shouted, "What on earth have you done, you maniac?" However, faced with the youth's accusation, the corners of Zhang's mouth slightly lifted, as if everything around him was engulfed in a crimson light. He laughed and said, "Well then, it's dinner time now." Hearing this, the youths were extremely shocked. Just then, Zhang gave an ominous smile. "Thank you for the meal."